Countless young men and women were suddenly summoned to a strange area. Along with them came a system notification demanding they prepare to complete Chapter 1 adaptation. The time remaining until the first monster wave was only 4 minutes and 21 seconds. In the crowd, a young man with long hair suddenly received a mysterious treasure box sent just to him, and with the mystical power he received from the treasure. What must he do to survive the first wave of monsters? To explain all this, we must go back one day to our protagonist, Jong-sun, who was standing inside a strange space. Surrounded by countless moving gears and machinery, a clear ringing sound echoed. "Player Jong-sun, you're out of time." As the words faded, a girl, her entire body radiating a holy light, reached her hand toward Jong-sun as if to take him somewhere. But to tell this story, we have to start with the Temple of 10,000 Demons. The demon of greed led the hordes and created a temple of rare gold mined from Hell Mountain. The Temple of 10,000 Demons was originally located at the top of the tower. But after the third war between gods and demons, all remnants of the demonic forces, including the Temple of 10,000 Demons, were cast out from the tower's peak after they were all defeated. Just when this place thought it would have a moment of peace, it was suddenly attacked by an unidentified enemy, an outsider, and was ultimately destroyed. The outsiders drove away the constellations, with power that surpassed even the gods, and finally annihilated the players who had lost their strength. A society where all players were wiped out. This is the situation the tower is now facing. And now the last hope falls upon Jong-sun. It's unbelievable. The Temple of 10,000 Demons fell to the 92nd floor. But thanks to that, we now have a chance to turn things around. The thing I'm looking for is hidden in this place. Mamon's treasure. If I can use it to turn back time, Jong-sun thought to himself. At that same moment, as soon as he opened the door in front of him, a notification appeared. Player Jong-sun has entered the Temple of 10,000 Demons. This is a first. A player has entered the Temple of 10,000 Demons. You have achieved a historic feat. You have entered the realm of the gods as a mortal. You have achieved a glorious feat. Ignoring the notifications, Jong-sun let out a sigh of relief. I finally made it. So this is the Temple of 10,000 Demons, huh? He said this as he focused his gaze ahead. Before Jong-sun's eyes was a vast, glittering golden space. However, before Jong-sun could observe much more, the space around him began to rumble violently, and cracks started appearing on the ceiling. This made Jong-sun feel a sense of urgency. "Is that the spot I have to hurry?" he said with a frown, simultaneously using his unique skill, Journey's Milestone. This is the highest tier skill for exploration and searching via heroic leap. Without this skill, I couldn't have found the Temple of 10,000 Demons, nor could I have survived until now. I have to rely on you again. "Lead me to Mamon's treasure," he muttered. Then the golden needle quickly moved, forcing Jong-sun to rush after it. A dead end. Why, do I have to touch that thing? Jong-sun thought, as he saw the needle pointing to a candle sconce on the wall. Seeing this with no time to hesitate, our hero immediately grabbed the candle and twisted it downwards. Right after that, the wall rumbled and moved, revealing a secret passage within. After Jong-sun descended all the stairs, he was led to a massive golden door. Looking at the door, Jong-sun said to himself, "This must be Mamon's treasure. Who would have thought I'd have to thank that guy Felix? It still pisses me off every time I think about how he tricked me." As he said this, a few vivid memories surfaced in Jong-sun's mind. A mysterious man dressed like a monk threw a key in front of Jong-sun as if giving him alms. "Here, consider this payment for the request." "This key? Besides, I don't have any money to pay you anyway." Hearing this, Jong-sun couldn't possibly agree, so he immediately challenged him. "This isn't what the contract said. If you keep taking advantage of me like this, I'll just walk away." In response to his words, the man named Felix and his cronies burst out laughing, completely unconcerned. "If you break your contract with our guild, your adventuring career will be over. You dare!" "Back then, I didn't even know how to use that key, and I ended up trading it for my fee." Jong-sun chuckled to himself, and then he quickly inserted the key into the lock. At the same time, a notification appeared. The hidden property of the golden key has been unlocked. Mamon's golden key. A golden key that allows access to Mamon's treasure. Entered the treasury of greed. Now after the door opened, an endless hoard of treasure lay before Jong-sun. There was no telling how much gold and silver there was. The deeper he went, the more rare items he witnessed piled high. The Cursed Sword Tithing. A heavenly demon technique manual. A 10th circle ancient magic grimoire. There's even a dragon's heart. How on earth did they collect all of this? Jong-sun thought in surprise as the tremors slowly began to intensify, forcing him to hurry. It seems that thing has already closed. "There's no more time! Lead me to the treasure I'm looking for!" Jong-sul shouted at the compass needle. Yes, just like that, following its guidance, our protagonist ran to a mountain of gold coins. Impossible. Is this the mountain of treasure? As he spoke, he reached into this mountain of coins to dig around until he pulled out an hourglass from within the pile of gold. Found it. The hourglass of the time. God Kronos. The hourglass of Kronos. An hourglass created by Kronos, the god of time capable of reversing the user's personal time. This was the very thing Jong-sun was looking for, and also the key to changing the outcome of everything. However, there was a problem with it. Even if he used this hourglass, only the user's personal time would be reversed. If I go back and prevent the war between gods and demons and climb the tower to stop the outsiders myself, I can at least prevent the worst-case scenario from happening. No sooner said than done, Jong-sun immediately flipped the hourglass over. And right after that, the hourglass began to glow brightly, shooting sparks of lightning all around. The hourglass of Kronos has been used. The time within the tower has been reversed for the first time. Time remaining until all the sand has fallen is 9 minutes and 58 seconds. If I can turn back time, I'll do whatever it takes to stop the current situation, Jong-sun vowed to himself. However, at that very moment, suddenly a loud explosion echoed from above. Then from the ceiling, a mass of tentacles covered in eyes broke through and lunged straight for Jong-sun's position. Luckily, he was on guard and managed to dodge in time. And at that moment, our protagonist, also got a chance to get a good look at the thing that had just attacked him. At a glance, it looked like a cluster of snakes, with countless eyes growing on their bodies. Then, as if they had caught his scent, the snakes lunged in unison, opening their mouths wide to snap at our protagonist, forcing him to turn tail and run. But luckily, this is the greatest treasure hoard there is, and inside it are countless divine weapons. That's right, it's not just treasure in here. There are also weapons of the gods. Jong-sun's eyes lit up, and right after that, he casually grabbed the spear closest to him. This is Zeus's lightning bolt Astrope. Well, I can't take it all with me anyway. I'd best enjoy it while I still can, Jong-sun mumbled, and then he got into position, gripped the spear tightly in his hand, and hurled it forcefully toward the mass of snakes. The moment the spearhead struck, it released a terrifying bolt of lightning, making the grotesque snakes convulse violently. But the massive monster was not dead yet. In its pain, it whipped a snake-like tentacle straight at Jong-sun, making him cry out in pain as he was knocked backward. It's stronger than I thought. Jong-sun frowned, thinking. At the same time, next to him, a greatsword erupted in ferocious flames, as if wanting to help him. Isn't this Leviatine, the sword of destruction? Using the weapons of the gods, I can deal damage no matter how strong the outsider is. Besides, this sword exists to burn the world. Surtur's sword. As he thought this, he quickly grabbed the sword. Then he charged directly towards the giant monster. With incredible speed, our protagonist easily dodged the bites from the tentacles, and after closing in on his target, Jong-sun swung his sword forward with great force, creating a massive explosion. Outsiders are formed by covering other creatures. Finally, its true form has appeared. Jong-sul thought to himself. After being blown away by the explosion, its true form was revealed, a wild boar with tentacles squirming on its back. A wild boar. It doesn't even have any fur. Damn it. If Leviatine doesn't work. Jong-sun grimaced, thinking. To resolve this situation, he once again turned to look at the treasure hoard and spotted a spear stuck in it. This is the Spear of Light, Brionac. The weapon of Lug, the famous god of light capable of piercing through anything. Can you block this? Jong-sun shouted, and then he executed a light spear throw. The spear flew at a divine speed, ramming straight into the boar and piercing it clean through from head to tail. As a result, before the boar could even display its power, it was crushed by our protagonist's equipment. And just as it was being sent to its grave, a notification appeared before Jong-sun. You are the first player to kill an outsider. You have achieved a great feat. The hourglass of Kronos is active. The treasury of greed has collapsed. The treasury no longer has a master. The player is currently inside the treasury and possesses the golden key. Jong-sun is recognized as the new master of the treasury of greed. Greed has been destroyed. The power of greed has chosen Jong-sun, who defeated greed. Player Jong-sun's causality is being reversed. All owned skills have been deleted. Experience gained in the tower has been reset. Returning to the tutorial, the scene changes to a forest area. At this time, a crowd was gathering. The strange thing was, it seemed that they themselves didn't know why they had appeared in this place. Where is this? I was definitely just at the office. Murmurs of confusion began to rise up immediately after. Right before the eyes of this entire group of people, suddenly a virtual screen appeared. Welcome to the tutorial. Seeing this, the crowd began scratching their heads in confusion. A tutorial? What is this? Among the group, there was one young man who remained perfectly calm, observing his surroundings. This person was none other than our main character. Young Seun looked at the familiar scenery and thought to himself, have I really returned to the past? What the hell is a tutorial? Someone explain this. How are we supposed to know? We're all in the same situation, someone shouted back. As for Jong Seun, since he had already experienced this once, he wasn't particularly surprised. Everyone's just as chaotic as before. I'd better stay away from them, Jong Seun thought quietly, taking a few steps aside. However, just then, a man suddenly grabbed his arm and said tremblingly, Do you know what's happening here? What did I do wrong to end up in a place like this? Hearing the voice, Jong Seun turned around and recognized a familiar face. I remember this guy. During the tutorial, he was brutally murdered, his throat torn out. With that thought, Jong Seun calmly spoke to reassure him, Calm down. How can I possibly be calm? We were dragged here without any explanation. Is this some kind of hidden camera prank? He speculated out loud. Meanwhile, Young Sol found his own previous words a bit laughable. It doesn't matter what I say right now. No one will listen. Once the attack begins, everything will quiet down. At the same time, another notification appeared before everyone. Tutorial Chapter 1. Adaptation. Time until the first monster wave 4 minutes and 21 seconds. Seeing this message, everyone's eyes filled with anxiety. What is this, a monster wave? Ignoring their bewildered expressions, our main character, Se, was focused on looking at his status window. So far, everything is the same as before. But this was Jong Seun's status window. Name Jong Seun. Level 1. Title None. Strength 7. Agility 9. Stamina 8. Intellect 12. Other stats 0. Unique skill power of greed, power of gluttony. Seeing this, Jong Seun's brow furrowed. Back then I didn't know, but now I realize my stats are really... Forget that. What are these powers? Jong Seun wondered, focusing on his unique skills section as he somehow possessed 2 unique powers. And then Jong Seun began to recall the system notifications from just before he returned to the past. So I wasn't seeing things back then. That means I can use that power too. No sooner said than done, Jong Seun began to focus his mind, and right after, a small treasure chest suddenly appeared in the palm of his hand. The treasure of greed has been opened. Dragon's breath, breath of the red dragon, Firaxis. Mjolnir, Thor's hammer. The hammer used by the god of thunder, Thor. Heavenly demon control art. A martial art passed down through generations of the demonic cult. With a starting point like this, a great sense of confidence suddenly began to swell within Jong Seun. If I have this power, I can actually build up the strength to fight those damn invaders. Just as he finished that thought, the group's waiting time was over. A notification appeared. Tutorial Chapter 1 Adaptation. The first monster wave is beginning. Fight back against the wave and prove your worth. This sent the crowd into an uproar. It's starting. What do we do now? The group panicked just before they spotted the figures of a wolf pack emerging from the forest ahead. Wait, are those wolves the monster wave? Is them? They said in terror. Seeing their prey's fear only excited the wolves more, and they charged forward, frenzied for an attack. Run! There isn't just 1 or 2 of them. What the hell is this? The group screamed and scrambled to run, but they hadn't gotten more than a few steps before their path was blocked by another pack of wolves, trapping them in a pincer formation from the front and back. They were trapped with no way out. At this point, a few people's faces had turned pale as they imagined the worst. What should we do now? Are we going to die here? If you don't want to die, you have to fight, Jong Seun said coldly, causing everyone to turn and look at him. Then a man who looked like an office worker grabbed him by the collar and demanded, Hey, don't you understand the situation? How can you tell us to fight those beasts? Without any weapons? Are you insane? Do you have some kind of plan? It sounds like you have a plan, the big guy Kang Han-cho asked with a serious face, while on the other side, Jong School calmly buttoned up his shirt, nodded, and spoke. It's simple. While I handle those monsters, you all focus on defense. Got it, Han-cheo replied. But at the same time, he wondered how he could possibly handle that pack of wolves alone. Over on this side, Jong School was unaware of his thoughts, so he focused on himself. It's time to test this power. As he spoke, he opened the Treasury of Greed and took out a martial arts book called the Tenset Tan Tui. It's a basic leg technique that emphasizes attacks from the Shaolin sect. Taking out this martial arts manual, Jong School immediately used the book. At that same moment, the fastest wolf had already charged forward, opening its mouth wide, wanting to give Jong School a few kisses. Unfortunately for it, Jong School had no interest in kissing monsters, so he used the first form of the Tenset Tan Tui, raising his leg and kicking the wolf straight in its body. It let out a loud yelp and went flying backward. Behind it, the rest of the wolf pack saw their comrade get kicked away, started barking wildly, and charged forward to gang up on him. Seeing this, Jong-School's expression darkened as he proactively charged forward. Then he jumped, spun around, and unleashed a kick straight down onto the ground. The ground shattered into countless pieces, and the wolves were sent flying by the force of the shockwave. Behind them, the ordinary citizens watched Jong-School. Using his power like that, they felt as if they were watching a superhero. Who is that guy? How can he fight wolves with his bare hands? They said in amazement. As for the brawny guy Hancheo, he now understood why Jong-School was so confident about handling the wolf pack. He's really strong. I have a feeling he's hiding something. To fight such a large pack of wolves bare-handed with a body that isn't even holding a weapon. For some reason, I feel something burning inside me. It's not fear or impatience. What is this feeling? I'm losing focus, Hancheo said coldly, raising his arm to block a bite from the brown wolf. Then he grabbed its head with his right hand and slammed it forcefully onto the ground. The impact was so strong it created a large crater in the earth. Whoa! He took down that wolf with his bare hands, they said in astonishment, then started to look at each other as a bit of fighting spirit rose within them. With that kind of strength, maybe we can actually manage this. We have the advantage in numbers. Everyone is there. Anything we can use as a weapon. The group of people shouted to each other. Back to the big guy Hancheo, he was still focused on Jong-School's fight up ahead. No openings. His raw power seems lacking, but with technique alone, he's landing solid hits. His fighting style is completely different from mine. I want to fight alongside this man, he said to himself. Back with Jong-School, after a while of fighting and kicking these dogs until they were lying scattered on the ground, he was also panting from exhaustion. Looks like this is almost over. My body is too weak to fight like before. Am I already exhausted? Jong-School muttered. But just then, he suddenly felt a gaze fixed intently on him. What is this feeling? I suddenly feel the gaze of an overwhelming presence. And just as Jong-School predicted right after that, the system appeared to notify him, the Crow constellation is looking down on you. A constellation, and the Crow one at that. That's the original owner of the Treasury of Greed. That's Mammon Jong-School thought. The god of greed is watching me. Could he have realized I used his power? If he finds out that items from his treasury were taken without permission, what am I going to do? Should I hide my power? Just for using his power without permission, I could be punished right here and now. It wouldn't even be strange. I struggled so hard to return to the past. Is this how it ends for me? Jong-Sul thought to himself, and just as he feared right after that, that greedy god began to realize what was happening when a notification appeared to remind him the Crow constellation has detected traces of distorted causality. The Crow constellation around you nods, remembering the existence of the hourglass. The Crow constellation is smiling. As soon as the notification ended, that intense stare also suddenly vanished. This made Jong-Sul feel a bit relieved. However, that didn't stop him from worrying. He knows I used the hourglass, yet there's no reaction at all. Could it be that he already anticipated all of this? But this is suspicious. It seems like he's tacitly given me permission. If that's the case, I should use it freely. Should I test the next power? Jong-Sul thought to himself, and then, as if he couldn't wait to test out his new toy, our hero immediately held out his hand and shouted, "Power of Gluttony!" After he spoke it, nothing happened. Because Jong-Sul had not yet met the conditions, a system notification appeared reminding him a target must be designated. Jong-Sul then turned to look at the corpses of the brown wolves below. Then he wondered, I only see the wolves' corpses here. Will this work? Well, if that's the case, I might as well give it a try. He mumbled to himself and began to activate the power of gluttony towards the wolves. And right after that, something strange happened. From Jong-Sul's arm, countless black shadows shaped like snakes with sharp fangs began to emerge. Next, these snakes dug their fangs in and began to tear the wolf apart at a terrifying speed. In no time, even the wolf's bones were being pulled, sucked into these black snakes. Back to Jong-Sul, seeing such horrifying things emerge from his arm. He jumped in shock. What the hell is this? It suddenly jumped out and devoured everything, not even leaving the bones behind. Heedless of him after it had swallowed the brown wolf's body whole. Jong-Sul received a notification from the system. You have consumed a brown wolf. Nutrition absorbed. Strength increased by 1, agility increased by 2. Seeing this, Jong-Sul's eyes widened in amazement as he stared at the black shadows burping in front of him. What is this? Just by eating a corpse, my stats went up. If I can use this power freely, I could quickly push my physical abilities to the limit. Jong-Sul happily thought to himself before a concern struck him. Wait a minute. If that's the case, just like the demon of greed, will Beelzebub, the demon of gluttony, realize this too? I got too excited and used it without hesitation. and without giving our protagonist much of a break right after that. The owner of that trait took notice of Jong-sul. The starving prince constellation has stopped chewing on a wolf's leg and looks startled. Seeing this notification, Jong-sul's face was drenched in sweat. Because this guy is different from the greedy one before. I was lucky to get away from Mammon, but Beelzebub is an extremely powerful demon. I can't rely on luck anymore. The more he thought, the more worried his face became. Then another notification appeared. The starving prince constellation opens his mouth as if to say something, but instead, he shoves more meat into his mouth. Seeing this, Jong-sul's expression turned a bit dumbfounded. A demon from hell, one of the strongest beings, is going crazy over a piece of meat. Is he really that hungry? If so, this can only be to my advantage. If he's that hungry, I'll let him eat his fill. With that thought, Jong-sul once again began to activate the power of gluttony, and rushed forward to digest all the remaining brown wolves, making Beelzebub go wild with joy. The starving prince constellation cheers at the unexpected feast, seeing how happy it was. Jong-sul also nodded as if he had just dodged a bullet. Good. Everything is going according to plan. Nutrition absorbed. Strength increased by 0.1. Agility increased by 0.5. The stat increase is much lower than before. But that's fine. My current goal isn't to raise my stats, Jong-sul thought to himself. Then, he looked up to the sky to communicate with the constellation. You're surely not full yet, are you? Jong-sul asked, and Beelzebub quickly replied. The starving prince constellation drools, saying that was just an appetizer. Over here, Jong-sul, heard the reply and smirked to himself. Truly the demon of gluttony. Let's end the training session here, or rather the negotiation, just like that. Time passed quickly. Because of the overwhelming numbers and the fact that Jong-sul had blocked most of the brown wolves, the others were able to easily handle the rest. We're done with the small fry. We've defeated all the wolves. The whole group cheered along. Everyone also received a notification from the system. Tutorial. Chapter 1. Adaptation. You have successfully survived the first attack wave. All participants who were attacked will receive 50 points. Back with Jong-sul, he glanced around at everyone and thought, it looks like everyone made it through. The first wave passed safely without a single injury. In the previous timeline, there were quite a few casualties. Could it be that me taking out more than half the monsters was what affected the outcome? Just as he was thinking, the system began to calculate everyone's individual contributions and displayed a ranking board. First place, Jong-sul, 220 points. Second place, Kang Han-cheol, 80 points. Third place, Josea, 40 points. Looking at the rankings, Jong-sul stroked his chin and thought, 220 points, that seems reasonable. In this tutorial, the higher your contribution score and rank, the greater the reward for clearing it will be, and the chances of being chosen by a constellation also increase. Of course, my goal is first place. Although we survived the first wave safely, I've realized something. I need a weapon. Even with Mammon's treasury, my stats are still below human average. There's definitely a limit. I need to use a weapon to compensate for those shortcomings. The problem is, and there are no decent weapons anywhere around here, in that case, I'll have to search the forest to raise my stats and find something useful. As my stats increase, I'll also be able to unlock better items from Mammon's treasury. With that thought, Jong-sul quickly began moving towards the forest in front of him. However, at that exact moment, a female voice suddenly called out to him, Hey, wait a minute! Where are you going all by yourself? Hearing the call, the protagonist paused for a beat and turned toward the source of the sound. Whose voice is that? It sounds so familiar. Wait, could it be? And the one known as the tornado before I regressed. Josea, Jong-sul thought to himself as he saw her. I don't remember everyone here, but there's no way I could forget Josea. She became famous on the upper floors of the tower along with Kang Han-cheol. After all, she's one of the top rankers of the tower, Jong-sul thought. Meanwhile, the girl Josea hurried over to him and asked, Where are you planning to go all alone? How annoying. Once the tutorial starts every second, every minute is precious. I don't have the time or the mind to worry about other people, Jong-sul complained internally. Meanwhile, when Josea saw that Jong-sul didn't answer, she spoke up again. Hey, are you listening to me? Hearing her, Jong-sul snapped back to reality and replied, I'm just going to scout the area. Staying here won't make things any better. Hearing him say that, Han-cheol also advised, Instead of scouting, we should gather and discuss things first, like how to deal with the next attack wave. What if we just meet and talk about it? And will that change anything? Jong-sul asked doubtfully. Of course it will. At the very least, it can ease everyone's anxiety, Josea asserted. As for Jong-sul, he was already sick of it. I don't have time for that. That's not something I can explain in detail, he thought. then sighed internally and continued. So what exactly do you plan to do to ease their anxiety? Once the second wave starts, we'll just have to run away again. Even so.
We don't know when those wolves will show up again. It could be dangerous if you go alone,
Josiah yelled. But at that very moment, the system gave her an answer as everyone received a notification. Tutorial. Chapter 1. Adaptation. Time remaining until the second monster wave, 2 hours and 57 minutes. Seeing that, Jong-sun began to mumble and calculate in his head. 3 hours. There's only 3 hours left. After saying that he didn't want to waste any more time there, so he turned to leave. At the same time, he instructed the girl behind him, "Go back. From now on, you'd be better off paying attention to the system notifications. You have nothing else to do while you wait anyway. You can join the discussion or whatever." Just like that, Yong-sun coldly walked towards the forest, leaving Josiah staring with wide-eyed disbelief.
"Wait, what's happening?"
she said blankly. "Actually, you should use that time to find a sturdy branch or something," the kind Johnson reminded her, but those abrupt words made Josepha freeze up. Not noticing her state, Johnson then proceeded to take down an entire pack of brown wolves not long after entering the forest. They were wandering around this area, and their numbers were so large that it confused our main character. "Why are there so many wolves? This is the perfect time to raise my stats," Jong Seol said happily, and quickly used the power of gluttony to absorb the wolves and increase his stats. However, everything has its limits, and absorption is no exception. You have devoured a brown wolf. You can no longer absorb nutrients from the same creature. The Starving Prince constellation says he is tired of this meat. While still sucking on a wolf bone, Jong Seol saw the message and could only sigh. Tired of it already. He really is the demon of gluttony. This isn't exactly monster-making material. Just wait a moment, I'll go find something tastier for you. Just give me a second, okay? Jong Seol nodded and said, which made the Starving Prince constellation devour the entire ribcage, his 2 eyes lighting up. Turning back to Jong Seol and to please that glutton, he had to get his butt in gear and find something new. Or maybe I should experiment a little. As he thought this, he opened the treasury of greed, and from within, he pulled out an ethereal sword. This is Gram, the sword of the Chosen One, the sword of wrath used by Sigurd to defeat the dragon. With this sword, he subjugated the giant dragon Fafnir. The treasures in the treasury can only be withdrawn as an intangible power. Perhaps the artifacts have lost their physical forms, and only their power remains. It should have been mine. What a shame, but it can't be helped. If I infuse the treasure's power into a suitable item, it'll practically become a legendary sword. As Jong Seol thought this, he began to project the shadow of the sword onto the piece of wood in his hand. But life is never that easy. The moment it started to fuse with the power of the legendary sword, the piece of wood couldn't withstand it and instantly turned to ash, shattering his fantasy of getting an easy upgrade. Jong Seol's dream of a sweet item vanished in an instant. Damn it couldn't withstand the power of the legendary sword. That means this power doesn't just affect objects, it's also dangerous to my own body. I thought I could adapt because of the basic martial arts manual. But if I were to use something stronger like a fire dragon's breath, my body would turn to dust like a dry twig. What's more, the power of greed can't be used by anyone else but me. I was wondering if others could use this power. I figured that out when I tried to use a worthless treasure on a wolf. If that's the case, there aren't many treasures I can use at the moment. My only option is to strengthen my own abilities until I can handle the treasures. There's no other way. For now, I need to find a weapon first. Jong Seol began to venture deeper into the forest. But getting good loot in the wild is never easy, not even for our protagonist. Even after searching this vast forest, there was nothing suitable. It would be great to have a guide right now. I used to find things so easily in the past. It's a bit nasty, but maybe I should try using that thing. With that thought, Jong Seol took a special item out from the Treasury of Greed. It was called John's Snout from a low-level hyena-headed monster. It uses its excellent sense of smell to track prey. John's snout has now taken over your body. The image of a hyena overlaid Jong Seol's body, instantly giving him its incredibly keen sense of smell. And with this superior nose, Jong Seol was able to sniff out what he was looking for. It's over there. The strong smell of rust, Jong Seol thought to himself, and immediately ran towards where the scent was coming from. Meanwhile, the greedy king was about to starve to death, so he sent Jong Seol a few reminders. The Starving Prince constellation began to whine that he's so hungry his stomach is touching his spine. Seeing that it was about to starve, Jong Seol had no choice but to speed up. What the hell? This feels more like I'm raising a pig than dealing with a constellation, Jong Seol complained to himself. However, there was a slight problem. The distance was much farther than he'd thought, and he was running himself ragged without getting any closer. It's farther than I thought. but I can definitely smell it coming from this way. But as he thought that, Jong Seol's expression turned serious as he suddenly caught a different, unfamiliar scent.
Wait, I smell something else. It can't be a gray wolf.
A gray... Yongsun was startled to see a huge wolf had silently crept up on him seemingly from nowhere. It looked like it already knew his position, just like how I could smell it. Before I went back in time, I spent too much time running away. This time will be different, Jong-sun thought to himself as his body was enveloped in a surge of internal energy. Across from him, the gray wolf looked as if it had waited too long and couldn't suppress its hunger anymore. So when it saw that Jong-sun neither attacked nor ran away, it was the first one to charge forward with a bite aimed straight for Jong-sun's leg. Luckily, our protagonist is full of experience, so he pulled his leg to the side to dodge. After just one clash, he had to rate this gray wolf higher. It wasn't just big, it was also faster than a brown wolf. Clearly, this is no ordinary monster. It's aiming for the neck to kill its prey. Looks like it plans to finish me in one blow by attacking my weak spot. If I hadn't mastered the 10-step retreat technique, I'd be a bloody mess by now, he exclaimed inwardly. The gray wolf, seeing its first attack miss, immediately leaped forward to attack again, giving Jong-sun almost no time to rest at all. Unfortunately for it, Jong-sun's reaction speed could still keep up with its attacks. So after using the 10-step retreat technique to dodge the attack, for a second time he quickly circled around to the wolf's side and launched a kick straight into its body. He thought the wolf would be sent flying, but it wasn't. After kicking the gray wolf, Jong-sun was startled and jumped back to maintain distance, his right leg trembling uncontrollably from the impact. Is it because my stats are too low? I clearly hit its stomach. Damn it, how is it this tough? He gritted his teeth, dodging the gray wolf's bite. I have strength and speed, but right now my strength isn't enough to get through the defense
Of this wolf. Damn it, what do I do now? The situation isn't in my favor. There has to be a way.
The more he thought, the more worried Jong-sun's eyes became. The situation grew even more difficult as several brown wolves charged in to support the gray one. Damn it, these wretched brown wolves.
You guys are still here. This is bad.
At this rate, I might not even be able to escape, Jong-sun silently told himself as he slowly backed away. But it seemed like the heavens hadn't given up on him yet, because right at that moment, for some reason, there was a rusty sword stuck in the ground right next to Jong-sun, as if it was waiting for him to pull it out. It might look like just an old rusty sword, but the blade is still sharp, Jong-sun thought as he quickly grabbed the sword. Then he swung it forward, slicing the charging brown wolf in half. Just as I thought, for a sword like this is definitely the best one you can find at this stage. At the same time, he wondered if there was anything special about the sword. But the constellation... Fu-oh was also looking at his sword with a strange expression.
Paying it no mind.
Jong-sun was still hacking and slashing away. I've found a weapon, so I have the advantage now. I can't retreat. I'll finish it before it attacks again, he reminded himself. Meanwhile, the gray wolf, seeing Jong-sun suddenly become so powerful, looked at him with wary eyes, not daring to charge recklessly like before. Seeing this, Jong-sun had time to open the Treasure of Greed. Next, he chose a skill book called Hamel Family's Swordsmanship Technique. It was the core technique of that family, a basic longsword technique passed down only to the direct heir. After taking it out, Jong-sun quickly learned it, causing his body to be enveloped by a faint silhouette. This time will be different, he muttered. Across from him, the gray wolf let out a loud howl to build its momentum and then charged forward. As for our protagonist, seeing the ferocious wolf charge at him, he gripped the sword tightly and swung it straight into the wolf's mouth. As a result, the rusty sword was clamped down on by the gray wolf's teeth, locking them both in a brief struggle. But this was exactly what Jong-sun had been hoping for. He then focused all his strength into his hands. Yanking the sword from the gray wolf's mouth, Jong-seon swung his sword wildly without giving it a chance to react. He landed countless slashes on the body of this massive beast. This is it. The gray wolf took the hit. He thought to himself, and just like that, the alpha wolf didn't even get a chance to inflict any damage on Jong-seon. It was already slashed until its whole body was covered in blood, but it still seemed fired up. Still, it definitely had an effect. After all, this is the swordsmanship of a family clan that rose to the top of the empire, so it's not going to be ordinary. Time to end this, Jong-seon thought as he proactively rushed into attack. Seeing this, the gray wolf opened its mouth to bite him, but it had no idea that this very move would be its downfall. All Jong-seon had to do was raise his sword and thrust it directly into the wolf's mouth, causing this gray wolf to yelp wildly and hurry to spit the sword out. But it was too late. By the time it did, its life was already over, and it collapsed under Jong-seon's smiling gaze. At the same time, a happy notification came from the system. You have defeated the Wolf Forest boss, Grave Guarding Wolf. Level up. Personal merit points increased by 500. You have obtained gray wolf skin. Back to Jongseon. Actually, this time, he had another goal. I came into the forest this time for another reason to increase my personal merit points. There are a few ways to do it. The first is to be active in battles, like the monster wave during the tutorial. The second way is to find and defeat individual monsters. The third way is to defeat other players, but not right now. As we near the end of the tutorial, more and more players will start fighting each other. That's an easier and more convenient way to get high personal merit, Jongseon thought to himself. Then he used his gluttony ability to consume the corpse. And just like that, its nutrients were absorbed to nourish Jongseon. You have devoured the grave-guarding wolf. You have absorbed its nutrients and gained 3 strength, 5 agility, and 2 stamina. Seeing this, Jongseon was secretly pleased, though he didn't show it. A boss definitely gives a huge stat boost. The constellation Starving Prince is satisfied with the meal. The notification appeared after Jongseon consumed the gray wolf's body. Looks like Beelzebub is pleased, too. First, I should check the items I got, he thought as he hurried over. He quickly looked over the items he'd looted. Let's see how good they are. First is this rusty sword. It's the sword of a forgotten hero. Type longsword. Rank D. Information. A sword honoring a long-forgotten hero, worn and rusted by time. Ability. Poison slows the healing of wounds inflicted by this sword. Hero's Trace increases attack power by 10% when facing monsters. Grey Wolf Skin, Type Cloak, Rank D. Information. The skin of a gray wolf that once ruled over the brown wolves in the wolf forest. The majesty of its life still lingers. Ability. Authority empowers allies and instills fear in enemies. Blessing of the Wind increases movement speed by 5%. After reading the descriptions, a satisfied look appeared in Jongseon's eyes. If it has abilities like these, but hasn't been used properly, I should upgrade it to D+. Even Beelzebub up there seems to be nodding in approval of this sword. The constellation Starving Prince glances at your sword with indifference, remarking that it isn't complete trash. Just as expected from the Demon of Greed. Checking the item piqued his interest. How long until the next attack wave? Am I running late? As he thought this, he quickly checked the time and saw that the second wave would begin in only 12 minutes. Seeing this, Jongseon urged himself on. I need to hurry back and regroup with everyone. Tutorial. Chapter 1. Adaptation. The second monster wave is beginning. Stop the monster wave and prove your worth. The notification rang out. Meanwhile, Jongseon was still taking his sweet time walking through the forest. The attack started right as I got here. I did promise Joseph that I would be back before the attack began. But, whatever. It's not like I care. This is actually a good chance to see how everyone else reacts. So I know which useless freeloaders to avoid, and so our protagonist calmly began to walk back toward the group. This second wave consisted of a herd of wild boars. What are you all doing? Don't run, damn it, first wolves and now wild boars, they said through gritted teeth. It's begun, Jongseon thought to himself. Elsewhere on the battlefield, the voice of a chubby bald man rang out. Don't dodge, block it. What are you doing? You said you used to work at our company. He said, hiding behind a young man with blonde hair who was himself trembling so hard he couldn't even hold his staff steady. I did, but... The young man stammered, unable to get the words out. Before he could finish, the bald man kicked him right in the butt, sending him stumbling forward. If you're not getting fired, then fight like you mean it. The old man made his threats completely oblivious to where he was. Meanwhile, John School used his talking bush skill to secretly hide behind the group, witnessing the entire scene. It didn't surprise him much. There are useless people like that everywhere. I'm struggling on the ground. What about the others? He thought, glancing around. People were gathered in small groups, working together to separate the wild boars and take them down. They're fighting better than I expected, especially Juseoa and Kang Han Cheol. Even without the right gear, they're doing great. They have a lot of potential. Now, it's my turn to step in. With that thought, Jongseon gripped his sword and calmly stood up, stepping onto the stage like a main character. Now back to Juseoa. After fighting for a while, her body was clearly getting weaker. Her breaths came in ragged gasps. If I hadn't been holding this, I would have been hit. These monsters are completely different from the wolves. As she thought that, a wild boar turned to face Juseoa and let out a loud roar. It then charged forward, opening its mouth to bite her. Fortunately, she was agile enough to leap aside and dodge. They just keep on coming. She complained to herself, only to then notice 2 wounds that had suddenly appeared on her thigh. I'm bleeding.
But how?
Why are his last words echoing in my head right now? But at this rate, Juseoa thought her expression growing more and more worried. However, before she had a chance to think, the boar righted itself and charged at her once more. With no other choice, Juseoa quickly grabbed a nearby club to defend herself.
I can't. I just have to hold out a little longer.
Just a little bit longer, she told herself. But unfortunately for the boar, before it could even reach Juseoa, a sword slashed from behind, instantly splitting the monster in two. And the one who struck was none other than our protagonist, Jong-sun. Seeing him appear, Juseoa looked like she wanted to ask him something. But before she could speak, Jong-sun stopped her. "Let's take care of those things first," he said, pointing his sword to the side. Just then, as if sensing the danger, 3 boars teamed up and charged at them. To deal with this assault, Jong-sun had to pull another item from the Horde of Greed. It was a high-grade orc tendon. A race famous for its immense strength and endurance, it was filled with the characteristic resilient life force of an orc. Just then, the item began to fuse with Jong-sun's body, enhancing his physical abilities. "I'm not sure if my body can handle this, but there's only one way to find out," he thought. At that same moment, the fastest wild boar charged straight at Jong-sun, but with a single leap, Jong-sun jumped a full 10 meters into the air. He then brought his momentum down, gripping his sword tightly and plunging it deep into the boar's body, causing it to let out a horrifying squeal. After that, he then turned to the 2 remaining boars and with a swift swing of his sword finished them off as well. It may sound like it took a while to explain, but in reality it all happened in a matter of seconds, leaving Juseoa and Hancheol with looks of utter astonishment. Even Jong-sun himself was surprised by his performance. Was that because of the high-grade orc tendon? I feel stronger, and my control over that strength is excellent. Jong-sun nodded thoughtfully. Meanwhile, the bald man who'd been cowering behind the others saw how well Jong-sun could fight and sidled up to him, patting him on the shoulder. "You're really good at this, haha. You're on a completely different level than those other useless fools. So how about becoming my personal bodyguard? I'm the CEO of the Togen Corporation. I'm sure you've heard of it. If we get out of here, I'll give you a handsome reward. Name your price." Across from him, Jong-sun didn't even react to the man's boasting, causing the old man's bald head to break out in a sweat. He quickly made a better offer. "In fact, I'll even give you a department head position at my company. It's a much better offer than you'd get from any other major corporation." Hearing this, Jong-sun finally reacted. "That sounds like a pretty good deal," he said, his voice laced with a hint of interest. Just hearing that was enough to make the bald man's face light up. "Ha ha, I knew you'd make the right choice. Just protect me properly and I'll set you up for life." Before he could even finish, Jong-sun said something that left the man completely bewildered. "After all, I was looking for a meat shield." A meat shield? What did you just say?" he asked in a panic. To make things clearer, Jong-sun simply drew back his leg and kicked the man, sending him flying forward, a pitiful end for the foolish bald man who failed to grasp his situation. "And yet you're still turning to threaten Jong-sun. What are you doing? You bastard, have you lost your mind? Since you're so big and tough, why don't you take care of those 4? He chuckled and said, "And you're only just realizing this now." It was only then that the fat man realized his own predicament, but unfortunately it was already too late. Right after that, 4 wild boars charged in and started playing with the old man like he was a ball. Meanwhile, over here, the group watched Jong-sun's actions and fell silent, not knowing what to say. The Constellation. Mistress of the Abyss watches your actions with a cunning smile. The constellation famished prince whines, demanding more prey. Ignoring the worthless one, he paid no mind to their words. Not long after, by working together, the group was able to take down all of the wild boars. First tutorial chapter, Adapt. You have completed the second wave of attacks. All participants receive 50 points, calculating individual contribution points. First place Jong-sun, 1,080 points. Second place Kang Hancheol, 180 points. Third place Juseoa, 100 points. You have consumed a brown wild boar. You have absorbed its nutrients. Strength has increased by 1 point and stamina by 2 points. The Constellation. Famished prince is devouring the wild boar with glee, eagerly awaiting more. Ignoring that starving demon, Jong-sun started to look at the carcass next to him and made a plan. I'll keep one for food. Before I regressed, all I ever ate was wolf meat, so I know just how delicious predator meat is. The rust on the blade is annoying, but I can't be bothered with every little detail. As he thought this, he began to use his sword to butcher the wild boar, and right at that moment, a girl suddenly approached Jong-sun and offered, "Excuse me, can I help you? I run a small restaurant, so I know a thing or two about butchering." A chef, huh? Then she'll do a better job than me. Young-sun nodded, handing her the sword, which made the girl overjoyed. All right, I'll leave this to you. Nearby other people also started volunteering for tasks. I'll go gather firewood. I'll handle setting up camp. We need to find a water source. And just like that, they quickly divided up the work among themselves, until suddenly a guy pointed out a problem. Wait a minute. How are we supposed to light the firewood? Oh, shoot! I didn't think of that. The blonde-haired guy said awkwardly, to be honest, in this situation, it would be very difficult for the group to make a fire. So with no other choice, Jong-sun had to step in. He took out an item called Chasa's Ember. It was an ember imbued with the power of Chasa, a low-level fire spirit. Though small, it contains the spirit's energy, making it difficult to extinguish. As for the fire, I'll take care of it. Jong-sun spoke up as a small flame hovered in his hand. And just like that, after getting fire from Jong-sun, everyone quickly brought the boar over to roast it. The fragrant aroma it gave off was enough to make that greedy demon drool the constellation. My famished prince licks his lips as he smells the delicious aroma. Seeing it send a message that was basically begging for food made Jong-sun feel a bit awkward. I need to eat too, you know. With that thought, he dove into his food, completely ignoring that starving demon. At the same time, the girl Juseoa brought him some water and said, "Here, drink this." Then she sat down next to him, looked at the rusty sword at his side, and asked about it. Did you find that in the forest? Hearing her ask, Jong-sun simply nodded and replied, yeah, I just got lucky. After he spoke, he noticed Juseoa's pensive expression as she stared at the club in her hands. He thought, looks like she's jealous, huh? Well, I heard that Juseoa always practiced with a sword before she got her skills. With that wooden club she's using now, she won't be able to unleash her true power. Thinking this, our hero kindly spoke up to remind her, see that system notification floating up there. Beside him, Juseoa now noticed the system notification and muttered, 100 points. What's that? With that many points. You can buy a sword with that, Jong-sun said with a smile which made the girl extremely surprised. Huh. How do you do that? If you focus on the points, the shop menu will appear? Hearing that Juseoa curiously did as he said, it feels like playing a game. It's pretty similar. Like I said before, to survive here, it's best to adapt to the system as quickly as possible. And with that, it didn't take long for Joseph A. to choose and buy a sword for herself, and right after she pressed the button, the system panel spat out a longsword for her, making her face light up because with her power, she could only unleash her full potential with a real sword. That's amazing. How did you know that? She said cheerfully. However, Yongsul had no intention of explaining it in detail. I'm just quick to adapt to the situation, he replied calmly. I thought I was adapting quickly, but it seems I still can't keep up with you, Yongsun. Oh, did you just say my name? Yongsun said in surprise when he heard her. Joseph A. said his name, and at his words, the swordswoman smiled. Someone told me I had to get used to the system. Thank you for letting me know. It's nothing, Yongsun said, shaking his head. I look forward to working with you in the future, Joseph A. added. Time passed quickly just like that. Everyone's first night in this godforsaken place was over, and as soon as the sky began to brighten at dawn, Joseph A. was already going around waking everyone up, because in just 58 minutes, the third wave of monsters would arrive. Is everyone ready? What's going on? Is it morning already? What should we do now? The group said in a daze, as if they still hadn't really gotten used to this situation. And in response to their words, Joseph A. stepped up and gave clear, concise orders. Can you go into the forest and gather stones to throw? Just providing support from the rear. Will be a huge help. Everyone else, please find some tree branches to use as weapons. Understood. The group said in unison and quickly went to find weapons to prepare for the attack. Meanwhile, Yongsun turned to look at her and mused, things have changed compared to before. Perhaps it's thanks to Joseph A. Having a central figure helps reduce the panic significantly. This is good. It allows me to focus on the hidden piece. As he thought, he began to open the Treasury of Greed and took out a book called The Blue Magic Circle. This was a secret training method passed down only to mages who were sensitive to, well, mana specifically at the Blue Tower, one of the 7 great magic towers. The magic circle is the most basic element and is essential for a mage to use magic. Although this magic circle was considered the least effective among the 7 towers, there were always various training methods. First, build a foundation using the Blue Towers method. Then build a pillar on that solid foundation with a more advanced training method. I also can't forget the Dantian, which can concentrate mana through the magic circle. But that is just a training method for using magic. To use martial arts, I need to refine my dantian whenever I have the chance like a gently flowing river, meditating on the subtleties of the Blue Tower's teachings learned from Mamon's treasury. Controlling my breath, I can vaguely feel an energy responding from my lungs. I cautiously reach for the energy trapped inside, asking if it wants to stay here, if it wants to join with me. Only the energies that allow this will gather in my heart. Just like that. Because he was so familiar with controlling energy from his past life, Jong-sun quickly gathered the mana into his heart as if it were second nature, and the system promptly displayed a notification confirming that he had successfully formed his first magic circle through the Blue Tower's training method. With this circle, concentrating mana and using magic is now possible. Your mana level affects the power and speed of the circles you can use. You have achieved an outstanding accomplishment. As a reward, you have earned 1,000 points. The constellations. The three sisters turn to look at you with wide eyes. The constellation, the Heavenly Mother exclaims in admiration. The constellation, the wise old crone. My like seeing so many constellations paying attention to him, Jong-sun, and didn't look happy at all. Many magic-related gods are showing great interest, but I already have Beelzebub and Mammon on my side. Although I'm not exactly their apostle, these two gods are on a level far beyond the constellations that are appearing. On the other side, it seemed the two demons of greed and starvation were also a little worried that Jong-sun might be snatched away by the other constellations. The constellation. The starving prince looks sad, saying he has more guests, and the constellation Beelzebub scowls and takes a treasure from the treasury. The constellation Beelzebub has blocked all communications from lower-grade constellations. Seeing this, Jong-sun's eyes flashed with astonishment. Block communications, even for high-level entities interfering with the system like that. That takes a lot of effort. Are they even a high enough level to block other people's communications? Those other guys must be going crazy right now, Jong-sul thought to himself. His two sponsors also felt a sense of relief in their hearts. The Starving Prince constellation felt relieved seeing that the guests had vanished. The Silent Watcher constellation quietly observes you. He paid them no mind. After the constellation's communications were blocked, Jong-sul refocused on his own business. It's quiet now. Time to get back to my mana training. Even though it's not very efficient, the Green Tower's training method definitely strengthens the circle with mana. I can feel it. However, he hadn't even had a chance to practice at all when a blonde-haired guy came up to him and said, "Hey man, are you sleeping? Who sleeps sitting up like that? Hurry and get up. There are only 12 minutes left." The disruptive noise made it impossible for Jong-sul to concentrate. So noisy. After saying that, he reluctantly broke out of his meditative state. However, when he got a clear look at the face of the person in front of him, he was startled. Why is this guy in front of me? Unaware of Jong-sul's thoughts, the young man kept smiling brightly. "Man, I thought you were dead. You didn't move for a whole hour, haha." In response to this, Jong-sul coldly said, "What do you want?" "Whoa, so cold, we're all in the same situation here. Wouldn't it be better if we were friendly with each other?" he said, holding out his hand. But as for Jong-sul, with memories from his past life, he knew exactly who this guy was. Park Jong-pil, a piece of trash. A piece, he used to torment the weak and lead the elderly, to steal food operating under the principle that the old should die and the young should live. The reason this guy is acting like this now is probably because the situation has changed, but he was always this type of person to begin with. A bully who preys on the weak and looks down on the disabled. As he had this thought, he calmly stood up. Meanwhile, this Park Jong-pil guy kept trying to make friends. "I just want to be friends." "Looks like you don't have any close friends, huh?" he said. Those words brought back some unpleasant memories for Jong-sul from his past life when he was chased by brown wolves like a dog. "I still remember the hard times I went through because of that guy. He even pushed me into the forest under the guise of a scouting mission. Thanks to that, I gained the power of the journey milestone, but that was just the outcome." After finishing his thoughts, Jong-sul spoke up. "You're a fast runner, aren't you? Why are you suddenly asking that?" he said with a confused look. And at that moment, Jong-sul clapped him on the shoulder and gave him a mission. "I need you to be the bait." Time flew by, and soon the third wave of the attack appeared. Everyone had already prepared their weapons-sharpened wooden spears. "Here they come. Everyone get ready if we stick to the plan." "No one will get hurt," Yu Xiaohua said calmly. Their opponents this time were a horde of monkeys wielding stone axes. "Stab them," someone yelled, and then everyone gripped their weapons in unison and thrust forward instantly, riddling the monkeys with holes like a honeycomb. However, it seemed the creatures knew no fear, so they just kept swarming forward. "There are too many of these monsters. What are we going to do now?" Some brown-haired guy cried out, and Yu Xiaohua herself knew this all too well. So she was racking her brain trying to come up with a plan. Our formation is about to collapse. Is there any way back? With Jong-sul, he had already predicted this situation. That's why he needed Park Jong-pil. Just then, Jong-sul produced a banana from who knows where and tossed it to Park Jong-pil. "Begin," he said calmly. Meanwhile, this Park Jong-pil guy was trembling uncontrollably. "Well, wait a minute, is this really okay?" "I told you I'm a slow runner." He tried his best to explain, but Jong-sul didn't want to waste time on this pampered weakling. So he drew back his leg, kicked him square in the butt, and yelled, "Hurry up and go, go!" The kick sent the blonde guy stumbling forward. At the same time, the brown monkeys noticed him, and all turned to stare at him, drool dripping from their mouths. Just like that, the entire horde of monkeys turned to look at him, and immediately gave chase, leaving Park Jong-pil with no other choice but to cry, and use every last bit of his strength to run for his life. "He's faster than I thought. I figured he'd at least trip a few times." Jong-sul smiled to himself. Meanwhile, Park Jong-pil, crying his eyes out, turned to beg for help. "Hey, save me, I really can't take this anymore." Seeing this, Jong-sul knew. This guy has almost reached his limit. So he called out, "Run over here, model." "I'm running," that guy screamed again. Jong-sul also began to use his magic-causing flames to suddenly appear around him, which Park Jong-poo dodged. The general spoke up with a warning, scaring that guy, Park Jong-poo, to death. What's happening? The magic Jong-sul was using was a skill he had taken from the Treasury of Greed Fireball, a signature spell of Alibi, a talented mage from the Red Tower. It has been modified so it can be used with any circle. Its destructive power varies greatly depending on the amount of mana channeled into it. After that, Jong-sul slowly began to gather the firepower in the palm of his hand, and he threw this fireball directly at the approaching horde of monkeys. But when that guy Park Jong-poo suddenly saw a fireball flying toward him, his face was a picture of utter confusion. Luckily, our protagonist's aim was true, so the ball flew right into the center of the monkey horde while Park Jong-poo was sent flying by its shockwave. Thrown forward, he landed safely near Jong-sun.
"Bro, what is this magic? This is magic, right?"
"This is insane!" Park Jong-poo exclaimed with a start. And it wasn't just him. Everyone behind him who witnessed the scene was startled, turning to look at each other and whispering as if they were in some kind of fantasy story. Can we even use that? Perhaps. Paying no mind to their mood after using one move to thin out the monsters, Jong-seon had no intention of interfering further. He would let them handle the rest. If I keep interfering, I'll just be taking away their chance to gain experience. Besides, points can be earned outside anyway. With that thought, he began to use gluttony to devour the brown monkeys. You have devoured a brown monkey, absorbing its nutrients. Agility has increased by 3 points. The constellation Starving Prince is very pleased with the prey. As for the young man, Park Jong-pyo, after witnessing Jong-seon's power, he hurriedly bowed his head to beg for a spot as a lackey. "Sir, I, Park Jong-pyo, will follow you for the rest of my life." "Oh, is that so? Then I'll be counting on you." Jong-seon shrugged in response. Seeing that Jong-seon didn't object, Park Jong-pyo was visibly delighted. "Of course. If you need anything, just leave it to me." "Good. Go eat a banana by yourself. You're going to have to do a lot of running in the upcoming wave," Jong-seon advised. Run again?" Park Jong-pyo said, exasperated, putting that issue aside. After that, our protagonist went into the forest to hunt monsters alone. And after taking care of a few of these wild boars, he officially reached level 3. Seeing this, Jong-seon began to speculate. Normally, you level up after the 5th wave. Could it be because of the power of my authority? He wondered to himself. At the same time, the group led by Ju Hui-ah had also finished dealing with all the brown monkeys. First tutorial chapter. Successfully cleared the 3rd wave of attacks. All participants in the attack receive 50 points. It seems the main mission is over. I reduced the number of monsters, but I thought it would take them more than 10 minutes. That means everyone's resolve has changed. Thinking this, he began to focus on the rankings for this attack wave. First place was still Jong-seon with 2,480 points. Second place was Ju Hui-ah with 340 points, and third place was Kang Han-chol with 320 points. Second and third place have switched places. Having a proper weapon, even a cheap one, might be the main reason. Jong-seon thought to himself. However, at that very moment, the heavy footsteps of the boar boss suddenly echoed beside him. Seeing it appear, Jong-seon wasn't very surprised. In fact, a look of anticipation flashed in his eyes. "So you finally appeared." This was the boss of the Boar Hill, the hill-digging boar. As for Jong-seon, as if by old habit, he took out a skill called Sharpen from his treasure trove. It's a magic developed in the colorless tower that uses mana to maximize a weapon's sharpness. Let's end this quickly. Time is running out, Jong-seon said coldly. As if it understood his intent, the boar boss took the initiative and charged forward to its death, and with just a single strike from his enhanced sword, already sharpened, our protagonist easily split the boss in two. You have defeated the boss of Boar Hill, the hill-digging boar. Personal contribution points increased by 500. Received giant boar tusk back with Jong Seun. He held a giant tusk in his hand and thought, a tusk, huh? Unlike the gray wolf hide, which is like a cloak, this item is a pure material that can't be used without being processed. I'll just hold on to it for now. As he spoke, Jong Seun tossed the tusk into his inventory. After that, it seemed this boar had more to offer, as the tusk wasn't the only thing it dropped. From the hole that the leader boar had dug, a beam of light shot upwards, catching Jong Seun's attention. And so, with his curious nature, Jong Seun couldn't resist and immediately rushed over to check. At a glance, the item looked like a whetstone. It was called the Forgotten Heroes tool, Grade D. Description: a tool used by a long-forgotten hero to maintain his sword. Is this what the boars were digging for earlier? The name suggests it's related to the Forgotten Hero's sword. I'll figure out how to use it later. With that, Jong Seun quickly returned to the campsite. This time, unlike the previous two attack waves, there were now a few people lying down, on stretchers being carried away by others, while the remaining able-bodied people began to pile up the gorilla corpses. Paying this no mind, Jong Seun turned to observe the spot where the trees had been cut down. He then casually tossed the Forgotten Hero's tool and the Forgotten Hero's sword onto one of the stumps. Along with that, he also took out a book about the Blackstone Forge from his inventory. This was a secret given to beginners. The forges of the Blackstone dwarf tribe are famous for their supreme craftsmanship. Then, just as I thought, he began to prepare and sharpen his sword, performing maintenance before the next attack wave. But I never sharpened my sword before, I regressed, Jong Seun mumbled, seeming a bit curious about it. And while he was sharpening it, his actions seemed to have caught the attention of an old man. Oh, that's quite impressive. Nowadays, everyone uses polishing machines. There are hardly any smiths left who can sharpen a sword by hand with such extreme precision. Hearing this voice, the main character temporarily stopped his work, turned, and asked, "Sir, do you know how to use a whetstone?" "Of course. I've been making a living off of iron for the last 15 years, he said with a smile, taking Jong Seun's whetstone and remarking, "The condition of this whetstone is also excellent. To think you found a stone of such quality. Out here in a wild place like this, I just happened to find it. If it's all right, could I entrust my sword to you?" Jong Seun proposed. The old man had no reason to refuse. "Of course." After speaking, he took the sword from Jong Seun's hands and began his work. While sharpening, he also noted the sword's quality, saying, "It's old and rusty, but it's a good sword. The balance is excellent and the blade isn't badly damaged." Back to Jong Seun, watching the old man's diligent work, he was a bit surprised. There was someone like this in the encampment. Just watching the way he sharpens it, you can tell it's the work of a master, he thought to himself, setting that aside. Not long after that, under the old man's hands, the sword became shiny enough to be used as a mirror. Phew. It's been a long time since I've focused like that. He let out a tired sigh and tossed the sword back to Jong Seun for him to inspect. "Check it out." At that, Jong Seun reached out, caught the sword, and began swinging it continuously through the air, creating whistling slashes. "It's different. The blade is much cleaner than before." And at that moment, the sword's description had also changed. Sword of the Forgotten Hero, a D-rank item. Description: a sword used to honor a forgotten hero. Thanks to a skilled craftsman, it has regained its former glory. Ability 1. A Master's Touch. Sharpness increased by 20%. Ability 2. Hero's Trace. Attack power against monsters increased by 15%. This is beautiful. Even though the sword seems simple, it's a very delicate thing. It feels so refreshing after such a long time, the old man said cheerfully. Meanwhile, after witnessing his skill, Jong Seun took out the boar tusk and gray wolf leather he had collected earlier. "Could I ask you to make something with these? If refined properly, these can create some pretty useful items." At the same time, a notification appeared in front of Jong Seun. The constellation. Warrior with the Golden Crown is showing interest in player Go Jang Chul. It seemed that was the old man's name. As for Jong Seun, the title of that constellation left him a bit stunned. Warrior with the Golden Crown. That's one of the 72 demon lords under the 7 deadly sins, known as the 28th demon lord Beerith. Although some think he's a berserker because he appears on a red horse, he's actually skilled in alchemy, capable of turning almost any metal into gold. His skill with iron could rival that of Hephaestus of Olympus. While Hephaestus values balance, Beerith focuses on destruction. The weapons he creates are coveted even by the gods. Turning back to Go Chul, this notification also left the old man confused. What is this? Hearing this, Jongseon explained, that's a constellation. They are divine entities, transcendent beings who reside at the top of the tower. Why would a god be interested in me? Usually it's nothing to worry about, and how do you know all this? He asked with a frown. Because I'm also receiving attention from another constellation, Jongseon replied. So do I have to put on some kind of show? Just keep doing what you've been doing. They won't harm anyone. In fact, increased attention can be very useful. Useful? Go Chul asked with a hint of doubt. To give him an example, Jongseon explained, it's like how I handle fire. Hearing this, the old man's eyes lit up and he nodded. Interesting. Then please continue to take care of me, Jongseon said, holding out his hand. The old man shook it in return. Don't worry, I'm more confident in this than I am in swinging a wooden club at monsters. Back with Jongseon, he was overjoyed internally. Having a master craftsman is a huge stroke of luck. At least I won't have to worry about my gear for the near future. Additional information, 3 minutes and 21 seconds remaining until the 4th monster wave. After handing over his materials to the old man, Go Chul Jongseon once again began to focus on increasing his own strength. And this was nothing less than him starting to steal from the sponsor Mamon's treasury again. From inside the treasury, he took out a skill called 3 Natural Talents. The skill: 3 natural talents based on the 3 origins of the universe, heaven, earth, and man, is a way to observe all things in the universe. Since I've already created a mana circle, the next step is the dantian. The mana circle is created in the heart, but the dantian is opened in the lower abdomen. I have to guide it to open and move on its own. Thinking this, Jongseol began to focus. He mobilized the internal energy within his body, and very quickly, as he was already quite familiar with this. And so right after that, he successfully opened his dantian. Successfully opened the dantian through the skill 3 Natural Talents. With the dantian opened, managing internal energy has become possible. The effectiveness of all martial arts increases. Based on the level of internal energy achieved, you have received an excellent result. Reward 1,000 points. After finishing this, Jongseol let out a breath and temporarily stopped his training. Only 1 hour until the next attack, he muttered. Meanwhile, Mr. Go Chang-suk came to find him, after he had finished processing all those raw materials. Looks like you made the fang into a dagger faster than I expected, Jongseol said with a smile, but Mr. Go still looked regretful. I wanted to find a refining agent, but it wasn't easy. Go on and check the items first. Hearing this, Jongseol looked over to check the information. First was the Grey Wolf Cloak. Type cloak rank C. Description: crafted by a talented artisan from the Grey Wolf clan. The rulers of the Brown Gravel territory in the Wolf Forest. It retains its original power. Fang Dagger. Type Dagger. Rank C+. Description: the fang from the hill-digging boar that dominated the hill. The blade was simply sharpened and shaped with a whetstone, maximizing its power. So, do you like them? Go Chang-seok asked, and Jongseol nodded, extremely satisfied. Yes, I like them a lot. After saying that, he had to admit to himself, impressive. A D+ rank item made without any proper tools. He's truly worthy of Barrett's attention. Over on the side, Go Chang-sok casually tossed Jongseol a scabbard. I made it from some leftover leather. Thank you, Jongseol replied. Then, in order to milk this old man for all he was worth until he was 90, he made a suggestion. By the way, sir, you shouldn't participate directly in combat. Instead, it would be better if you managed the equipment at the campsite. Could you take care of managing the equipment at the camp? Of course, I'd be happy to, he said with a nod. Yes, that will be helpful for everyone. The next wave is going to be tougher. Meanwhile, speaking of Yu Xiao, she was running around frantically commanding everyone to prepare for the next wave. It's about to start. Everyone get ready. According to Jongseol, this wave will be especially dangerous. Remember to stay focused. Not far away, a girl saw how urgently everyone was moving, and said calmly, Even if it's dangerous, we're strong enough, right? I hope it's wild boars again. The more food, the better. Someone from the other side replied. Hearing them say this, a worried look appeared in Yu Xiao's eyes. Everyone seems way too calm. This is concerning. If Jongseol gave a warning, it definitely won't be easy. At that moment, a loud explosion suddenly rang out, and the cause of it was the big guy. Han Cheol had slammed his fist into the ground, creating a large crater. Silence, he said with an extremely serious expression, causing the crowd to fall silent in his wake. Seeing this, Yu Xiao also stepped forward to remind everyone there's only 1 minute left. Then she turned to look at Han Cheol and thanked him. You're Kang Han Cheol, right? Thanks. Hearing this, Hanchul just coldly turned his head away without replying, and right at that moment, the fourth wave of attacks officially began. Their opponents this time were gray wolves. If it's wolves, this should be easy. We've fought them before, right? Someone said cheerfully before they got a good look at the shape of these monsters.
Wait a minute. Why are they so big?
The group said in confusion, and the cowardly young man Park Jong-pil turned to look at Jong-sil and asked, "Hey, what is this?
Why are these things so huge? What did you think the monsters were going to be, sheep or goats?"
"I wouldn't dare think anything," he said hurriedly. Jong-seol, meanwhile, silently observed the expressions of the group in front of him.
I used to be like that too. A long time ago.
I was also scared when facing giant monsters. But these two are different, he thought, looking at the expressions of Yu Seo-ah and Han-chil, who showed no fear at all.
Enough nonsense. Let's start the hunt,
Jong-seol said calmly, making Park Jong-pil jump as he remembered his mission to be the bait.
Any objections?
Jong-sun asked coldly, and with no other choice, his friend Park Jong-pil could only run away crying.
This is so frustrating.
He led a whole pack of wolves right after me heading towards Jong-sun, bro. It's dangerous. He ran crying his eyes out, while over here, Jong-sun had already prepared his fireball skill to welcome the gray wolves.
This is going a bit too far, don't you think?
He said. He then directly launched the fireball forward, scaring the piss out of Park Jong-pil. Whoa, you didn't give us any warning at all. He paid no attention to those complaints. Against Jong-sun's firepower, the pack of wolves could only howl in agony and become roasted dog meat. And that starving demon Beelzebub, seeing this, also started to drool. The constellation-hungry prince quickly picked up his chopsticks, staring intently at the delicious plate of food. In another corner, a gray wolf had nimbly dodged out of the explosion's range. Seeing this, Jong-sun calmly drew his sword to test out just how effective his new toy was. You get what you give. As he spoke, he took out the Blood Wolf sword style. It was from inside the treasure vault. This is a martial art created by Master Jiao Kong of the Wudang sect, who had severed all ties with the secular world to confront a pack of wolves. After learning the skill, Jong-sun gripped his sword tightly and shot forward like an arrow, and with just one form of the Blood Wolf sword style, Blood Wolf's claw, he was able to easily butcher this gray wolf.
Now that my Dantian is open, this martial art will be even stronger,
Jong-sun thought to himself, simultaneously enhancing his physique by using his internal energy. In the distance, the remaining wolves saw their comrade get wrecked like that. They started barking wildly and ganged up on him, swarming in like ants. Seeing this, Jong-sun wasn't the least bit flustered. He quietly stood his ground to charge up the first move of the Blood Wolf sword style, Blood Wolf's Fang, enhanced with a great deal of internal energy. Next, after the pack of wolves had entered his attack range, countless streams of sword aura began to shoot out from Jong-sun, rushing forward to slice up these monsters. It was so fast they couldn't even get close enough to touch the hem of Jong-sun's clothes before they were turned into dead dogs. Seeing this bloody spectacle, his friend Park Jong-pil, standing nearby, trembled and asked, "Bro, are you still you?" "Don't be ridiculous," Jong-sun complained. After that, as always, he used his glutton's privilege to increase his power. Absorb nutrients, plus 1 point to strength, plus 3 points to agility. The constellation-hungry prince opened his mouth wide. Back to Park Jong-pil, he approached Jong-sun and said, "Hey, can I go over there?" As he spoke, he pointed towards the group of people who were struggling to deal with the remaining gray wolves, and with just a quick glance, it seemed like their situation wasn't too good either. The others were having a hard time, especially Han-cheol, who couldn't keep up with the wolves' speed.
But Yu Seo-ah is doing great.
At the same time, it seems Yu Seo-ah had performed so well that a constellation had taken notice of her. The constellation, a he who wears the crown, is watching Yu Seo-ah's swordsmanship with interest. He who wears the crown is Baal, the highest ranking of the 72 demon lords. Although not a demon god, Baal is still a master swordsman and the commander of 66 demon legions, so it's understandable why he's observing Yuseo-a. Jong-sun stroked his chin, thinking, the god he who wears the crown wants to assess Yuseo-a's potential. Her sword swings were unbelievably fast. Even with just one sword, it looked like she was fighting with multiple blades at once. That is the power of Baal. He's testing to see if Yuseo-a is worthy of his power. Jong-sun frowned in thought while Yuseo-a was receiving the blessing from that demon. Her combat abilities skyrocketed. Seeing this, the others knew. This was their chance to counterattack. "This is your chance, guys. Finish them off quickly." They shouted to each other, and seeing Yuseo-a's performance, Baal was quite satisfied. The constellation He Who Wears the Crown raised its foreleg with interest. It seems Baal is quite pleased, Jong-sun thought, and so, with Yuseo-a as their spearhead, it wasn't long before they cleared the fourth wave of the attack. You have successfully cleared the fourth attack wave. 4. All participating players receive 100 bonus points. Calculating individual contributions. First place Jongsun, 4,920 points. Second place Juseo, 900 points. Third place Kang Hancheol, 580 points. Just as the notification appeared, Huseo collapsed from exhaustion. Luckily, Jongsun noticed. He ran over to catch her. "You did well," Jongsun muttered in praise. "Not far away from the recent battle. There were quite a few people who had been injured by the wolves. Is there a nurse or a doctor here?" The green-haired girl asked, while in the meantime, there was a guy who seemed to have medical knowledge, however he could only shake his head and say that he couldn't do anything without his tools. The group of people simultaneously turned to look at Jong-sul with cold eyes. If only that guy would lend a hand, but he just stood there, not moving a muscle. Back to Jong-sul, sensing those stares. He calmly advanced towards the group, making them a little nervous. "What are you planning to do? You didn't even help us." Ignoring their comments, Jong-sul pushed the man in the blue shirt aside and then opened his treasure of greed to use a minor healing skill. It was a basic healing spell from the White Tower that could stop bleeding and reduce pain. At that moment, as everyone watched after Jong-sul used his skill, a layer of blue light covered the wound, causing the bloody holes to slowly close at a speed visible to the naked eye. "His wound, it's healing," the man in the blue shirt said in amazement. The blue-haired girl behind him saw this and also spoke up, asking, "Please, can you help over here too?" "I can't use it too many times," Jong-sul pointed out. "That's fine. I'll just choose the ones who are in critical condition," she said with a nod. And just like that, after finishing treating the critically injured Jong-sul, quietly went over to a tree and thought, "This is more than enough. It's even better than I expected. No one died, and the seriously injured will recover quickly." At this point, his train of thought was interrupted when the big guy, Han Cheol, suddenly approached him. "What is it?" Jong-sul asked coldly, and Han Cheol stated his purpose. "Fight me." Hearing this request, Jong-sul let out a faint smile. "That's just like Han Cheol. If I want to talk to him, I'll have to break his spirit first." No sooner said than done. Jong-sul immediately agreed. "All right, pick up your weapon. Use your magic too," he said in a cold voice. But to face someone like Han Cheol, Jong-sul had no need to go all out. "No need. If you want me to use a weapon, try beating me bare-handed first." As he spoke, he began to crack his knuckles, and Han Cheol saw that Jong-sul was being a bit disrespectful. He gritted his teeth and charged forward to attack. The first move came from the big guy who threw a punch aimed straight at Jong-sul's face, but he easily leaned to one side to dodge it. His attacks are strong, but his defense is full of openings. As he thought this, Jong-sul kicked straight at Han Cheol's thigh. However, the big guy remained as steady as a mountain. "At least he's sturdy," Jong-sun acknowledged with a nod. Han Cheol took the opportunity to unleash a barrage of punches, forcing Jong-sul to retreat. And after a brief exchange, Jong-sun came to a conclusion. "There's no way I can fight Han Cheol barehanded in my current state. If that's the case, then..." Thinking this, Jong-sun took out the Tai Chi Quan skill book from his treasure. This is a martial art developed in the southern schools of China, along with Shaolin Kung Fu. It is one of the two main forms of Chinese martial arts. After using the skill, Jong-sul immediately fell into a different defensive stance. And of course, Han Cheol didn't realize this, so he swung his fist to attack once more. But instead of dodging this time, our main character gently raised a hand to block the fist. Then, he leaned slightly easily, shifting Han Cheol's center of gravity. Next, he pushed forward with both hands, sending the big guy flying backwards until he crashed into a tree trunk and stopped. However, you really have to admire his beastly defensive abilities. Even though he was sent flying like a ball, this guy still didn't seem to be hurt that much. "It's not over yet!" he roared and began to charge and attack like a madman again. On this side, Jong-sul saw this and thought to himself, "In terms of pure strength, Han Cheol is a level above me. But the secret of Tai Chi Quan isn't brute force, but the ability to control the surrounding energy at will. An attack that relies solely on power against Tai Chi will only end up harming the attacker." At that moment, as Han Cheol charged forward, Jong-sun suddenly sidestepped with lightning speed. Then he gently reached out his hand, landing a single palm strike on Han Cheol's shoulder, sending him flying back towards the tree. The blow was so powerful, it split the tree trunk in two. Finally, after checking his shoulder joint, Han Cheol dejectedly said, "I lose." Across from him, Jong-sul walked over to heal him and said, "There's no need to rush, you're already strong enough. Twice a day. From now on, you'll train with me here twice a day," Jong-sul said, holding out his hand to help the big guy up. "All right," Han Cheol said, taking Jong-sul's hand tightly as he got to his feet. Meanwhile, Their battle had also caught the attention of a constellation. To be precise, this constellation had its eye on Han Cheol. The constellation, the old man riding a crocodile, is looking down intently at player Kang Han Cheol. Back with Yongsun, this name was also familiar to him. The old man riding a crocodile. Agaris, the second-ranked Demon King. It seems Han Cheol has finally caught the attention of a constellation. Yongsun was happy for his muscular friend. Time passed quickly and the fifth wave of attacks began. And this time, everyone's expressions had completely changed after fighting off 4 waves of monsters. They no longer had fear on their faces. Yongsun saw their appearance and was satisfied. Everyone's attitude has changed a lot. Wolves, boars, monkeys, what's next? He thought to himself. And the monsters for this attack wave. Mine were gray-furred boars. As soon as they spotted the people ahead, they shrieked wildly and charged forward like tanks. Everyone hold your weapons tight. Giseok shouted the reminder while the timid Park Jung-poo on this side had also changed. He was no longer afraid and confidently turned to say to Jong-sun, "Sir, I'm ready. What are we going to deal with?" Hearing that, Jong-sun glanced over and said, "Just sit this one out." Back to Park Jung-poo, seeing Jong-sun suddenly being so kind, left him a little surprised. Ignoring his surprised expression, Jong-sun turned his attention to the group's battle and thought, "Up until now, I've been holding back dealing with most of the enemies to match everyone else's level. But it seems I don't need to do that anymore. Besides, everyone needs to earn their own contribution points," Jong-sun thought to himself. Thinking this, Jong-sun turned to look at Han Cheol, who was using his brute strength to stop the charge of a gray-furred boar head-on. Then he put all his strength into his arms, grabbed its 2 tusks, and lifted the boar into the air before slamming it hard onto the ground. Is he using Tai Chi? Has he already completed his contract with Agaris? His power has increased many times over. At this rate, I won't need to intervene anymore, Jong-sun muttered, startling Park Jung-poo, who was next to him. "What then? Wherever you go now, I'll follow you," Park Jung-poo said while rubbing his hands together obsequiously. However, Jong-sun rejected this request and explained, "There's no need. I'm going to climb that mountain over there." Hearing that, Park Jung-poo looked behind Jong-sun and saw the mountain he was pointing at. To be more precise, it was a sheer rock pillar. Just one glance was enough to know how difficult it would be to climb. And if you happened to slip, you'd definitely be a goner. So Park Jung-poo immediately retracted his intention to follow. "Be careful, I'll watch over the tent." And after that, Jong-sun calmly walked towards the rock mountain. While moving, he was spotted by a group of brown monkeys. And of course, against these weak-ass monsters, Jong-sun cut them down as easily as cutting up chickens. In fact, by using them as punching bags for practice, Jong-sun's skill proficiency also increased through the internal energy of the second form of the Blood Wolf sword style. Blood Wolf's fang has been enhanced. The starving prince constellation muttered that a barbecue party still wasn't enough to satisfy it. "Don't worry, I guarantee that you will eat your fill." Jong-sun nodded and said, quickly using his gluttony skill to feed this starving demon, "Honestly, dealing with you feels like taking care of a child. No more like a hungry pet." Thinking this, he also spoke up to reassure it. "Don't worry. At the top of the mountain, there's something more delicious than anything you've ever eaten before." At this thought, Jong-sun paused for a beat and looked at the rock mountain. "Before I returned in time, I wouldn't have even dared to explore this terrain. But now, things are different." After speaking, he took out an ability from his treasury, the ability of the Balaton Cliff Golden Monkey. It's a top predator that lives in the Rocky Mountains and Cliffs of Balaton. As soon as he assimilated with the power, Jong-sun could clearly feel the difference inside his body. "With this power, I can definitely climb it," he said with a smile. And just like that, Jong-sun began the process of conquering the cliff face. "I know where to place my hands, how to deal with the wind. The instincts of a monkey are flowing through my veins. Without this power, I would have fallen long ago," Jong-sun thought to himself. Meanwhile, that starving one also asked curiously. The starving prince constellation wonders what there is to eat in a place like this. Back to Jong-sun at this moment, he also muttered, "It's finally almost time." Just as he said that, Jong-sun suddenly noticed 3 brown monkeys sitting precariously on a tree branch next to him. To be more precise, their eyes were bulging out as they looked at Jong-sun. They looked scared to death. How could they have expected someone to climb all the way up here? Jong-sun smiled inwardly. Meanwhile, the group of brown monkeys quickly regained their composure and angrily threw rocks at him. Seeing this, Jong-seun also put all his strength into his 2 hands and pulled hard, launching his body upwards. Then, just before he started to fall, he quickly took out a knife. Gritting his teeth, he stabbed it firmly into the cliff face. Maybe once isn't enough, Jong Seon thought to himself right before he spotted a cave somewhere in the middle of this cliff. That cave, it looks like a path for those monkeys. All right then, let's see. Have I found the hiding place of the hidden fragment? As he said that, he began to use his fire magic, creating a flame above his palm. And as if they'd read Jong Seon's intentions, the faces of the monkeys below turned pale. And just like that, in the middle of the cliff face, a large explosion suddenly erupted, and the charred bodies of the brown monkeys rained down below. After doing this, Jong Seon quickly climbed up into the cave. Just as he predicted, this cave connected to the mountain peak. Thanks to this cave, Jong Seon was able to easily make his way to the summit. And here, he also encountered a knockoff Sun Wukong. When this white monkey saw Jong Seon appear, it let out a few roars to threaten him. Too bad it had no effect on this guy. You must be the leader, right, a monkey? Phew, thank goodness it's not the real Sun Wukong. It reminds me of the Great Sage Heaven's equal constellation. This monkey's form is probably imitating the Great Sage. Even if it's not as good as the real thing, I finally get a decent fight, Jong Seon said cheerfully as he parried a staff swing from the fake Great Sage. And with that, the battle between the fake Great Sage and Jong Seon officially began. With its agile advantage, the white monkey swung its staff at Jong Seon from countless different directions, forcing him to block left and right to defend himself. For a boss in the tutorial map, its skills are pretty impressive. If I just keep defending like this, I'm finished, Jong Seon thought to himself. Then he put strength into his two legs and leaped backward to temporarily create some distance. Next, Jong Seon thought that he had to attack and avoid getting injured, so he focused his mind and moved in close, simultaneously dodging the staff thrusts coming from the white monkey. And when he found an opportunity, Jong Seon reached out and grabbed the boss's staff. He then kicked the fake Great Sage straight in the stomach, sending it flying backward. At the same time, he snatched its weapon. "Whoa, heavier than I thought," Jong Seon mumbled as he felt the weight of the staff. Meanwhile, when the boss saw that its weapon had been taken by Jong Seon, it went berserk and shrieked a few times. "What's wrong? You want this back?" Jong Seon said teasingly. He then opened the Treasury of Greed and used the dog-beating staff technique. This is a secret art from the Beggars sect created to deal with threatening mad dogs and beggars, and just like that, Jong Seon immediately entered a defensive stance corresponding to the dog-beating staff technique, which left the monkey on the other side a bit confused. Time passed quickly, and because it had lost its weapon, and with Jong Seon also having his new skill, it didn't take long for him to bash the white monkey's head in. You have defeated the vermin of Stone Monkey Mountain, the cliff-climbing monkey. Your level has increased. Personal contribution points increased by 1,000 points. You have received the Chestnut Stone of Stone Mountain. I'll have to give this chestnut stone to old man Go Jang-seol later. It'll probably be useful, Jong Seon thought to himself. Then, as usual, he used his glutton's privilege to feed that starving demon. Sorry to have kept you waiting. Here, and just like that, the toothy snake lunged forward and began to devour the stone monkey's body. You have absorbed the cliff-climbing monkey. Nutrient absorption has increased agility by 5 points and intelligence by 5 points. Back to Jong Seon, he saw his stats suddenly increase so much. He was a bit shocked. A 10-point increase all at once. It's all thanks to the power of greed. It's so strong. But this devouring power is insane. At this rate, I'll definitely become a tank. Thinking this, he glanced over at the nearby cliff face and muttered, "Anyway, forget that. Let's see what that monkey was guarding." With that thought, he began to push aside a stone slab that was blocking the way, revealing a secret cave inside. Along with it, a notification sound chimed. Confirming information with Jong Seon, you are exploring the National Dungeon of the Forgotten Hero. No way! A dungeon in the very first chapter of the tutorial. A dungeon. That means I can get way more experience than just fighting regular monsters. And if I complete it, the rewards will be huge. Especially if I'm the first one to clear it, the rewards will be multiplied many times over. Since I'm already here, there's no reason to hesitate. As he thought this, Jong Seon quickly stepped inside the cave. And just to be safe, he took out an item called the Night Owl's Eye from his treasury. These are the eyes of the predator known as the Night Owl. They gather light even in complete darkness, illuminating your vision. After equipping this item, the entire cave became clear to Jong Seon's eyes. From the entrance until now, it's been all downhill. Since this cave was dug into the mountain, the deeper I go, the closer I must be to the bottom, Jong Seon thought to himself. It didn't take long before he seemed to arrive in a spacious area filled with longswords stuck in the ground. Model. Above ground, the walls and floor were covered in terrifying slash marks. It really lives up to its name as a training ground, Jong Seon remarked before spotting a keyhole up ahead.
This hole, it must be part of the quest chain.
With that thought, he took out the forgotten hero's sword and thrust it forcefully into the keyhole. And then, the moment the sword was plunged into the hole, it suddenly emitted a brilliant light. You have earned the right to challenge the hero.
Forgotten. The notification sound appeared abruptly, immediately after our protagonist sensed a presence appear behind him.
This was the forgotten hero. He watched as the man casually plucked a sword embedded in the ground, preparing to show Yong-seon what he could do. Our hero, however, was a little startled. He wasn't even ready yet. Damn it, has it already started? Jong-seon grumbled to himself, but this wasn't even the most difficult part, because right at that moment, Jong-seon realized that he couldn't pull his sword out from the hole. And to explain it to him, the system then issued a few more notifications. The Forgotten Hero's challenge has begun. Other than the broken swords in the room, no other weapons may be used. The mana in the room is beginning to interfere with the use of magic. When you grasp a broken sword, the duel with the Forgotten Hero will begin. Upon seeing this, a serious look appeared in Yong-seon's eyes. So I can't use my usual equipment or magic, huh? Thinking this, and with no other choice, Jong-seon reached out, picked up a cracked sword, and gripped it tightly in his hand. And the very moment Jong-seon did this, the hero lunged forward like a speeding arrow, swinging his sword straight at Jong-seon, forcing him to raise his own sword, with both hands just to block the blow. Seeing that Jong-seon wasn't defeated in a single blow, the hero's eyes showed a flicker of interest. It's been a long time since someone has challenged me. On the other side, Jong-seon mustered his strength, pushed his opponent back, and replied, "A long time, so there have been challengers before me." "That's right. A very, very long time ago there was one," he said with a nod. With this bit of information, Jong-seon figured it out. "If you're still here, I suppose they must have failed, right?" With that said, the two of them began clashing again at wind-ripping speeds. However, Jong-seon was now at a disadvantage, as the sword in his hand was already cracked. It couldn't withstand the continuous impacts and shattered into pieces right before Jong-seon's eyes. Seeing his weapon was destroyed, Jong-seon quickly tossed it aside and swapped it for another sword. But it must be said, perhaps because it had been so long, the quality of the swords in the cave was absolutely terrible. The moment his second sword clashed with the hero's, it was instantly sliced in two. But luckily for Jong-seon, after cutting down his weapon, the hero paused and offered his critique. "Not bad, but your movements are too slow. You have the experience, but your body can't keep up." Hearing these words, Jong-seon was startled. He figured out my condition. Just after a few clashes of the sword, he thought. Jong-seon tossed the broken hilt aside and complained, "But this hero uses sword ki in a tutorial. Do you even intend to let me pass this trial?" "You can recognize sword ki," the hero said, surprised. And at that moment, Jong-seon finally understood why the previous challenger hadn't been able to pass. So that was the reason no one could pass this trial. Just finding a place like this wasn't easy to begin with, and now I have to deal with sword ki too. How is anyone supposed to do that? On the other side, despite hearing Jong-seon's complaints, the hero spoke resolutely. "If you can't pass this stage, don't even think about going anywhere." With that said, he leaped forward again, moving as fast as an arrow. This time, he even unleashed more deadly attacks, aiming straight for Jong-seon's throat, forcing him to continuously dodge left and right to avoid injury. "How long do you plan to dodge? I'm not a monster. I won't attack with the same pattern forever," he said coldly. Meanwhile, on the other side, Jong-seon frowned. He was thinking of a way to counter him. He's right. With normal monsters, you just need to understand their attack pattern. But with him, it's not like that. If I keep dodging, I'll be the one who gets seriously hurt. This is driving me crazy. I can't dodge, and I can't block either. With no other choice, Jong-seon had to once again rely on his sponsor, Mammon, and secretly swiped a secret martial arts manual, the Tai Chi sword, from his treasury. The Tai Chi sword is the basic sword technique of the Wudong school, which expresses the mystique of Tai Chi. Just like Tai Chi boxing, at the same time, the hero's sword lunged forward. To receive him, Jong-seon also swung his sword in a wave-like motion, managing to block the blade, and he did it without causing the sword in his hand to shatter into pieces. Seeing this, the hero's eyes flashed with surprise. "Ho ho, that was a good move, but it's still not enough." As he spoke, he swung his sword hard once more, instantly knocking the sword out of Jong-seon's hand. But at that very same moment, he revealed an opening at his abdomen. Seizing this God-given opportunity from who knows when, Jong-seok also prepared another sword and rushed forward, executing the third form of the Blood Wolf sword technique, the Blood Wolf strike, and immediately knocked the sword out of the hero's hands. Impressive. You anticipated my moves 2 steps ahead with a technique like that? That shouldn't be possible, without extensive combat experience. Are you hiding your true abilities? I see no signs that you've ever learned swordsmanship, he wondered aloud. Well, of course. I just opened a treasure chest and got this power a few seconds ago. For those who don't know about this ability, I must look like I'm hiding my true strength, Jong-sok thought to himself. But he wasn't about to explain the details. He immediately turned and asked, "So is this trial over?" Hearing the question, the hero nodded and said, "Of course. You passed. You disarmed me after all. And with this potential, I don't think anyone will be able to take your sword from you ever again." As soon as he finished speaking, the forgotten hero's sword, stuck deep in the keyhole, began to radiate a brilliant light. It caught Jong-sok's attention. This must be the power the forgotten hero has been protecting all this time, and the reward from the forgotten hero's training ground. With that thought, Jong-sok reached out with both hands, gripped the hilt, and tried to pull it out. However, the very moment he touched it, he felt a surge of power flowing into his body. From behind, the hero spoke up to explain, "Hold on. The sword is choosing you as its master." Hearing him say that, Jong-seok's expression relaxed. A sword that chooses its master must be at least A rank. I'm good at gritting my teeth and enduring. In my past life, I reached the 92nd floor of the tower without any real talent. As he thought this, he began to grip the sword tighter, enduring the power that it was forcing into his body, and tried to pull the sword out, and after he did so, the sword in Jong-sok's hand changed its form. "This is the true form of the forgotten hero's sword," he said in surprise. And beside him, the fact that Jong-seok had drawn the sword also signaled that the hero's mission was complete. "It seems you're still struggling with it, but you'll overcome it eventually. I hope that someday you will show me something even more magnificent." After saying this, his body slowly faded away, just as it had appeared. At the same time, the system displayed a notification. "You have conquered the hidden dungeon, the Forgotten Hero's Trial. Your level has increased by 1. You have achieved a historical feat. Your personal contribution points have increased by 20,000. You have acquired the Sword of the Forgotten Hero, the legendary sword Durandal." The constellation Corvus jumps up from his seat. Elsewhere, the 6th wave of attacks had begun, and Juseo-ah was fighting for her life against her opponents, the stone monkeys that Jong-seok had faced earlier. After felling the monkey in front of her, she pointed her sword forward. "Everyone hold the formation. We have the upper hand. There's nothing to be afraid of." Beside her, the big guy Han Cheol, with his brute strength, was also unleashing a flurry of punches, continuously giving these monkeys a beatdown all by himself. He was able to fight multiple monsters at once. "It's been a while since I've seen Jong-sok. I wonder if something happened to him," Juseo said worriedly. However, in response to her question, Han Cheol just remained silent and deep in thought. Seeing this, Juseo continued, "I can't wait any longer. I'm going to look for Jong-sok. You'll come with me after this wave is over, right?" "There's no need," Han Cheol said calmly. "Aren't you worried? Without Jong-sok, Before she could finish, Han Cheol cut her off. "He's not so weak that we need to worry about him. Right now, he's probably doing something that we can't even imagine. So we have to keep fending off these waves and get stronger until he comes back." As he spoke, he looked up at the ranking board. Sao's in front of them. First place, Jong-seok, 28,660 points. Second place, Juseo-ah, 1,680 points. Third place, Kang Han Cheol, 1,600 points. Seeing this leaderboard with his astronomical score, Juseo-a's face finally relaxed. "All right," she said calmly. Back to Jong-seok. It was unclear how much time had passed, but he was just waking up. "Did I pass out right after drawing the sword? Damn it. My entire internal energy and mana have been drained. I really want to check the sword's stats, but first I need to replenish my Dantian," Jong-seok thought to himself. And so, he quickly entered a meditative state to replenish his consumed energy. But not long after sitting down, our protagonist suddenly realized something. His recovery speed seemed a little faster than normal, forcing him to open his eyes and look around. Huh. What the hell is this? As he thought this, he turned around and discovered that behind him a pillar of light and energy was shooting straight up into the sky. It seems the reward for this dungeon wasn't just the sword. With that thought, he decided to make use of the energy within. Model. Yongsun's dungeon also uses the Dark Mana Circle obtained from the treasury. This is the Dark Mana Circle training method said to be passed down only to the direct disciples of the Dark Tower, the domain of Dark Mages. The Supreme Core Break Technique. A secret manual passed down heart to heart through generations of the demonic sect. "In that case, I'll drain this energy source until it's completely dry," Jong-sul muttered and then continued. His entire body acted like a water pump, sucking all of this energy inside him until he saw a notification. "From the system. You have successfully passed. You have passed the 6th wave. You have successfully passed the 7th wave. You have successfully passed the 8th wave. All players who participated in the attack wave are rewarded with 200 points here. Seeing the notifications appear one after another startled Jongsun a bit. Has that much time passed already? It's been about a day and a half since I left the camp. Luckily, they managed to hold on without me. The final challenge of the first tutorial chapter is the 10th wave. In the final wave, the monsters' levels will spike. It seems I'll have to earn my keep at the camp for a while. As he thought this, Zhong School's techniques also had a breakthrough after absorbing a countless amount of energy inside the dungeon using the Supreme Core Break technique. You have accumulated half of an internal energy pearl in your dantian. All martial arts you use will have higher efficiency and destructive power. Through the Dark Tower's training method, you have formed a second mana circle. You can now use second circle magic. Your magical power has increased. Back to Jongsun looking at his body overflowing with energy. He couldn't hide his joy. To develop this much in less than 2 days is incredible, but more importantly, there's this sword. Sealed Stone Splitting Sword. Durandal. Classification Longsword. Grade B. Description. A legendary sword used by legendary heroes. Its potential is still sealed because it has not fully acknowledged its master's strength. Looking at these stats, John School found it truly hard to believe. Unbelievable. To think this was in the first tutorial chapter. Even before my regression, this sword was only a rumor never found. As he thought, Johnson swung the sword once, creating an extremely powerful gust of wind. Even while sealed, it's this strong. The reason the seal hasn't been completely removed is probably because my current strength isn't enough, he speculated out loud. At the same time, the system sent a notification. Time remaining until the 9th monster wave attack, 24 minutes. Seeing this, John School hurriedly got himself together and quickly ran back to the campsite. Damn it, I have to hurry. Cut to Juseoa's group. The battle had already begun, and their opponents were those monkeys. Hold the formation. Hold the formation, the brown-haired girl shouted urgently. It's no use. There are too many of them, the man with the shield said with difficulty. What about the injured? Damn it. There's no time to worry about the injured, someone replied. In another corner, the leader, Juseoa, was also fighting hard against the monsters, trying to reduce the pressure on the others. It seemed her swordsmanship was still a bit lacking, so the constellation Spider wearing a crown corrected the player's posture. The constellation says that her movements lack finesse. Now is not the time to worry about that, she complained out loud, thinking worriedly. From the 7th wave onward, the monsters have gotten noticeably stronger. There are too many injured. Can we really hold out? At that moment, while she was still lost in thought, a red monkey lunged to attack her from behind, detecting the movement. Juseoa quickly turned to respond. However, for some reason, her hands began to tremble so much that she could barely hold her sword steady, helpless. The muscular guy Han Cheol, who was not far away, immediately came to her aid by thrusting both hands into the ground. Then he heaved the ground upward. This sent the monkeys flying. The constellation. Old man riding a gharial looks down at the shaking ground with a satisfied gaze. The constellation. Spider wearing a crown bares its fangs, telling him not to interfere. Thanks, Juseoa said with a nod. Han Cheol also spoke up, advising just take a breath. But the injured, she said worriedly. If you fall, the entire camp will be wiped out. Han Cheol's reminder made Juseoa realize her position. At the same time, she looked at the back in front of her. Even Han Cheol is badly injured. If Zhong School isn't here, we're doomed. At that moment, not far away, the scream of their friend Park Jong-pil rang out, drawing the attention of the two. We're at our limit. We can't hold on any longer. Where the hell are you? He cried while clutching a bunch of bananas with a whole pack of red monkeys chasing him from behind. It seems that because he was running in such a hurry without looking at the ground, Park Youngpu tripped over a rock and tumbled down. Seeing this, the red monkeys quickly accelerated, rushing toward him to devour him. This scared Park Jung-pyo so much he was crying for his mommy and daddy. But luckily, it seems the Grim Reaper didn't want to claim his soul just yet, so at the most dangerous moment. Bagay, suddenly a bolt of lightning shot out from nowhere, electrocuting the monkeys until they convulsed violently. At the same time, Juseoa and Han Cheol received notifications from their constellations. The constellation, Spider wearing a crown, bows before the demon god. The constellation, Old Man riding a gharial, bows before the demon god. Over here, the one who acted was none other than Jongsun, who had just returned, and just seeing him appear was enough to bring Park Jong-pyo to tears of joy. Bro, he shouted. Meanwhile, Jong-sul was vigorously using his lightning magic. He fired randomly ahead while silently thinking with relief, this was more dangerous than I thought. It seems Juseoa and Hancheol held up well. But what the hell is that guy doing? He even attracted the attention of a constellation. The constellation. The pillager laughs and points at player Park Jong-pil. Around them, the group of extras also noticed that Jong Seung-un had returned. That magic. Could it be... He's the Blood Wolf or something? Jong Seung-un asked in a daze, and Park Jong-pil coughed once before stepping forward to explain. So do you like the nickname I came up with for you? The smell of blood spreading every time you swing your sword with that wolf-like cloak? Isn't it a perfect fit? He said with a bright smile, oblivious to the fact that Jong-sul just wanted to pin him down and beat him up. A player's nickname is as important as their real name, and is often used even more frequently. To have it carelessly chosen by someone like this. I'll make sure I'm the one who gives you a special nickname, Jong-sul said through gritted teeth. Really, I'd be so honored, Park Jong-pil replied with a cheerful smile. After that, with Jong-sul's appearance, they successfully cleared the 9th wave. You have successfully cleared the 9th wave. Each participant will receive 200 points. First place, Jong-sul, 41,660 points. Second place, Josea, 4,820 points. Third place, Hancheol, 4,760 points. Speaking of Josea, after she saw that everything was over, then she quickly ran over to ask Jong-sul, Jong-sul, where did you go? You were gone for so long. In response to this question, Jong-sul looked towards the rest of the group. I'll explain later. For now, you need to focus on taking care of the camp. Hearing him say that, the female leader understood. The situation around them was still quite chaotic, so she had to hurry off to deal with it, but not without reminding him, you'd better explain everything later. Currently, Josea is the leader of this camp, Jong-sul thought to himself. Meanwhile, the big guy over here mumbled, she's gotten stronger. Let's meet at the broken ancient tree, after saying that he turned and left immediately. This request made the main character realize something. At the tree? Is it for a sparring match? It's been a while since we've had a fight. After thinking this, Jong-sul said in a cold voice, Park Jong-pil, report the situation. Hearing the question, the decoy youth waved his hands humbly and said, Yes, sir. After you left for the Rocky Mountain, the 6th wave ended without incident. However, starting from the 7th wave, blah blah. Across from him, Jong-sul was a bit surprised hearing Park Jong-pil's report, which sounded like a stage recital. This guy, he has a talent like this. I remember before my regression, he just clung to Hancheol and caused trouble. But now I see his ability to memorize and summarize is quite good. It seems he's worthy of the 6th-ranked demon's attention. Balafor? Back to Park Jong-pil, unaware of Jong-sul's thoughts, he continued to run his mouth explaining the situation in the time remaining. The twins installed a wooden barricade. The twins? Jong-sul frowned as if remembering something. The scene changes to the location of the twins they were talking about. At that moment, the two sisters were talking to each other. It seems this place is still lacking. I told you to make it sturdier. The girl in pink spoke up. Beside her, her younger sister in blue retorted, If we had followed your plan, we wouldn't have finished. Before the attacks wave started, at this point, their conversation was interrupted because Park Jong-pil had brought Jong-sul over. Hanaji Handaol, what are you two doing? He's back and you two haven't even said hello yet. Over here. After seeing their faces, Jong-sul finally remembered who they were. Those twins. Ever since the 3rd wave, I've been quite impressed by them. They've been actively moving around to fight off the monsters. Being twins makes them stand out even more. Oh, it's Mr. Bloodwolf, the two of them said happily. However, upon hearing this, the look on Jong-sul's face darkened again. Bloodwolf, I still can't get used to this nickname. The name that brat gave me, Jong-sul thought, gritting his teeth. His annoyed expression also confused Park Jong-pil. I don't know what I did wrong, moving on from that. Then Jong-sul composed himself and asked, You two did a good job. Did you buy the tools with points? Yes, Ms. Josea told us to. Even though it looks like this now. It's quite useful against the Red Wolves, they boasted with a smile, and Jong-sul had to nod in agreement. It will also be useful for the upcoming wave. Hearing him say that, the twins started to worry again. But we need more wood. Just the two of us don't have enough time to prepare for the next wave. Back to Jong-sul. His previous words were just for encouragement. In reality, his thoughts were different. A wooden barricade won't help much in the 10th wave. However, the reason I'm paying attention to you two is because of the constellations that are watching you both. The constellation Blackbird of the Sharp Spear's Tip observes player Han Aji. The constellation Giant Vulture Spreading Its Wings observes player Han Daul. the 38th ranked demon Halphus and the 39th ranked demon Malphus. They hold the abilities of construction and fortification. Combined, these two abilities are quite useful in combat. After thinking this, Yongsul spoke up to give them a hand. "I'll take care of the wood myself." Hearing this, the twins' worries vanished instantly. "Really, Mr. Blood Wolf, you're the best, yay! But you guys stop calling me that," the old man grumbled. To get the wood, the whole group headed to the forest, where Jongsun also pulled out his new toy-making Han Aji and Hondown, a little curious. "Are you going to chop wood with a sword? I'll get you an axe." "No, it's all right," Jongsun said, shaking his head, and then he channeled his strength into both hands and swung his sword straight at the tree in front of him. The incredibly powerful slash sank halfway into the trunk. Seeing this, the other three exclaimed in admiration, "Wow, you're so strong! You're amazing!" But he paid their words no mind. Jongsun began to frown, observing the cut he'd made, and thought, "With my current strength, without using my internal energy, this is probably my limit." The stone-splitting sword. Durandal. If its master's power is weak, it can't even cut down a single tree. We still have a long way to go. With that thought to make chopping the tree more convenient, Yongsun opened the Treasury of Greed and took out a sword technique called the Taishan 18-fold sword. It's a martial art developed from the Huangbo sect. It's famous for its immense power. To cut down a tree in a single strike, this martial art is more than enough. After saying that, he swung his sword to test it again, and just as predicted with a single slash, Yongsun made a clean cut that instantly felled the tree. 2 slashes into that large tree. "You're amazing," the three said with bright smiles. But that wasn't all, because at that moment Yongsun began to enhance his strength with his own internal energy. Through his internal energy, the second form of the Taishan 18 style, Taishan's single strike, was enhanced. After Yongsun gathered enough internal energy, he swung his sword forward with all his might. This created a blade of aura that cut through all the tree trunks in front of him, causing a row of large trees in the forest to topple to both sides. And this game-breaking sight also left the three of them, and Park Youngpil completely stunned. "Don't worry about transportation. Park Youngpil will handle it." "Huh, what all of this?" "By myself," Park Youngpil said, startled, and Jongsun confidently affirmed, "Of course." The right arm. Hearing that, the lure burst into tears while his constellation clutched its stomach and roared with laughter. The Snatcher constellation held its belly laughing as it looked at player Park Youngpil. Time passed quickly until evening. By now, Park Youngpil was so tired he could no longer stand steady. "Bro, please." As he spoke, his entire body collapsed to the ground, but Jongsun was determined to milk this guy for all he was worth, not letting him off one bit. "Stop whining, you old man," he complained, though with a hint of amusement. Even though I was joking, he still managed to move 3 of them. "I was originally planning to let Hanchio handle it all," Jongsun said, looking towards the big guy who was carrying 2 logs by himself. "Hanchio is really strong. With this, we can expand the barrier," the twins said with a smile. And Jongsun saw that the construction of the barrier was going smoothly for now, so he turned his thoughts to other matters. "Now that this is done, next I'll head over there." As he thought this, he glanced towards a grassy area not far away. There, countless injured people were waiting for the green-haired girl to heal them. My hand. I can't feel anything," someone moaned, and the girl quickly turned to reassure them. "Wait a moment. I'll treat this person, then it'll be your turn." Lee Han-woo. I've spoken to her briefly. She's always all in when it comes to treating patients. Chosen by the Great General of Hell. Map 8, Rank 5. The blood-soaked lion constellation growls and licks the blood splattered around player Lee Han-woo, the Rank 5 Overlord of Hell, Mark 8. He possesses the power to both create and cure plagues. It seems she hasn't fully mastered how to control the constellation's power yet, Jongsun thought to himself. He sat down next to her and advised, "Let's divide the roles. I'll take care of the patients with severe external injuries, and you handle those with internal injuries. With Marbus's ability, it'll be more efficient this way." "How did you—" Lee Han-woo said doubtfully. However, after looking into Yongsun's eyes, she nodded in agreement. "Understood." And just like that, Yongsun also quickly got to work. Under the light of Yongsun's recovery, everyone's external wounds began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. "Your skill has improved. It was impressive before, but not to this extent," Lee Han-woo said in awe. "Of course. Recovery is a Tier 2 spell, so its power is far greater than a Tier 1. Jongsun thought to himself, then replied, "Soon enough. You'll become a better healer than me. The constellation you've made a pact with is just that powerful." Jongsun said this with a confident tone, which made the lion a little flustered. The blood-soaked lion constellation gently stroked its mane, feeling strangely satisfied. Being praised by a human. Another constellation nodded repeatedly, agreeing that the description was a perfect fit for the Lord of Hell. Seeing their reactions, a puzzled look appeared in Yongsun's eyes. These constellations can be surprisingly cute sometimes. He brushed the thought aside. Not long after, once everyone's wounds were temporarily treated, Yongsun left. If you need anything, just call me. Of course. Thank you so much, Li Hanwu said hurriedly. So a pact with Marbas, huh? The camp's structure has become even sturdier than I expected. Who would have thought things would change so much while I was busy at the Rocky Mountain model? All right, let's see who's next. Zhang School thought to himself, his gaze shifting to Mr. Go Chang-seo, who was diligently hammering away not far from him. Hello, sir. He approached and greeted him. Hearing the familiar voice, the old man stopped what he was doing, looked up, and said, Ah, you're here. The gear that The equipment that Cell A and Han Cell were using was made entirely by Go Chang-seo. The quality was top-notch, as if it had been custom-made. Zhang School was inwardly impressed. Meanwhile, the old man's attention was drawn to the sword at Zhang School's hip, and he spoke with a covetous look in his eyes. Wow, what's the deal with that sword of yours? Of course he noticed it right away, model. Zhang Xin thought with a hidden smile, and showed the man his sword. The moment he unsheathed it, the old man's eyes lit up like car headlights. I was wondering where you went, and it turns out you brought back a magnificent sword like this. Be careful, staring at it like that might put a hole right through the sword, Zhongsun warned, telling the old man to tone down his attitude. And only after hearing this did the old man realize he was overreacting. He quickly averted his gaze and asked, So what's going on? This sword looks like it doesn't need any sharpening. Across from him, Yong Seon took out the stone he got after defeating the Monkey King and said, First, could you take a look at this? The warrior constellation with the golden crown spun its crown out of habit. This material is quite useful. This starstone is unique. Go Jiangcheol nodded. Yong Seon thought, as expected, he recognized it right away. It's the jade stone I obtained from defeating the boss monster at the Rocky Mountain, among all the stones that can be collected. At this stage, it's one of the best. Thinking this, Jungsoon stated his request. I hope you can make armor out of this. Sure thing. I already make weapons for the entire camp, don't I? Go Jiangchil happily agreed. Can you finish it before the next attack wave? Jungsoon asked with a frown. The old man checked the time again. There are about 10 hours until the next one. He then said, Based on the remaining time, we have more than enough. Is there a reason you're in such a hurry? There is. I plan to go all out in the next wave, Jungsoon replied. Time passed quickly until the next morning. Jungsoon and Han Chil were sparring. You've improved, haven't you? You've changed too. You've always been like a beast. But now you're like a monster, Han Chil complained. Is that a compliment? You've picked up quite a bit of Tai Chi even without being taught. When it comes to learning through my body, I'm pretty good at it, Han Chil said confidently. Back to Yong Seon, he pointed out one of Han Chil's problems. But that way you're not really optimizing your strengths. My strengths? Han Chil asked again, and Jong Seon nodded in confirmation. That's right, your strengths. After speaking, he leaped forward. At the same time, he opened the Treasury of Greed to learn a skill called Jinju Ngan Family Fist. It's a martial art specialized for one-on-one close combat with a signature move famous for utilizing necromancy from the Jinju Ngan family, one of the 5 great families. Across from him, when Han Cheol saw Yong Seon's fist coming, he didn't hesitate at all and threw his own punch to clash with him. Their fists were so powerful that when they collided, a shockwave spread out around them. However, in the end, Yong Seon was still a step above. Because thanks to the internal energy and fist techniques of the Jinju Ngan family fist, his Jiangshi fist had been enhanced. Thus, it pushed the big guy backward, causing the girl Josiah, who was watching from the side, to cover her mouth in shock. That last punch, Han Cheol mumbled, looking at his trembling hand. Across from him, Yong Seon explained, Power Fist. This is how you can unleash your full potential. Once your form is perfect, I'll teach you more about spiritual techniques. For now, Park Jong-pil. Hearing his name called, Park Jong-pil shot forward out of nowhere like an arrow. Boss, I'm here. You're free right now, aren't you? Jong-seon asked. Yes, I've cleared my schedule so I can be at your beck and call anytime. Good. Then you'll be Han Cheol's sparring partner for a while, Jong-seon said with a smile, causing the blond young man to break out in a cold sweat. What, sir? Haha. Boss, actually, I have something really important I need to do. So, Park Jong-pil said as he slowly backed away.
Unfortunately for him, there was no way Jong Seon would believe an excuse he just came up with on the spot.
Use him as you please. I won't hold back,
Han Chul declared, then grabbed Park Jong-pil by the collar and dragged him to a corner to show him some moves. I'm counting on you, Park Jong-ja.
You don't even remember my name, no?
Boss? Park Jong-pil screamed desperately, which made his deceiver constellation roar with laughter, completely ignoring his cries. Next, Jong Seon turned to spar with Josea. Her style was completely different from Han Chul's. She knew how to fully utilize her strengths. There was almost nothing to criticize about her form. However, thinking this, Jong Seon suddenly sheathed his sword and said, "Your technique is good, but you're lacking power. It's fine for fighting a mob of weak monsters, but when you face a truly strong one, its speed and technique alone aren't enough." Above, Josea's constellation also agreed with this. The constellation wearing a crown nodded in agreement. And without them needing to say much, she herself was already aware of this fact. Just the red-skinned monsters alone were hard enough. After speaking, she bit her lip in frustration. Across from her, Jong Seon added, "Every time I leave the camp, I fight boss monsters. They're much stronger than the common monsters that usually appear in the waves. So that's the reason you've gotten so strong."
It's because of the boss monsters,
Josea said with a look of understanding. Back to Jong Seon. "I predict that a boss monster might appear in the next wave. It's not just a prediction, it's the truth, but I can't say it out loud. The rest is up to Josea to handle on her own." Jongseon thought to himself, giving her an encouraging nod. "From now on, I hope you'll lead the Che district well."
Yes,
she replied cheerfully. Time passed quickly. Just then, a system notification appeared, reminding everyone that the battle was near. Chapter 1. Adaptation. 5 minutes until the 10th monster wave. And at that same moment, the old craftsman Go Jong-se had finished crafting the armor using the stone Jong Seol had given him. "What do you think to your liking?" he asked as Jong Seol put on the armor and moved around a bit to see how it fit. This is the Crimson Wolf armor. Classification C-rank armor. Description. A set of armor made from the hide of a crimson wolf forged with jadeite from Stone Monkey Mountain. Effect increases attack power by 10%. Induces fear in monsters weaker than the wearer. Significantly increases defense and durability. After reading the description, Jong-seon nodded in satisfaction. "Yes, this is far beyond my expectations." After speaking, he marveled to himself. "I can't believe it's a C-rank. But considering it was made with Barris's technique, I guess it makes sense." Across from him, the old craftsman Go Jang-se and his constellation grinned widely upon seeing Jong Seol's satisfaction. The warrior with the golden crown constellation declared that his technique was incorporated into the armor, guaranteeing its performance. Back with Jong Seol with the battle fast approaching, he offered some advice. "Sir, you should take shelter inside the forge." Hearing him say that, Go Jang-se immediately protested, Now. I have to witness my masterpiece shine, you know. Besides, you'll stop them easily enough." "Right," Go Jang-se said, giving the protagonist a thumbs up with a completely confident expression, certain that he would be protected. In response to this confidence, Jong-seon just smiled lightly. "In that case, please stay behind everyone where it's safe." Then another system notification appeared. "The final wave, the 10th wave, has begun. Defeat the final wave, and prove your worth." "They're here!" someone shouted. Just as Jong Seol had said before this final monster attack wave, she was far more numerous, from the red wolves to the red apes that slowly started to appear. Seeing this, the people around him looked relieved. "Huh, these are the same monsters we've fought before. What kind of boss monster is this? But there are a lot of them." Turning to Josea. Seeing the swarm of monsters appear, she stepped forward to command everyone. "These are monsters we've defeated before. Stay calm and form a perimeter around—"
The fence,
she said calmly, before a terrifying howl erupted from the opposite side, drawing everyone's attention. Their faces paled as they saw its massive scarred body. Before their eyes, a terrifyingly large wolf red fang canine had appeared. A notification specifically for this wolf rang out, making everyone certain of what they were thinking. It was the boss monster. "That's not all over there too," Hanaji shouted as just then. A giant wild boar also emerged. It was Red Tusk Bak. Finally, Red Claw Yasak appeared in the form of a fully armored monkey. So in total, there were 3 major bosses in the 10th attack wave. Their current situation was that they were surrounded in the middle by 3 hordes of monsters: red wolves, red boars, and red apes. Looking at the enemy formation and their own predicament, despair began to creep into everyone's eyes. We're doomed. This is impossible. Commander, what do we do now?" everyone said, turning in unison to look at Joseoa for her command. The swordswoman broke out in a cold sweat as she herself had no idea what to do to handle this situation. "That's," she stammered, her whole body trembling uncontrollably. However, before she had a chance to think or ask anything, our protagonist had already gripped his weapon and shot forward like an arrow. Thanks to the martial art, extreme heart-shattering art, the technique's power was enhanced by the third form of the Blood Wolf's internal art. The Blood Wolf sword art advancing strike was now stronger. At this moment, Jong Seol's first target was the wolf leader Kanin, because only by overwhelming and defeating it as quickly as possible could he break their formation and boost everyone's morale, and so, with incredible speed, Jong Seol unleashed a slash onto the wolf leader's body, causing it to shriek in terror. Not only that, but due to the difference in power, the effect of the armor Jong Seol Bas was wearing also activated. Nearby red wolves are terrified by the effect of the red wolf armor. The gray wolf's cloak increases the enemy's fear. Just like that, the pack of wolves hastily retreated. Seeing this, Jongsun turned and yelled to Joseoa and Hancheo, "Joseoa, Kang, Hancheo, snap out of it!" Hearing Jongsun's shout, the two of them were jolted from their fear. Next, Jongsun started to use his magic, thanks to his Black Tower mastery. The power of chain lightning was enhanced. Just then, a terrifying column of lightning shot from Jong Seol's palm, electrocuting the wolf. Cannon convulsed violently, its tongue lolling all the way out. It was a pathetic sight to behold. Even Jong Seol himself found it a bit strange. Has this thing always been this weak? It used to be terrifying, slaughtering people everywhere. It can't be just because I've gotten stronger, Jong Seol thought to himself. Meanwhile, from taking too much damage, the boss had entered an enraged state. Red Fang Kanan has entered a berserk state. The moment the notification ended, the wolf's entire body turned a deep red, as if it could burst into flames at any moment. Then its eyes locked onto Yongsul, the one who pushed it into this state, and it charged forward. Across from it, Yongsul saw it coming. He gripped his sword tightly. Before his regression, this attack nearly wiped out the entire camp in a single blow. But now I know all its skills, and its attack patterns. I'll use its own momentum against it and push it back. With that, Yongsul thrust his sword straight into the wolf's snout, but its fangs clamped down, stopping the blade. Seeing this, Yongsul poured strength into both hands and forcefully yanked the sword from the wolf leader's mouth. Then, seizing the moment while the monster was unable to react, he leaped into the air. Using the force of his descent, he plunged his sword deep into the Kanan's brain, pinning it. It barely let out a scream before it kicked the bucket. You have defeated the named monster Red Fang Kanan. Your personal contribution points have increased by 4,000. For defeating a named monster alone, you are awarded an additional 4,000 points. You have obtained Kanan's Fang. Seeing that the wolf was dead, Jongsul quickly used his gluttony skill to increase his stats. You have devoured Red Fang Kanan. By absorbing its essence, your strength has increased by 5, and your agility has increased by 10. The red wolves' fear has intensified. The remaining red wolves saw that Jongsul had just finished off their leader. They tucked their tails between their legs and slowly backed away, utterly terrified. This earned them Yongsun's silent contempt. With their leader dead, they've fallen into complete disarray, he thought. He turned and said to a man beside him, "Clean up the rest for me, will you?" "Yes, sir," the man replied hastily. Yongsul then quickly ran to support the other areas. With the red wolves in this state, the others could handle them. Now let's see about the other monsters. In another area, that guy Hancheol was using his raw strength to block the boar leader Park. It looked like they were temporarily at a stalemate, going head-to-head with that giant, with pure strength alone. That's Kang Hancheol for you, Jongsul thought to himself. Back in the fight, Park activated its earthquake skill. It slammed its two front legs into the ground, creating a shockwave that rushed toward Hancheol. Seeing this, Hancheol also poured power into his fist and punched the ground. He created a similar tremor to counter the wild boar's attack. He's using an earthquake to nullify an earthquake. He's adapted well to his constellation's power. Agaris Jongsun thought with a nod, then walked over to prompt him. "Do you remember the attack forms of the Ngan Jia Fist?" "I can manage the first form," Hancheol replied. "Good, then follow my lead." As he spoke, Yongsul sheathed his sword, and right after, he accelerated, running past the boar leader, which seemed a bit surprised. But the surprises weren't over. Yongsul began to channel his internal energy into his fist. Thanks to his internal energy, the first form of the Ngan Jia Fist, the Jiangxi Fist, was enhanced. Once charged, Jongsun unleashed the punch straight into the boar's tusk. It shattered the tusk into pieces instantly. On the other side, Hancheol was already in position, ready to follow up. Even his constellation was lending a hand. The constellation Old Man Riding a Crocodile Fish has actively lent its earthquake ability to its contractor. Player Kang Hancheol's Jiangshi fist has been enhanced. The moment the notification faded, Hancheol's eyes rolled back as he slammed his fist straight into the boar leader's face. The impact sent its entire body flying to one side, and that punch officially sent the boar to meet its maker. You have defeated the named monster Red Tusk Park. Over here, Hancheol was still in a daze, unable to believe he could throw such a powerful punch. Huh. So this is what overwhelming power feels like, he muttered. Jongsul nodded in approval. Yeah, once you get used to it, you'll be able to unleash that kind of power without the constellation's help anymore. Hearing this, Hancheol grew quiet, staring thoughtfully at his fist. Paying him no mind, Jongsul turned and used gluttony to raise his stats. You have absorbed Red Tusk Park. By absorbing its essence, your strength has increased by 5, and your stamina has increased by 10. The constellation. The starving prince savors the tender meat with ecstatic pleasure. After finishing, Yongsul turned to Hancheol. Hancheol, you can handle the rest of the boars, right? Of course. Hancheol nodded. Then I'll leave them to you. The trial isn't over yet, Jongsul thought to himself as he hurried off to deal with the final boss. At that moment, Yuseowa was struggling to fend off the monkeys surrounding her from all sides. Everyone, don't be afraid. If you're injured, fall back behind the barrier now, she shouted, directing the others while desperately slashing at the monsters around her. Yuseowa? She's doing better than I thought. It must be her talent combined with the constellation's power, Jongsul thought with a smile just before a familiar voice reached his ears. If you're so good, then come and get me, bet you can't. Hearing that voice, Yongsun also paused for a beat, wondering if that voice could possibly be. As he thought this, he looked over and sure enough the voice belonged to his friend Park Jong-pyo, who was carrying a bunch of bananas while leading a whole pack of monsters on a chase. Can't catch me, so you're mad enough to spit blood, huh, ha, ha. Park Jong-pyo laughed tauntingly, making these apes even more furious. It's just a pity they run too slowly. So there was no way they could catch up. Seeing this spectacle, Tin Tu was rolling on the floor, laughing his head off. Yongsun's mind also felt hazy, as if he was high. Who on earth was that guy? And how was he so useful? He wasn't just running away, he even managed to snatch equipment from those apes. Looks like he's learned a stealing skill. That's the ability of the 6th-ranked Demon King Belfort. Anyway, as long as it benefits us, it's fine. Back at Juseo's position, the ape leader Iasak swung its sword and shattered the barrier the group had erected. Seeing this, Juseoa quickly turned and said to everyone, "The barrier has fallen. Everyone fall back. I'll handle the named monster." At that same moment, Jongsun ran to her side, which surprised her a little. "Jongsun, what are you doing here? What about the other areas?" Hearing her question, Jongsun calmly replied, "They're almost all taken care of. You don't need to worry. Let's just finish this one off." "Okay, thank you." The young woman nodded in reply. Meanwhile, Yasak roared and charged, attacking both of them, unaware that this very action would put itself right in harm's way. Across from it, seeing the ape charge Jongsun, and Juseoa also rushed forward to intercept it. The young woman went first. Juseoa used her pair of dual swords to slash wildly forward, forcing the ape leader to a halt and making it use its shield to block the blows. For a dual sword user, a monster with a shield is a tough opponent. And it's pretty smart, too. It uses its shield very well, Jongsun silently assessed. Silently. He then began watching Juseoa's movements, thinking, her swordsmanship is fundamentally fine, but is the problem her footwork? Her feet can't keep up with her skill. With that thought, he took a step forward and decided to teach Juseoa a little. "Juseoa, from now on, copy my footwork." "Huh. Right now?" she asked, shocked, because their situation really wasn't suited for a lesson. "The fastest way to learn is through real combat," Jongsun replied. Then, he opened his greedy treasury and used a skill called Camille's dual sword style. The dual sword style of the mercenary king Camille was considered one of the 5 legendary techniques. Her footwork in particular was like a leaf in a storm, no one could keep up with it. Right now, from Juseoa's perspective, all she could see was Jongsun dodging left and right continuously. It made him incredibly unpredictable. "What kind of footwork is this?" she couldn't help but exclaim. Meanwhile, Jongsun had already closed in on the ape leader and immediately drew the dagger from his hip. Then, he leaped spinning in midair and unleashed 2 slashes aimed at the ape leader Yasak's shoulder. Behind him, the female swordsman took a deep breath, and she began to move forward, copying Jongsun's footwork. Just like that, the 2 of them, one in front and one behind, executed a pincer attack, hitting the ape so hard all it could do was scream. Even with its shield up, it couldn't block everything.
Seeing Juseoa keeping up with him, Jong-sun nodded in praise. Good, keep it up. Faster. Hearing him say that, Juseoa gritted her teeth and increased her speed. Eventually, the two of them formed a whirlwind of attacks around the ape leader Isak, and within this storm, countless slashes flew in from all four sides, continuously leaving wounds on its body and making the ape shriek as if its house was on fire. Finally, it didn't even have the strength to hold up its shield anymore, which was the exact moment Jong-sun and Juseoa needed to end its life. With a single joint attack, the two of them directly removed the red ape's head. You have defeated the named monster Red Claw Isak. Your personal contribution points have increased by 4,000. You have obtained Yasak's sword. Around them, the remaining apes saw what had happened to their leader. Seeing that he had kicked the bucket, they looked at each other and hastily fled. And this marked the end of the 10th attack wave, with victory belonging to Jong-sun's group. It's finally over, Juseoa said with a sigh, looking at the notification screen in front of her. First trial chapter adaptation, you have successfully passed 10 waves. Congratulations on your completion. The first chapter of the tutorial trial is over. We're finally free from those damn waves. Great job, everyone. The twins were so happy they started to cry. Only Jong-sun, with his knowledge of the future, knew that it was still too early to celebrate. And just as he thought, right after that, another notification screen was sent to everyone. Jong-sun, this is... Juseoa said, stunned. Just as he predicted, the notification arrived. Tutorial trial second chapter movement. You must reach the objective by crossing the plains. Time remaining 167 hours and 59 minutes. Time to get out of here, Jong-sun said calmly in the meantime. This announcement also made everyone feel a bit bewildered about leaving this place. We've only just started to get used to this place. The theme of the first chapter was adaptation, and as intended, everyone adapted and survived. In this wilderness, through sheer determination, leaving an environment you've already adapted to would obviously feel uncomfortable, Jong-sun calmly thought to himself. Seeing the group in a bit of a panic, Juseoa quickly stepped forward. Calm down, everyone. Unlike the others who were panicking, the twins found it a little exciting. Where do you think we'll go? Maybe we'll find a village. If we find a village, the first thing I want to do is take a bath, Handan said with a laugh, while his sister Han Aji stroked her chin and asked, But what if monsters show up on the road? So what if they do? We've managed to handle everything up until now, haven't we, everyone? They shouted in unison, turning to look at the others with sparkling eyes. And at these words, everyone's spirits were lifted. That's right, we even made it through that ordeal. What could possibly be more trouble than that? Thanks to the twins, the group's morale has improved a bit. Jong-sun thought just before the twins turned to look at him and gestured, making him sigh inwardly. So it was them. We've been helped out again. Time passed quickly. The aftermath of the 10th wave was swiftly cleaned up. Everyone had gotten used to life here, and they moved in sync, cooking the meat cut from the monsters they'd hunted. The hides were given to Mr. Go Jang-seol. There was a lot of work to do based on the number of monsters hunted. With everyone's help, everything was getting done quickly. Before the regression, not many people survived. The atmosphere was much worse, so I left the camp without a plan. Thinking this, Jong-sun also noticed the Han twins. Aji and Handan were whispering to each other about something in the distance. Those two. They act brave in front of others, but they don't want to leave the barrier I built, he thought. Jong-sun walked towards them and coughed, getting their attention. Oh, it's Mr. Bloodwolf. Just hearing that nickname, our main character's face darkened. What the hell is a Bloodwolf? Jong-sun screamed internally because a title isn't just a nickname. When a player achieves a certain number of accomplishments, the system recognizes it as part of their legend. That is a true title, as such a title directly affects a player's playstyle. Some people try to create their own legends for a title, but most of them fail. Among them, many ended up with shameful titles they wanted to hide. Let's see. Bloodwolf. Thinking it over, Jong-sun suddenly felt that the title wasn't so bad. Jong-sun stroked his chin, thinking. Meanwhile, seeing him approach, the twins brightened up and asked, Why did you come over here? Do you want to hang out with us? Hearing the question, Jong-sun snapped out of his tangled thoughts about his title and said a little awkwardly, Thanks for what you did just now. Across from him, the siblings were surprised to hear Jong-sun say something like that. They were stunned for a few seconds, but right after that, they glanced at each other with very mischievous eyes. Oh, come on, it was nothing. We're all leaving anyway. Don't worry about it. Just consider it payment for helping us chop wood, okay? Back to Jong-sun, perhaps not wanting to be indebted to others, he forced himself to ask. So is there anything I can help with? Anything? There is something? Is it okay if I say it? Let's go over there. The older sister Han Aji spoke up, having remembered something. Next, the two of them led Jong-sun to a clearing where countless bags that looked like sleeping bags, stitched together from monster hides, had been placed.
However, after looking at them, Jong-sun had a different thought. This is... Wait a minute. Are these for putting bodies inside? Yeah. Behind him, the older sister heard this and just wanted to punch Jong-sun a few times. Bodies. What bodies? They're sleeping bags made from monster hides. Oh, so that's what this is. Is this where the camp members sleep? Because I kept my distance from others, I didn't realize that getting too close would make it harder to reach my goal, Jong-sun thought to himself. Then he turned and asked, "But why are you showing me this?" Han-dan spoke up to explain,
This isn't everything. We need to bring emergency rations equipment and a lot more. I think we could make a cart.
"But there's no way we can push it, so we'll all have to push it together." She's really given this a lot of thought, huh? Jong-sun thought, then said, "So why don't you two make the cart?" "What? How are we supposed to push it?" Han-dan asked. Jong-sun replied confidently, "There's a way." After speaking, he began to think about transportation. He had only two options. The first was to tame a monster, but the problem was that there are no living monsters here. That means the second option is the only one left. As he came to this conclusion, Jong-sun began to open the Treasury of Greed using a skill called Skeleton Arise. It was a necromancer's art from the Black Tower that infused mana into bones and brings the dead back to life. "Arise," Jong-sun muttered the word, and then the skeletons in front of him began to stand up and move as if nothing was out of the ordinary. Of course, this sight drew everyone's attention. "What in the world is that?" they exclaimed in shock. Meanwhile, the skeletal boar walked up to Jong-sun and bowed its head in submission.
Don't worry, it's safe.
He turned and said to the others, but that didn't do much to ease their concerns. "Is it really okay?" someone asked. In the end, their leader Yusoa stepped forward to test it. "Can I touch it?" After speaking, she calmly approached the skeletal boar and gently placed her hand on its skull. Of course, since it was under Jong-sun's control, it didn't make any dangerous moves. "Whoa, it's like a pet. Really, can I touch it too?" they said curiously, crowding around the monster and eagerly touching it all over. "Of course, go ahead," Jong-sun said, thinking to himself, "The skeleton only obeys its master's orders. Its docile movements are because of my instructions." The mood has lightened up a bit. Excellent! Time passed quickly, and the initial shock of Jong-sun summoning the skeletal boar faded away. While resting, Jong-sun himself was a little surprised. This sleeping bag is made much better than I expected. At the same time, the constellation, that eccentric prince, rubbed its bloated stomach and sighed in satisfaction, remarking what a magnificent meal it was. Seeing this, Jong-sun reminded it, "Now that you're full, please take a break for a while." After speaking, he began to think about what was next. Chapter 2 of the tutorial trial, huh? As he thought about it, some unpleasant memories from his past began to surface, souring his mood. The past is just the past. I have to focus on what's in front of me now. If I miss this chance, I'll never be able to go back. With that thought, he began to turn over, trying to calm himself down and get some sleep, when suddenly a black feather landed gently on Jong-sun, catching his attention. The crow constellation lowers its beak and points. The crow constellation points at your sword, urging you with greed. The crow constellation eloquently declares that you should offer it the sword. Huh, and why would I do that? Jong-sun asked this, despite having taken countless treasures from the crow's own treasury. Naturally faced with Jong-sun's attitude, the crow began to make threats. The crow constellation warns that if you refuse, it will revoke your right to use its treasury. Hearing this, Jong-sun simply sneered in contempt and challenged it right back. Go on, just try it. As he said this, he already had his own calculations in mind. When I used Mammon's power, I realized something. I thought he let me use it out of sheer curiosity, but I was mistaken. The power I'm using is separate from your actual treasury, isn't that right? Jong-sun said with a smile while thinking to himself, it's not that you won't stop me from using the treasury, it's that you can't. The power I possess came from Mammon's tomb before my regression. When he retreated, the tomb's physical form disappeared and his intrinsic power became mine. So Mammon's current threats aren't an issue. In response to Jong-sun's words, Mammon began to radiate a dangerous aura. The crow constellation spreads its wings menacingly in response to your arrogance. Seeing it react this way, Jong-sun knew he had to tone down his attitude. Still provoking a being like this is pretty dangerous. After that thought, he softened his tone and explained, I never said I wouldn't give it to you. However, Durandal is the most powerful weapon I currently possess. Therefore, I'll cooperate with the Demon King to create a copy of Durandal. After all, Mammon has the ability to replicate items. Most of the treasures in your treasury are just copies, Jong-sun thought to himself. The crow nodded, agreeing to his proposal.
The Crow constellation nods, thinking that adding another copy to its collection wouldn't be so bad. Back with Jong Sun, he also stated his price. In exchange, please allow me to use the real treasury. Hearing this, Mamon began to ponder. It seems he was a little annoyed by Jong Sun's words. With my current abilities, I can only borrow the treasury's power. I can't use the true artifacts. Jong Sun thought to himself, while that black crow began staring at him with a threatening gaze. The constellation. Ravenous Crow looked around annoyed as if he were at a disadvantage here. Jong Sun had to quickly speak up and explain, I don't want an unfair trade. The things I need are the low-grade artifacts at the entrance to the vault. Upon hearing these words, the black crow calmed down a bit. He recalled the artifacts and thought, in my past life I entered Mamon's treasury, so I vaguely remember the layout. Mamon keeps all the rare items in the deepest part, which means only low-grade artifacts are near the entrance. If the condition is to receive the legendary weapon Durandal, then for Mamon, this isn't a bad deal? Jong Sun made his judgment, and just as he thought, after a moment of contemplation, Mamon nodded, accepting the offer. Seeing this, Jong Sun smiled and said, the pact is complete. As he spoke, he casually grabbed the sword and cut across his right palm to begin establishing the pact. Blood flows from the feathers of the Ravenous Crow. The pact with the Ravenous Crow is complete. Through this pact, you have gained access to a part of Mamon's treasury. Just as the notification ended, the blood from Jong Sun's hand began to cover the entire sword and send it over to Mamon. Not bad, I'll get what I need soon enough, Jong Sun thought to himself as he began to open the true treasury of greed. The scene shifts to inside the treasury. It's unclear if it's his consciousness or his entire body that has been transported inside. But just as predicted, the outer area mostly contains various materials and some kind of potions. And this didn't come as a huge surprise to our protagonist. As expected, it's hard to find equipment. Most of the items near the entrance are consumables, he thought. A certain potion caught his eye. Oh, what's this? Jong Sun mumbled quickly, touching the potion bottle to observe it. It was Elf Forest Dew, category potion. Description: dew gathered from the leaves of the World Tree, carrying the World Tree's energy. Seeing this, our hero didn't hesitate, immediately tipping the bottle into his mouth and chugging it down. After finishing it, he let out a refreshing sigh. This will be useful. In the background, Mamon, seeing Jong Sun acting so freely, angrily questioned him. The constellation Ravenous Crow has opened the treasury as per the pact, but be warned, if you use the artifacts without permission, he will not spare you. I know. Jong Sun complained, then thought, even though he agreed to the trade for Durandal, he still seems pretty worried. I'll only use it when necessary, don't worry, Jong Sun said reassuringly. Time flew by until the next morning. Everyone had started piling the things they needed onto ox carts they had seemingly built out of nowhere. Let's carry this over. How is everyone so fast? My cart is super sturdy. Just bring it here, Han Dayun said with a laugh. Seeing this, her older sister ran over to argue, mine is sturdier. All right, they're both very sturdy. You two don't need to fight over it. Yusola stepped in to mediate. At that moment, Jong Sun, who had been who knows where, finally ran up. Can I help with anything? As he said this, he noticed some guy eyeing his cart. What the? I don't remember who this is at all. Does that mean he probably died before the point? And I regressed in my past life. Jong Sun frowned, thinking. The four-eyed guy then noticed Jong Sun right behind him and said, startled, oh, sorry about that, I was lost in thought. Is something wrong? Jong Sun asked. The guy with glasses adjusted his frames and replied, no, it's just very interesting. Even in a world of magic, how can a person stand upright without ligaments, tendons, or muscles? Could it be that the network of black smoke between the joints is what connects the bones? Hearing him say that, a look of surprise appeared in Jong Sun's eyes. Black smoke? Can he see mana? It seems he's very knowledgeable about these things. Maybe he has an aptitude for dark magic, Jong Sun thought. Meanwhile, the four-eyed guy realized he might have gotten a little too excited, so he quickly turned to explain, oh, my apologies. It's an occupational hazard. An occupational hazard? Are you a doctor? Jong Sun asked. Not exactly. I'm a graduate student majoring in anatomical research. Oh, I forgot my name is Baekhyun, ha. It's a shame it's not very relevant to this world. So it's not much help for healing or restoring strength, he said, scratching his head. However, with his experience, Jong Sun had a completely different take. I wonder what it'll be like when this guy learns how to use mana and applies his knowledge of anatomy. He might even surpass Yusola and Hancho. Thinking that, Jong Sun gave a slight smile and asked Baekhyun to sit for a moment. Ah, yes, but I need to help everyone else, Baekhyun quickly replied. It'll just be a moment. Jong Sun continued to explain. He took out the dagger at his hip, used it to draw a circle on the ground, and told Baek-hyun to sit inside it. An unknown magic circle immediately appeared at his feet. Next, he opened the Treasury of Greed and took out an item called a dark magic stone. It was a dark stone that acted as a catalyst for the magic of sorcerers from the Black Tower. Finally, Jong-sun threw the stone right into the magic circle, causing it to erupt with streams of purple magical energy. Turning back to Baek-hyun, he too saw this surge of energy. He then asked, "Is this smoke coming from the skeleton?" Without answering the question, Jong-sun just calmly walked behind him, held the four-eyed young man's two shoulders firmly, and warned, "This will hurt a little, so try to grit your teeth and bear it okay." "Ah, okay," Baek-hyun replied. Jong-sun closed his two eyes and began to help Baek-hyun awaken the sorcery powers of the Black Tower, not just teaching how to use a magic circle, but also how to use one on others. Just then, Jong-sun began to use his special method to channel magical energy into Baek-hyun's body, causing him so much pain that the whites of his two eyes rolled back. "From now on, you'd better keep your mouth shut. Otherwise, your heart will explode." Jong-sun warned urgently, and Baek-hyun understood. So he quickly clenched his jaw shut, just like that. Jong-sun calmly used his method, and while doing so, he could also see Baek-hyun's potential. This quick reaction proved he definitely had talent. As for Baek-hyun, streams of magical energy were now converging in his heart to form a circle. It felt like his heart was being squeezed. Anyone with a weak will at this moment would have likely passed out, he thought to himself, and then, "Finally, the circle in your heart has been formed. You did well," Jong-sun praised. "Better than I expected. You absorbed the mana from the high-grade dark magic stone so quickly. You've worked hard." Jong-sun nodded and began to control the boar skeleton, moving it in front of Baek-hyun so the four-eyed young man could test his power. Understanding Jong-sun's intention, Baek-hyun reached out his hand, channeling dark magic into the skeleton and altering its entire structure. He's reconstructing the skeleton, anatomically connecting the joints with mana and creating muscles. This method is slower than mine, but it's much more solid and sturdy. Maybe that's why the Black Tower sorcerers study corpses, Jong-sun thought to himself. As for Baek-hyun, after a few more changes, he had completed the adjustments. "Stand up," he said, and the boar now, aside from looking a little smaller, seemed no different at all. However, just being able to do this was enough to make the four-eyed young man flush with excitement. At the same time, a constellation also took some interest in him. The constellation, Corpse of Destruction, is looking at player Baek-hyun with great interest. The fourth-rank Demon King Kamigan, the great Marquis of Hell, master of necromancy and spirit magic. The camp's first sorcerer. No, it would be more correct to say the birth of its first necromancer. "If Kamigan is here, I don't need to help anymore. I'm glad there will be someone to make skeletons if I leave the camp," Jong-sun thought, while the four-eyed young man over here, after his excitement died down, awkwardly turned to say thank you. "Actually, I was worried I wouldn't be able to help the camp at all." Across from him, seeing his expression, Jong-sun offered a few words of encouragement. "Be more confident. If you've attracted Kamigan's attention, your potential is top tier." Hearing these words, Baek-hyun's eyes brightened a little, and he turned to stroke the skeleton beside him. "Here I've found a talent that I could never have on Earth. I will work hard to train this power." Hearing this, Jong-sun's gaze grew a bit pensive, then he said, "In that case, I'll give you a mission." After speaking, he took out something from the Treasury of Greed. A winged lion's corpse. This is the corpse of a manticore, a monster that looks like a... On its head, it has a lion's mane and the tusks of a wild boar, the horns of a bull, the wings of a bat, and the tail of a scorpion. Seeing the strange monster's body, which had suddenly appeared before him, the four-eyed young man couldn't help but jump back in surprise. What is that thing?" Time passed quickly. At this moment, everyone had finished packing their things and began to move. Chapter 2. Movement Guide. Move across the plains and reach the destination. Time remaining to reach the destination is 151 hours and 41 minutes. Right now, Jong-sun was sitting comfortably on a cargo cart pulled by a skeleton like a big boss, while the group's leader, Juseo-ah, didn't forget to remind everyone. "We don't know when the monsters will appear, so everyone take turns watching all directions." "Yes, sir," they shouted in unison. As for the older sister Han, Ari, one of the twins, took this chance to gloat to her younger sister. "See, my carriage is faster, isn't it?" "What are you talking about? There's no damn difference," Han Da-un said, annoyed. Up above, Jong-sun overheard their conversation and nodded to himself. Both carriages were good, and both twins were developing well. Meanwhile, Baek-hyun was learning necromancy under the guidance of Kamigan, the constellation of the horse that tramples death. who was amazed by his contractor's vast knowledge and was teaching him the basics of dark magic. I hope everything continues to go as smoothly as this. There's going to be a monster ambush on these plains. The problem is, I can't remember exactly where it's going to appear at this time. Jong-sun frowned in thought. To ensure the trip's safety, he summoned his underling. Park Jong-pyo. Yes, boss, Park Jong-pyo reporting for duty. Go scout the surrounding area, Jong-sun instructed, but this made the blond young man a bit confused. Scout where? Up ahead, Jong-sun said calmly. Huh, but aren't we already keeping watch up front? He asked, puzzled. Jong-sun specified further. Not right around here. I mean a few kilometers ahead. Hearing this request, Park Jong-pyo nearly fell over backward. What, boss? Even if my legs are fast, there's no way I can do that. A few kilometers? That would take me a whole hour to run. That's true. It's too far to go on just 2 feet. Jong-sun narrowed his eyes, thinking. Then, he reached into the sacks on his back, pulled out a few bones, and began using dark magic to summon a skeletal steed. Whoa, what's this? Is that for me? Park Jong-pyo said cheerfully. Yeah, it depends on how you use it, Jong-sun replied. Thank you, boss. I'll name it Beck Gang in your honor. All right, boss, I'm off. Let's go Beck Gang. With that, he immediately hopped on and drove his new ride speeding straight ahead. This reckless driving posture of his made Jong-sun, who was watching from behind, question his very existence. How could a guy like that awaken his skills to become a hunter? Back to Park Jong-pyo. As he rode the skeletal beast, he began to recall memories of the past. Riding this reminds me of the days before I came here, showing off my imported car as I drove around the city. This feels just like that. Following the boss was the best decision ever. As he thought this, he unconsciously broke into a smile at his choice to ride on his boss's coattails, which made the constellation the donkey-headed thief try to suppress its laughter at the sight. Stop bringing up embarrassing stuff. You're making fun of me, aren't you? Park Jong-pyo shouted in frustration right before something zipped past his face, startling him. Then before he could even react, he realized there was a rain of throwing darts flying right at him. Seeing this, despite a flicker of fear, he quickly pulled out his wolf fur cloak to shield his body and yelled, "What the hell? Who are these guys?" Just then, Park Jong-pyo's eyes fell upon the source of the darts, a horde of bright green goblins, and there were a ton of them. Left with no other choice, as if by habit, Park Jong-pyo started wailing as he hit the gas and immediately spun around, and player Park Jong-pyo has used Sprint. The constellation, the donkey-headed thief, burst into loud laughter. It clutched its stomach, rolling on the ground. Behind him, the greenskins saw Park Jong-pyo flee and let out a few threatening cries before immediately giving chase. If I can just get to the boss, he'll handle these guys, Park Jong-pyo thought, gritting his teeth. In no time, he saw the group up ahead. I see him, boss. At that moment, from his perspective, it looked like Jong-sun was muttering something. Huh. What are you saying? Get down. As that thought crossed his mind, a giant fireball appeared in Jong-sun's hands, making Park Jong-pyo's eyes go wide. Duck my head. Does that actually work? Ignoring his subordinate's terror, the fireball was aimed perfectly at the center of the goblin horde, blowing them to bits. Nothing is more satisfying than annihilating an entire horde of monsters, Jong-sun said, dusting off his hands. But it wasn't over. As if she had noticed something, the leader Ju So-ah hurriedly gave a command. Everyone take cover behind the carriages. An attack is coming. Hearing the command, everyone glanced upward and discovered a rain of throwing darts heading their way. Over here. The twin sisters had already scrambled for cover behind a carriage. Seeing this, Jong-sun called out, Ju So-ah Hancho with me? After saying that, he opened the greedy treasury to learn a skill called Wide Area Shield, a shield magically adjusted to defend against wide area attacks from the colorless magic tower. After learning it, he waved his hand, creating layers of barriers, enveloping the three of them and deflecting all of the incoming darts to the sides. According to the principles of the Black Tower, the power of chain lightning has been enhanced. Player Kang Han-cheol uses Battle Cry. Player Ju So-ah uses Tarantula's First Leg. And just like that, the three of them used their ultimate skills and broke through the entire formation of the greenskins in a single assault, leaving the people in the back completely stunned. Whoa! This isn't the time to be amazed. Hurry up and help them. We can't just leave all the work to them. The group looked at each other, spoke, and then they all gripped their weapons, ready to give these greenskins a beating. Over on the side, the four-eyed guy Baek-hyun also commanded the wild boar skeleton to charge forward. It rammed the entire mob of goblins, sending them flying to both sides. Baek-hyun, if it's this tense already, I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens when the manticore shows up. Time passed quickly, and faced with everyone's overwhelming attack, the greenskins scattered like headless chickens, and they had succeeded. They had thwarted the goblin ambush. Afterwards, the female leader, Ducelle A, gathered everyone for a quick discussion. Great job, everyone. Let's quickly chase down their remnants. That would be dangerous. Let's regroup first. The fact that they ran means they have a den. It's another unknown, isn't it? Jongsun thought for a moment, then turned and said to Ducelle A, once everyone's gathered, just go on without me. Huh, where are you planning to go? She asked, puzzled, and Jongsun stated his purpose. I'm chasing the goblins. As he said this, he noticed Park Jong-poo struggling off to one side and decided to toss him a recovery potion. Park Jong-poo, you've had it rough. Boss, you're the only one I can rely on, Park Jong-poo said happily. At the very least, take this low-grade potion and get some rest, Jong-sun thought to himself. Then, using his skills, he silently followed the greenskins back to their base. So the goblin's lair is deep in the forest, huh? Based on the number that just attacked their base, probably has at least 1,000 goblins, maybe even double that. How am I supposed to attack this place? Should I just burn down the whole forest? Jong-sun quietly formed a plan in his mind. Time passed quickly. The scene changes to the greenskins' encampment where a goblin gatekeeper was in the middle of a big yawn. Yawning as he went on patrol, he suddenly spotted another goblin lying and groaning in a pool of blood, which gave him a shock. However, before he could even turn back, to warn the others, Jong-sun appeared behind him like a ghost. Don't worry, you'll be joining them soon enough. The moment the words left his mouth, he drove his sword into its heart, finishing the monster off. The technique that allowed him to silently approach from behind was none other than Hukira's stealth. It was the same stealth art once used by the legendary assassin, Hukira, who spread fear among the continent's nobility. At the same time, countless terrifying screams echoed all around, forcing Jong-sun to quickly duck behind a tree to hide. Then, a horde of goblins zipped past in front of him. He didn't know where they were running off to, but this made Jong-sun inwardly rejoice. All right, time to make my move. While the others are busy, next. Seizing the opportunity while the greenskins were gone, he moved deeper inside and discovered the hidden dungeon Cunning Goblin Village. You have achieved an outstanding accomplishment. You have received 2,000 bonus points. Casually touching the structure in front of him, Jong-sun thought to himself, the goblins definitely built this place to be sturdy. The most luxurious room is probably the chieftain's. There's also a warehouse in the back. They must be in a panic. All the surrounding goblins are dead. Spare me! Someone's terrified voice rang out, catching Jong-sun's attention. He turned to look and discovered numerous people being held inside a wooden cage. They probably started the tutorial trial around here. I feel bad for them, but saving them is no different from suicide. One wrong move and we'll all die. Jong-sun shook his head at the thought and quickly left the area, and proceeded to scout other areas. Then, after arriving at the warehouse area, our hero stealthily used his skill and instantly finished off the goblin guarding the place, and used the power of gluttony to dispose of its corpse. You have eaten a goblin warrior. The constellation. That other prince mumbled that both the taste and the quantity were still lacking. Just wait a little longer. Now to erase the traces. Perfect, Jong-sun replied, and carefully entered the warehouse. There he immediately discovered that it contained countless types of weapons, from spears and armor to shields. It lacked nothing. Whoa, there's quite a lot of weaponry here, Jong-sun said with a smile, while that starving demon was extremely disappointed at not finding any food. Ignoring its complaints, Jong-sun quickly opened the greedy treasure. He took out a spatial bag. It was a bag created at the colorless magic tower, capable of holding an entire small warehouse. And needless to say, right after that, Jong-sun quickly tossed all of the weapons into his spatial bag. It's not easy to get weapons of this caliber during the tutorial trial. It's almost like a low-grade version of Mamon's treasury. It's even bigger than I thought, Jong-sun mused. However, this thought was overheard by Mamon, who became slightly annoyed. The constellation. The king who wears a filthy overcoat frowns, feeling insulted by the comparison to this tiny treasury. All right, a super low-grade version happy now, Jong-sun said with a sigh, placating the crow. Then, he scanned his surroundings one more time and I found a whole wooden chest filled with countless 7-colored orbs. What are these? Are they mana stones? Perfect. I've figured out a way to deal with that goblin horde. Jong-sun smiled to himself as he looked at the stone in his hand. Meanwhile, in the goblin chief's chamber, he slammed his spiked club hard on the floor to threaten the 2 underlings before him. You still haven't found the intruder. This is the goblin chief Hogong Cat. You useless animals. As he spoke, he casually swung his club right into the face of the green skin in front of him and turned to order the rest. Get out! Go find him for me right now, I'm getting hungry. Bring me the youngest one you can find. Hearing this, the goblins, as if pardoned, scurried outside before this Hogong Cat fellow could get any angrier.
Those idiots.
Their levels are truly unacceptable, Hogong Cat grumbled. From behind him, Jong-sun nodded in agreement. It's true, isn't it? Just like I said. The goblin chief was startled by the voice replying to him and quickly spun around, but the moment he turned, Jong-sun slashed his dagger across its neck, causing blood to spurt out instantly.
Who are you?
Hogong Cat said in panic, but Jong-sun had no intention of wasting words on this guy. To avoid the goblin warriors returning to gang up on him, he said, I don't have time to explain things to you.
There were no signs. How did you get in here?
Hogong Cat asked again. Meanwhile, Jong-sun was a bit surprised that this monster was still alive after taking a hit to the neck. You're a named monster, huh? Your reflexes are pretty sharp. Jong-sun praised him, but the goblin chief was already scared out of his mind. This human is too dangerous. He didn't even hesitate to slit my throat. The more he thought, the more he sweated bullets. He had no other choice. He had to turn and call for help from his kin. Guards, damn it, get in here! He faced the outside and yelled, but Jong-sun just shook his head, giving him some bad news. It's useless. It's too late. As he said that, he snapped his fingers, and right after that, the entire goblin encampment erupted in countless earth-shattering explosions. Hearing the sound, the chief Hogong Cat hurriedly looked out the window to see. My village, he said, stunned, looking at the sea of flames before him. The cause of the explosion was the mana stones. They are ores that contain mana inside. There are many ways to use them, but one of the most powerful is to enchant them with explosion magic, turning them into bombs and detonating all the mana hidden within. Even the weakest mana stones can blow up a house. I placed them all around the village, Jong-sun explained with a smile. This statement drove the chief mad, making him completely disregard Jong-sun's strength.
You! How dare you!
He roared, gripping his club and leaping straight at Jong-sun, ready for a fight to the death. Seeing this, Jong-sun simply took a light step to the side and easily dodged the attack. Then he simply plunged the dagger in his hand straight into the chief's neck, easily sending him to meet his maker. You have defeated the named monster, Cunning Goblin Hogong Cat. Personal contribution points have increased by 8,000 because you defeated a named monster alone. Your personal contribution points will increase by an additional 4,000. You have obtained Hogong Cat's spiked club. Jong-sun was a bit surprised that it only took him 2 moves to take out the chief. He's more fragile than I thought. According to the rules, I was supposed to defeat thousands of goblins starting from the dungeon's main gate. So maybe named monsters are a bit weak, he thought to himself, as the system displayed other notifications. You have completely conquered the hidden dungeon Cunning Goblin's Lair. A remarkable achievement has been attained. As a reward, your personal contribution points have increased by 20,000. The constellation. The starving prince is looking at you with sparkling eyes. Back to Jong-sun, seeing that hungry demon start to drool, he knew it was time to feed him. Yes, I apologize for making you wait. As he spoke, he began to use the gluttony authority. You have devoured the Cunning Goblin Hogong Cat. Absorbed nutrients, increasing agility by 5 points and intelligence by 10 points. A small amount of energy and mana has been absorbed into your dantian and heart. Seeing this notification, Jong-sun himself was a bit surprised. Huh, with gluttony's absorption I can absorb mana too. The constellation, the starving prince, eyes a large cooked dish and still craves more. A large cooked dish. Does he mean this entire village? Jong-sun thought to himself, there are over 1,000 of them. If I use gluttony's power on every single one, this will never end. On the other side, perhaps even Belphegor felt that what Jong-sun said was extremely reasonable. So to make eating more convenient, it granted him more power. The constellation. Starving Prince increases the power of gluttony by 1 level. The power of gluttony now allows you to consume multiple corpses at once. If you consume a certain number of corpses at the same time, additional nutrient absorption will occur. 4. Additional nutrient absorption. This timing is perfect, Jong-sun thought, and immediately activated his new power. Now that it's been enhanced, all right, celebrate to your heart's content. With the power of gluttony, you have devoured the entire Cunning Goblin village. The teeth of gluttony are descending upon the village. Right now. Suddenly, a giant mouth appeared in the sky above the village, chomping straight down, making even Jong-sun's eyes widen in shock. I forgot. I usually treat him like a starving child throwing a tantrum, but a demon is still a demon. You have eaten 2,101 goblins in the area. Absorbing a large amount of nutrients will increase all stats by 11. A large amount of energy and mana is being absorbed from within. You have successfully created the 3rd mana circle. This was achieved through the Black Tower's training method. With the creation of a new circle, you can now use third-level magic. The Black Tower's training method has increased your magical power. Hearing the announcement, Jong-sun couldn't hide the joy on his face. The second chapter of the tutorial, and I'm already at the third circle. You have set a new record for the tower, an unbelievably impressive achievement. As a reward, you receive 100,000 points. Many magic-related constellations are now interested in you. The constellation, the Cursing Crow, severs the connection from lower-level constellations. The constellation. The fifth day looks at you with a beautiful smile. At this moment, an incredibly beautiful goddess appeared before Jong-sun, making his eyes glaze over. The fifth day. The goddess of love and beauty. Freya, I've received the attention of a highest-level constellation. Normally, a constellation of this level only appears at the end of the tutorial chapters and only for a few highly skilled players. But I already have 2 demons by my side. I hope I don't offend the goddess Freya. At the same time, Mammon also turned to look at Freya with irritation, but it seemed she didn't care much. The constellation. The Cursing Crow warns that it will not tolerate anyone who is interested in its position. The constellation, the fifth day, with a mysterious smile, ignores the interference of other constellations. The feathers of the constellation, the Cursing Crow, are trembling with anger. Back to Jong-sun, seeing that they didn't immediately start fighting, he felt a sense of relief. It seems she doesn't mind, although one side seems to be annoyed. Well, it probably won't be a problem. To prevent the upcoming Great Demon God War, I need to befriend the gods. Time passed quickly. The group of people held captive by the goblins had already been rescued by Jong-sun. There you are. How did you do this? Thank you so much, I thought I was going to die. I'll never forget this help, the group said, crying. Meanwhile, Jong-sun was facing a bit of a dilemma. Should I take them with me? Even though I saved them by chance, I don't feel responsible for taking them along. From within the crowd, an older man seemed to notice the hesitation on Jong-sun's face, so he stepped forward and said, I know what you're thinking. We have no plans to hold you back, our benefactor. We will continue on to our destination. So this guy is the leader. He seems like a reliable leader, and I can see the confidence in their eyes. They must be survivors from the first chapter of the tutorial, Jong-sun thought to himself and spoke up. I have no plans to protect you all, although if you decide to follow me, then you must be more determined than ever. Over here, when the leader heard what Jong-sun said, his face lit up with joy. I'm truly grateful. Let's move quickly. We need to walk non-stop for half a day. Jong-sun waved his hand and said, Back to Juseo-a's group. At this moment, Han Cheol was pulling the cart in place of the skeleton. Are you okay? If you're tired, you can rest. Or we can all pull it together, Juseo suggested. However, the stubborn young man Han Cheol still wanted to do the heavy lifting. No need. This is training, so it's fine. At the same time, the constellation Old Man Riding a Crocodile was also teaching his partner more powerful steps. Back to Juseo-a, she suddenly turned and asked, Do you think Jong-sun is okay? In response to this question, Han Cheol's gaze remained fixed forward. He's not weak. He's going to get much stronger. Even stronger than that. It's hard to imagine, she said in astonishment, before her attention was drawn by the sound of hurried footsteps from Park Jong-poo's cart approaching from the front. Park Jong-poo. Why is he in such a hurry? On the other side, Park Jong-poo had just gotten out of the cart and was retching violently. Park Jong-poo, someone said with concern. However, Lee Hanu stepped forward to stop them. Wait, let me take a look. After saying that, she used her healing ability to recover Park Jong-poo, and right after that, the color drained from her face. It's poison? Hearing her words, Juseo-a was also startled. What poison? Could it be goblins again? No, I don't see any external wounds. It was likely inhaled. As she said this, a strange scent suddenly wafted into Lee Hanu's nose. Wait, this smell. Everyone wet a cloth and cover your mouths. There's poison in the air, Lee Hanu shouted urgently. Unfortunately, the warning was a little too late because right after that, everyone clutched their throats and started foaming at the mouth from the poison. With no other choice, Lee Hanu had to turn and plead for help from her patron Constellation. Sir Max, O Constellation, the blood-soaked lion declares that it's time to make a decision as there are too many patients. Seeing this, Lee Hanu was also in deep shock. I thought I had become a true healer, but now I have to choose who lives if only he were here. Lee Han-yu covered his mouth, thinking. At the most critical moment, just when the group was about to be wiped out, a cool breeze suddenly washed over them, making them feel as good as new. This is Cool Breeze, one of the basic wind spells from the Blue Tower. It creates a gentle wind more often used for daily life than for combat. A refreshing cool breeze. The murky mist is finally clearing up, Honda Un said in amazement. The one who had just used this spell was none other than our protagonist, Jong-sun, who had just rushed back. I can't believe it spread this far. Boss, you're back. Bak Jong-pyo struggled to lift his head to greet him even as he foamed uncontrollably at the mouth. With no other choice, Jong-sun had to pull out a healing skill from his treasury to save his subordinate. A basic detoxification spell from the White Tower neutralizes the poison. The poison has already entered his body. Detoxification is Mars's specialty, but it'll be faster if I lend a hand.
Thank you.
Park Jong-pil sobbed, tears streaming down his face. Jong-sun, you're back, Juseoa said cheerfully. Yeah, thanks to Han Cheol's tracks, I arrived earlier than expected. It's just part of my training, Han Cheol said nonchalantly. Back to Juseoa now. She noticed the group of people with Jong-sun and asked, more importantly, Jong-sun, who are these people? In response to her words, the leader of the group bowed his head in greeting. My name is Yi-sung. Thanks to Mr. Jong-sun, we survived. If it's all right, I'd like to follow Jong-sun and join your group. Of course. We'll do our best to welcome you. As she spoke, the swordswoman smiled brightly and extended her hand in greeting. Her friendly gesture truly took Yi-sung by surprise. Really, you're really accepting us. You've only just met us. In response, Juseoa said confidently, of course. If Jong-sun accepts you, then you are welcome. Han down, Han Aji, can you two bring these people some clothes? Is that all right? From behind, the twins heard this and hurried over. Yes, ma'am, everyone this way. We still have some spare clothes. And just like that, they began to lead the new group to get clothes. Meanwhile, Juseoa turned to Jong-sun and said, I'm honestly surprised. You actually brought people back here, Jong-sun. If they've survived until now, their will must be incredibly strong. Jong-sun replied, that will is the most important factor. Juseoa nodded in agreement. Then they received a system notification. You have successfully passed the trial of the poisonous mist. All participants in the trial will receive 1,000 points. Time passed quickly, and the group under Jong-sun's guidance began to clear the next trials. You have passed the trial of the feeble legs. Success. You have successfully passed the trial of the acid swamp. You have successfully hunted the pack of red bears. All participants in the trial will receive 2,000 points. But before my regression, I had to risk my life to pass each trial. But now no one has to die. Thanks to that, I can also deal with the hidden dungeons when I get the chance. Thanks to the journey milestone, I know the locations of the dungeons. Before I regressed, even if I discovered a dungeon, I couldn't conquer it. But now I can easily clear dungeons of this level by myself. With the power of gluttony, I target the entire insect camp. The fangs of gluttony are attacking the village. The starving prince constellation is enjoying the taste of the insect fluid. It says the explosive texture is amazing. Over here, Jong-sun felt a bit creeped out watching it chew so ravenously with such a satisfied expression. Pushing that aside, after clearing the dungeon, Jong-sun quickly left the area. At this rate, I'll reach the fourth circle faster than expected, he thought to himself before being snapped out of it by Park Jong-pil's voice. Bro, you're here. How did you find me? Jong-sun asked, curious. I was scouting and saw your tracks, so I followed them, Park Jong-pil replied. And with an ability like this, even if he didn't want to, Jong-sun had to admit it. He didn't want to, but the guy really did have a talent for scouting. Back to Park Jong-pil, who was unaware of what Jong-sun was thinking. So he spoke up and asked, are you planning on stopping here for a while? No, it's time to go back. I've found everything I need, Jong-sun said, shaking his head. At the same time, the ranking leaderboard appeared before them both, and Jong-sun was still in first place, with 250,080 points. Looking at this number, his buddy Park Jong-pil took the opportunity to flatter him. Whoa, you're amazing, man. Every time I see your achievements, my jaw just drops. Ignoring his flattery, Jong-sun fell into deep thought. By diligently searching for hidden fragments, placing first isn't actually that strange. But there are special players in the tower. Some are completely different from the start. They receive the power of a constellation, a powerful one right from the beginning. Finishing his thought, Jong-sun turned and said, let's go. Yes, ride the white wolf with me. I've gotten much better at riding it. So the speed is incredible. Once again, time passed quickly. The group had just passed the trial of the screaming forest. It's finally over. What the hell was that thing screaming the whole time? I thought my eardrums were going to burst. The complaining group of people spoke, turning towards Juseo. After completing the challenge, she also turned to direct everyone. Great job. Let's rest and reorganize our formation. Yi-sung, you did great, too. Ah, no, it's because everyone was considerate of each other, he replied.
Meanwhile, Jong-soon was still leaning coolly against a tree, observing the whole situation. Everyone's faces were brighter than before, probably because their skills and confidence had improved. Over here, probably because they were too bored, Yuseoa and Hancheol also went to Jong-soon to pick a fight. I want to have a match. Oh, me too. I'll join right after I'm done handing out the food. Seeing that they wanted to get beaten up like that, Jong-soon could only smile. These two are the same. Their potential is so great that teaching them has become interesting. But we'll have to postpone it for today. Jong-soon spoke up, refusing, which made the big guy a little surprised. Why's that? Because I think we're about to reach the destination. Guide. Chapter 2. Movement. You have successfully reached the destination. Congratulations on excellently completing Chapter 2 of the guide. All participants in this round will be awarded 4,000 points. Because you significantly shortened the time to reach the destination, all participants will be awarded an additional 4,000 points. The sudden announcement startled the group. Oh, have we arrived already? We're done. We finally made it, they said with relief. Meanwhile, Jong-soon, after hearing the announcement, was a bit pensive. It seems there's no system announcement about rankings. I guess I didn't get first place. Some team must have gone straight to the destination without collecting items like we did. It's a bit of a shame, but the points we earned from the hidden fragment are much more valuable. I should be satisfied with this result, he thought to himself. Meanwhile, the system continued to issue a few more reminders. Because the arrival time was shortened, there will be additional benefits for the remaining time. During the remaining time, you can fortify your position by hunting monsters. During this time, you will receive 1.5 times the bonus points. Guide, collision field. Remaining time 113:17. Speaking of the Dr. Lee Hanu, when she heard this announcement, a worried look appeared in her eyes. Collision? Fortify position? What does this mean? Juseo, what should we do now? Yisung turned and asked. Hearing them, the female leader's eyes also showed a pensive look, not yet knowing the meaning of the Chapter 3 challenge. But right after that, suddenly countless screams of different animals echoed all around, from owlmen to dwarves, and even werewolves. What the hell? Are we surrounded? Their friend Park Jong-pil shouted through his tears. And faced with this dangerous situation, Jong-soon immediately stepped forward using his Ice Wave magic. It's an ice-type attack spell from the Blue Tower that creates a wave of cold, sharp ice to attack enemies. The power of the Ice Wave is enhanced by the principles of the Black Tower. At this moment, Jong-soon was seen just waving his hand, creating countless sharp ice pillars hovering in the air. Then he launched all of these ice pillars, sending them surging forward, turning the horde of monsters that were charging recklessly into beehives. Then their bodies turned into ice sculptures and shattered directly before everyone's eyes. The constellation, Starving Prince, expresses his eagerness for a refreshing meal, saying this is a freshly made new recipe. After doing this, Jong-soon turned back and calmly said to everyone, "For the remaining time, let's go as deep as we can." And so, following his words, the group began to move deeper inside. And during this process, no small number of monsters fell at Jong-soon's hands. As expected, Jong-soon is terrifyingly strong, the female leader, Juseo admired inwardly. Not far away as usual, Park Jong-pil was currently riding his vehicle to lure monsters. "Hyung, I've gathered the monsters. The best way to hunt monsters is to gather them up," he said with a grin, having successfully led a crowd of goblins to run behind him. And all that Jong-soon needed to do was point his hand forward and unleash his magic in one go to send them to their graves. Is it almost done? At this rate, we can go quite deep inside. Guide. Chapter 3. Collision. The content is survival. Only half of the players who reach the destination can pass Chapter 3. In other words, fights between groups are unavoidable. Especially near the entrance to the destination, it will turn into a battlefield with many groups converging. That's why we should try to secure a position near the entrance first, he thought with a frown. The scene changes to the sky. At this moment, above the forest, an eagle of some kind was circling, causing the starving demon to drool again upon seeing a new dish. But this wasn't an ordinary eagle. It seemed to be controlled by someone. "Haha, is that them?" someone spoke up. "Yes, they are worthy of the gods' attention." The constellation Yangjin's strange rebellion showed its approval and revealed its intense fury. The goat-headed one angrily made a demand, and the beggar's sect chief under him, although the reason was unclear. However, this guy quickly followed my orders. "I'm not sure why you hate them so much, but if a god like me wants something, it's bound to be a chilling game." As he spoke, he raised the flute to his lips and blew a soft note. Immediately after,
Countless monsters gathered around him waiting for his command. Back with Jong-sun's group after 2 days of fighting monsters, we've made it about halfway. It's not just Joseo A. Everyone else's skills have improved significantly. More importantly, it's almost time. As he thought this, he opened the Treasure of Greed and fused it with the Ears of Jobo ability, a monster that lives in mines with heightened hearing and sense of smell. It's said their highly developed senses allow them to find ore just by pressing their ears to the walls. Just as he finished doing this, our main character heard the terrified scream of his friend, Park Jung-bil. "Bro, bro!" he wailed as a whole horde of monsters chased him from behind. Wolves and owl-like creatures were hot on his heels. Seeing this, Jong-sun was startled. "What's going on?"
So many monsters, and none of them are ordinary. That's the sound of Pan's flute. Why is the sound of Pan's flute here?
Jong-sun thought, his face growing pale. To think I'd get mixed up with him again. Pan the goat who plays the melody of chaos. Before I regressed, he was the first celestial being to take notice of me when I was struggling just to survive and meet his expectations. I did everything he demanded, just jumping through hoops, but I got nothing in return. To him, I was just entertainment. The moment he got bored, he turned his back on me. The more he thought about it, the angrier Jong-sun became at his own foolishness in his past life. Then, he calmed himself slightly to think. But why now, in this life?
I haven't had any contact with Pan. Wait, could it be...
Jong-sun paused for a moment as he recalled the actions of the constellation. Few owe when it severed contact with all the lower-grade constellations. Thinking of this, everything clicked into place. So that's how it is. His pride was wounded when Mamong blocked him, so he decided to get revenge. Having figured this out, Jong-sun used lightning magic to fry the horde of monsters, before they could even blink. However, Jong-sun knew full well that this wasn't the end. It can't end like this! I need to find the source and take care of it. But can everyone else hold out? Not if I'm not here. As he spoke, he glanced back to see the big guy Han Chio use his Declare War ability, his entire body erupting with an overwhelming aura. As if he'd guessed Jong-sun's plan, he nodded and said, "I'll hold the front line here." Not to be outdone, their leader Joseo A stepped up. "You're not the only one here, Han Chio." After speaking, she activated the second form of her tarantula footwork. She charged forward, cutting through the monsters in front of her as if they were nothing. "Jong-sun, you have a plan, don't you?"
Hurry up and go,
she said with a smile. The decoy Park Jong-pyo brought his ride over for Jong-sun. "Ride this, bro." "What?" Jong-sun said, confused. "Oh, come on. I'm used to running on my own 2 feet anyway. But next time, give me a heads up before you use your magic, all right?" "All right." Jong-sun nodded and quickly mounted the skeletal beast, charging toward the source of the sound. It wasn't long after that. Jong-sun found the beggar leader playing his flute, surrounded by several minotaurs acting as bodyguards. Seeing this, Jong-sun had to slam the brakes on his ride. 5 minotaurs, all of them as strong as a named monster. At that same moment, the beggar leader saw Jong-sun approaching. He stopped playing his flute and called out a greeting. "Heh, you're here early. I thought you'd play with my little ones for a while longer before coming here." As Jong-sun looked, he saw the man's appearance had completely transformed. Horns had sprouted from his head and his ears had become those of a goat, and just by looking at his appearance, Jong-sun understood everything. He had clearly performed an advent of a constellation's power, and it had transformed his body, allowing him to freely control monsters of this caliber. "You must have wagered a considerable amount of life force with the constellations up there." Jong-sun gave the beggar leader a sinister smile, looking past him as if seeing the one pulling the strings. "Heh, I get it now. If that is what the gods desire, then any price is worth paying. Now attack my loyal ones!" the beggar roared, and immediately after, the herd of beasts charged forward in unison to pummel Jong-sun. Seeing this, our hero instantly entered his battle stance. "They're all coming at once. I'll take them out from a distance first." Having said that, he unleashed his lightning magic, firing directly at the minotaurs and stunning them in place. However, this wasn't over yet. Seeing his underlings being stopped, the beggar just laughed as if nothing was wrong. "Hey, it can't end here, right?" After saying that, the man started playing his flute once again. "Answer my call, giant worm!" The moment he finished speaking, the ground around Jong-sun began to rumble violently. And then, a giant scale-covered worm burst from the ground to attack Jong-sun. Seeing this, the general quickly opened the Treasury of Greed and learned a skill called Earth Wave. It's a basic spell that represents the seismic magic of the Golden Tower. It causes the ground to ripple and swallow the enemy. At that moment, Jong-sun placed his hand on the ground and slammed it down, creating a wave of magical energy. It spread outwards, and as soon as it hit the giant worm's body, cracking sounds of breaking bones echoed from it.
watching from above, the goat-headed constellation saw that these attacks still hadn't done anything. As for Jong-sun, he was starting to go berserk. The constellation, debaucherous satyr, grows angry, wishing for you to be drowned in fear. Hey, I understand, my lord. The beggar laughed and quickly played his flute. This time, unlike before, when the Minotaur heard it, its entire body turned as red as blood. It was as if it had entered a berserk state. This was rage mode, the same skill the wolf leader used during the 10th wave of the first chapter. How should I handle this? Magic doesn't seem to be effective anymore. Jong-sun frowned, thinking. And while he was wondering what to do, his sponsor Mammon, who was watching the battle, decided to give his little bro a little help. The constellation Mammon has decided to temporarily return the weapon you lent it. The constellation Mammon wishes for you to quickly deal with that stinking goat. As soon as the voice faded, the sword Durandal suddenly appeared in Jong-sun's hand, making him much more confident. All right then, I'll gratefully put this to use. On the opposite side, the frenzied Minotaur charged forward, throwing a punch at Jong-sun. Jong-sun also took the initiative, rushing in to slaughter the bull. Supreme Polarity Sword Art. Use the enemy's own strength to repel it, he thought, as he darted past the charging Minotaur, using his sword to deflect the path of its punch. This sent the fist straight into the other bullhead next to it. As a result, the other Minotaur, not expecting to be hit by friendly fire, was sent flying by the punch. And while the remaining one was still in shock, Jong-sun channeled strength into his legs and leaped high into the air. Then, using gravity to his advantage, he unleashed a slash with his sword. Aiming for both monsters, "This is the end," he said coldly, and the two bullheads' bodies instantly exploded as if they were bombs, much to the stupefied gaze of the beggar chief. "It's over," he repeated, as he placed his sword Durandal against the horned man's neck, back to the goat head. Witnessing his avatar's pathetic failure, he began to go mad, screaming through the screen. The constellation debaucherous satyr screams in disbelief. It furiously orders its servant to get up immediately. The constellation, Mammon, demands you kill the monster right away and retrieve the divine sword. Back with Jong-sun, he looked at the beggar chief, who was lying on the ground, foaming at the mouth. He didn't let his guard down, reminding himself, Pan's minion has been defeated, but I can't stop here. Thinking this, Jong-sun gave a faint smile and began to mock the other constellation. How ridiculous. A god stooping so low as to cling to a human for revenge. His tone was filled with such contempt that the goat head was a bit taken aback and asked back. The constellation debaucherous satyr is flustered and asks if you are talking to it. At that, Jong-sun shrugged and admitted it. Yeah, I'm talking to you. You have pride, but not the courage to face the Demon King, so you cling to a human to get to me. Isn't that right? Hearing these words, the goat head's face twisted into the ugliest grimace possible. The constellation. Debaucherous satyr cannot believe a mere mortal dares to provoke it. At the same time, it released its divine aura, making Jong-sun feel as if he were standing before a true god. However, he didn't show the slightest hint of worry or fear. What, did I say something wrong? If you're so angry, why don't you run straight to Mammon right now? Jong-sun scoffed. At the same time, the silhouette of the constellation Mammon appeared behind him, and Mammon issued a challenge to the goat head. The constellation Mammon spreads its black wings and says, "Come here if you dare." The face of the debaucherous satyr turned beet red as if it were about to explode. Back with Jong-sun, it seemed he had quite a grudge against it, so his tongue didn't stop. He continued to taunt the other being. Even without power, you still bully humans by relying on your father's influence. It's surprising that a constellation can be so petty, Jong-sun said with a mocking laugh, and this remark truly pushed the goat head past its breaking point. It didn't even bother with its avatar anymore. Instead, it began to continuously channel its power into the avatar's body, causing it to slowly transform. Muscles began to bulge. Its two legs turned into goat legs, and it finally transformed into a half-man, half-goat monster. This was because the constellation, the debaucherous satyr, was trying to descend. A descent is when a constellation enters the body of a follower to influence the tower, something normally forbidden. Directly interfering with the tower means dissension comes with many restrictions. First, the constellation's rank is lowered for violating causality. Second, it attracts the attention of the system and other constellations. But the main reason constellations avoid dissension is the penalty if they're defeated in that state. And that's precisely why. Normally, constellations would never use dissension on their followers. But that foolish goathead didn't think that far ahead. Blinded by rage, he had only one thought: to appear before Jong-sun immediately and tear him to shreds. But dissension isn't all-powerful. A believer's body can only withstand a fraction of a deity's power, and fundamentally the goat head was just a low-ranked constellation, so even after descending himself, he still couldn't possibly defeat Jong-sun. The moment he transferred his power into the believer's body, Jong-sun immediately lunged forward, lightly swinging his sword Durandal across his throat, and he took his head with incredible neatness. In the end, all he could do was let out a cry of agony before his connection with the believer was severed. The constellation Capricious Goat has failed in its attempt at descension. A portion of the constellation's rank has collapsed. The power used for the descension has dissipated. The notification sounds echoed endlessly on this side. Although the goat head had been severed from the body, it hadn't truly lost consciousness yet before being completely kicked out of this body. The goat head uttered a threat to Jong-sun. "I will not forgive you." Seeing this, Jong-sun replied in a cold voice, "Well, who told you to descend in broad daylight?" And with that, he used his power of gluttony, creating mouths that turned towards the goat head, frightening him endlessly. The aura emanating from these mouths caused his body to start trembling uncontrollably. "What are you trying to do? If you touch me, my father won't let you get away with this," he threatened, hoping Jong-sun would stop. But after coming this far, there was no way Jong-sun would hold back now. Immediately, the mouth filled with fangs began to absorb the goat head's body. And just upon tasting it, the starving demon was overjoyed. The constellation Prince of Starvation said, "It's been a while since I've had such a delicious meal." And he opened his mouth wide. At this point, no matter how foolish he was, the goat head realized it. Jong-sun was being backed by two high-ranked constellations. "Impossible! What did you do to gain the power of two gods?" He screamed in complete confusion. But before he could even get an answer, the giant mouth snapped shut, swallowing him whole. The constellation Capricious Goat has fallen below the rank threshold. For falling below the required rank, the constellation has lost its system privileges. The constellation Prince of Starvation remarked that although the taste was a bit strange, the deep flavor is wonderful. With that, the starving demon let out a loud burp, leaving Jong-sun at a loss for words. Actually, a moment ago, when he decided to use the power of gluttony to absorb a constellation's power, Jong-sun was a bit worried in his heart, unsure if Beelzebub could digest the rank of a constellation. But it seems the gamble paid off, huh? Nearby, the constellation Patron of Wealth also commented, "You might be the first person to defeat a constellation during the tutorial." He shook his head and exclaimed, back to Jong-sun after absorbing that constellation. He was a bit surprised that no notification about a power increase appeared. Wait a minute, why isn't the stat absorption working? He wondered before turning his head to the side and noticing the pipes that the beggar's sect leader had dropped earlier. Looking at this item, information related to it quickly appeared before Jong-sun. Fairy's instrument. Type musical instrument. Grade B. A wind instrument woven from reeds. It has inherited the essential power of a holy relic and is imbued with the essence of the god Pan. Ability 1. Your seduction/control animal-type monsters, depending on performance skill. Ability 2. Fear Resonance. Inflicts fear on the enemy depending on performance skill. Ability 3. Chaotic Cry. Causes the enemy to fall into confusion depending on performance skill. After reading the descriptions, Jong-sun's eyes lit up with interest. Oh, this is interesting. It's a replica just like the sword Durandal. However, there's a condition depending on performance skill. Let's see. I'm sure it'll be useful eventually. With that thought, Jong-sun carefully placed the pipes into his inventory, and right after he did, a notification from the system was suddenly sent to him. You have successfully absorbed the rank of the god Pan. Nutrient absorption has increased all stats by 10. You have absorbed the rank of Pan, the god of shepherds. You have received the stigma of the forest god. As this notification sound rang out, the back of Jong-sun's right hand suddenly emitted a brilliant light. Then it formed on the back of his hand, a somewhat ferocious-looking goat head tattoo. And just by looking at this mark, with his knowledge, Jong-sun immediately realized what this was. A divine stigma, which only those chosen by the gods can possess. The power of the gods themselves allowing one to surpass human limits. I never imagined I'd obtain a divine stigma. This gluttony power is even more incredible than I thought. If I can keep absorbing other gods at this rate, I guess that's the idea. Jong-sun gulped at his own bold thought. Unaware of Jong-sun's intentions, the system continued to display a few more notifications. Explanation regarding the divine stigma. Sealed divine stigma of the forest god. Type divine stigma. Level unknown. A divine stigma containing the power of the god Pan.
the god of nature and shepherds with hidden divine potential. Ability 1. Ability 2 and Ability 3 are sealed. Currently undergoing rank absorption by absorbing additional nutrients through the Gluttony Authority, or by meeting certain conditions. The absorbed power will be enhanced. Back to Jongsun, the temporary sealing of the divine stigma. Didn't disappoint him too much. It's fine. I plan to use the Gluttony Authority freely from now on. What started as simple revenge against Pan has turned into an unexpected reward. Well then, guess I should head back now, he thought with a smile, especially with a reward this much greater than I expected. Meanwhile, Sioa's group was still fighting their hardest against the wave of monsters controlled by that goat-headed guy. And even though it was a little tough, the group was still fighting methodically, holding their formation. Damn it, it's like another monster wave, a young man grumbled. But don't you think we're way stronger than we were back then? Of course we are, another person chimed in. Someone replied, stabbing their weapon straight into the monster's gut in front of them. And one of the reasons they'd been able to hold their formation for so long, bam, was all thanks to Beacon and Lee Hanun. Besides the skeletons Beacon summoned, Lee Hanun had also acquired a very formidable ability, a power that didn't just stop bleeding, but also induced it. After finishing off the monsters in front of her, the group of followers spoke in unison. Lee Hanun then took a deep breath. Then she smiled and turned to thank the constellation protecting her. Thank you, Mr. Matt Bagel. The Leo constellation cleared its throat and turned away. He muttered that there was no need for thanks. In another corner, while Park Young-pyo was fighting, he suddenly heard a sound. A certain melodious sound. What is that sound? Park Young-pyo wondered. The sound then continued to echo across the battlefield, and as soon as it was heard, for some reason, the monsters which had been united against the humans suddenly began attacking each other, causing even Soa to freeze in surprise. It seems the monsters have suddenly been thrown into chaos. Only one person could do this. She smiled softly as she thought of someone. Going back a few minutes after finishing off the goat-headed guy, Jong-sun had hurriedly mounted the wolf skeleton that Park Jung-pyo had given him earlier and was heading back to the group. He was worried about their condition. I wonder how everyone's doing. I hope no one was killed, he silently prayed. When he finally arrived, he was actually a bit surprised to see everyone was doing better than he had thought. They're actually pretty good fighters. I thought they'd be in trouble with so many strong monsters, but it looks like they managed to pull through on their own. Without my help. But I guess it wouldn't hurt to lend a hand. With that, Jong-sun took the monster-controlling flute out of his inventory. Next, he opened the blind demon's treasury and took out a music sheet titled Turbulent Sea, a battle song played by the Naga half-human, half-snake creatures to subdue their enemies on the battlefield. This heroic anthem inspires courage in allies and sows fear among enemies. And just like that, with Jong-sun's help, their side's morale skyrocketed. Meanwhile, the monsters' formation fell into disarray, and they were steadily pushed back. It didn't take long for the big guy Han Cheo to land a finishing blow on the monster, the last one attacking the group. With that done, they received a confirmation from the system. You have successfully thwarted the surprise quest Revenge of the Forest Spirit. Looking at the notification, Jong-sun nodded, satisfied with the outcome. Pan's entire plan has gone up in smoke. Speaking of which, the leader Sioa saw that Jong-sun had returned and cheerfully ran over to greet him. Jong-sun, I knew it was you. Thanks for your help. In response, Jong-sun didn't take the credit. It's nothing. You guys could have won without me, he said softly. At the same time, his loyal junior Park Young-pyo also rushed over, looking like he wanted to hug him. Hyungnim, I had complete faith in you. Seeing him act like this, Jong-sun immediately reached out and grabbed his subordinate's face to stop him from doing something cringy. This guy, because of his bad attitude, before my rebirth I couldn't stand him. But after he returned Baekrang, I've started to warm up to him. He'll be very useful. With that thought, Jong-sun nodded in response. Thanks. I'll return the white wolf. Wait, you mean the white wolf, right? Its color. Park Jong-peel's voice trailed off. The white wolf's color had shifted from white to a reddish-brown, and the reason for this change was, of course, all thanks to Jong-sun. Oh, right, I forgot. I used the treasure's power to rush back to the group, and that's why its color had turned completely red. Simply put, the white wolf had been overworked to the point that even its color changed. Like the mane of red hair, the legendary horse that could run 1,000 miles in a day. The steed of the great Lu Bu. It charged headfirst into the enemy and claimed victory with its blazing red mane. Oh my God, it turned red. Park Jong-pil screamed, looking at the new appearance of his ride, while Jong-sun could only scratch his head in embarrassment. Sorry about that, and I might have pushed it a little too hard.
Dude, how did you know my style?
Ha ha ha. From now on, its name is Red Wolf, Park Jong-pil said cheerfully. It seemed he genuinely loved the mount's new color. Meanwhile, as Jong-sun saw how happy Park Jong-pil was, although he didn't want to spoil the mood, he still had to speak up and remind him. The color isn't the issue here. It's been weakened from being overworked. It's going to fall apart. Hearing their conversation from nearby, Baiken walked over and offered his help. May I take a look? Ah, here comes our skeleton expert, Park Jong-pil said with a laugh, hopeful that his ride could still be saved. Over on this side, Baiken also introduced himself. A quick introduction, my name is Baiken. After speaking, he began examining every part of the Red Wolf's body and quickly gave his assessment. Its durability is a bit lower, but the hardness of its bones has increased compared to before. The problem is, without any muscles, all of the impact is absorbed directly by the bones, the doctorly man said, nodding as he listened. Over here, Park Jong-pil was still proudly boasting about his pet. My Red Wolf is so cool. Since you gave it to me, I'll take great care of it. You bet. It's very impressive. Its bone and joint structure is incredibly sturdy, Baiken said, stroking the Red Wolf's skull. Back with Jong-sun seeing these two grown men so excited over a pile of bones like this. It gave him goosebumps all over, and he quietly walked away. Let's not waste any more time here. We should keep moving. Take good care of Red Wolf, okay? Jong-sun said quietly. He then surveyed the area and spoke to their leader, Sella. Once everything is ready, we should press onward. All right, Sella nodded in response. We should arrive in about another day. And just like that, after reforming their ranks and resting for a bit, the group set off again until they came to a towering sheer cliff. From the top, our friend Park Jong-pil glanced down below and got the chills. This cliff is no joke. I can't even see the bottom. From behind, their leader Sella asked Jong-sun, This is where we're going to set up our base, isn't it? Hearing her question, our hero turned and nodded. That's right. With the cliff at our back, defending will be much easier, he said. He then gazed into the distance, lost in thought. This cliff marks the boundary for Phase 3 of the trial. No matter how skilled I am as a player, I can't get past this cliff. That means there's no way for us to be ambushed from behind. Most players will end their fight at the entrance to this area. By setting up our base here, completing the third phase is almost guaranteed. At least that's what I was thinking. But Pan's unexpected interference. There could be many other constellations who hold a grudge against me like he does. They might even order the groups that are watching to attack me. I can't let my guard down. Jong-sun reminded himself, still fuming over that goat-headed idiot's foolish actions. As for Sella, after agreeing with Jong-sun to set up camp here, she quickly went down below to direct the group with Hanaji and Han Da-un. Shall we begin constructing the base? Yes. Oh, I've been dying to get to work. It's finally our time to show what we can do, the twin sisters said excitedly. The older sister Han-aji then waved to Jong-sun and said, Hey, could you get some more wood for us? Of course. Jong-sun nodded. In that case, I'll help too. Me too. Han Cheo and Park Jong-pil chimed in. However, before the wood-gathering party could even set out, everyone received a notification about the next phase. Phase 3 trial begins the clash. Survive until only half of the participants remain. Current challenge in the clash phase. You can completely claim the achievements of any player you defeat. Looking at the notification, everyone's faces went blank for a few seconds. Only Johnson, who had been through this once before, remained calm. For him, the objective this time was crystal clear, and that was to survive. By now the forest outside must be drenched in blood, Johnson muttered to himself, and just as he predicted, a battle was raging among the players in the forest as they ruthlessly took each other down. The others? Wait, why are all the players attacking each other? Some guy asked, his face pale. And to answer this naive question, another man appeared. He sneered, You still don't get it. It's the reason why less than 10 of you are still alive. Please spare me. Do you know how hard it was? For me to survive until now, he said hurriedly, which made the man opposite him nearly double over with laughter. Ha! Why should I care if I take out one more person? I'll be a survivor and you'll be the sacrifice. With that, the man tightened his grip on his sword and lunged straight for his prey, just like that. Countless screams began to echo throughout the forest. At the same time, the scene shifts to another group. A man among them was also receiving guidance from a certain constellation. The gray-haired old man constellation yelled that this was his chance. Hearing this command, the man asked in the low voice, If I take him down, will you really grant me your power? The gray-haired old man constellation scowled, saying, You dare ask me to repeat my promise. He said this with the whites of his eyes showing in anger, but that reaction was enough for the man to confirm his thoughts. Understood. I won't just eliminate him, but his entire group as well. The man sneered. It seemed Johnson's worries about being targeted by other constellations had come true. Back with the nameless man, his patron constellation was still constantly yelling at him. The gray-haired old man constellation screamed, urging him on. Hurry up! Show them what you're made of! Hearing those words, as a passionate young man, how could he not be furious at being ordered around by some old geezer like he was some kind of servant? Although he didn't dare say it out loud in his heart, he was already cursing the old man's entire family tree. This damn old geezer. I'm not your slave, you arrogant bastard. I listened at first because you lent me your power, but now you meddle in everything, giving all sorts of commands. Just you wait. When I finish this, and then get my own power, I'm going to kick this despicable constellation to the curb. As he thought this, he gritted his teeth so hard they made a sickening grinding sound. Then, since he was about to attack Johnson's group, he tried to reassure himself. Well, they've already made it deep inside anyway. How did they get past all those monsters? Someone asked, puzzled. At the same time, a younger member of the group spotted something and immediately pointed in a direction and alerted everyone. Leader, look. Hearing that, the leader followed his gaze, and then his face broke out in a cold sweat. What is this? Did they build an entire fortress? He paused for a beat, then asked his constellation with a terrified look on his face. Constellation, what in the world is going on? In response to his words, the old man constellation not only offered no explanation, but even insulted him. The gray-haired old man constellation spat and then yelled, Why haven't you charged in yet? Staring at this command, the man gritted his teeth once more. But when you're under someone else's roof, you have to bow your head. After all, he was borrowing the constellation's power. So whether he wanted to or not, he had to pull himself together and turn to his group. Don't be afraid, there's a cliff behind them. All we have to do is push them off and we'll win. After speaking, he gripped a spear tightly and led the charge. He rushed forward to attack. However, before he could even reach the wooden fence, his entire body slammed straight into an invisible shield, causing his face to... It's imprinted on this shield. What the hell is this? Is this a barrier? The leader frowned, speculating as he reached out to touch the barrier. But before they could observe any further, a barrage of arrows flew out from inside the fortress, aiming straight for them. And the reason for this was, of course, none other than Jong-sun. Inside the base, he had his hand on the ground, activating some kind of strange magic formation. The Treasure of Greed has been activated. The origin of Camaldur's defense. This is a defensive magic circle designed by Camaldur, one of the commanders of the Black Tower. Although it can't be maintained for long, it can block all enemy attacks and intrusions. Beside him, Sel-A and Lee Hanan, despite having witnessed Jong-sun use his abilities many times before, were still stunned when they saw him erect such a massive barrier. They still couldn't hide the astonishment on their faces. Whoa, how did you do that? Sela blurted out, and in response to her question, Jong-sun took out the 2 magic stones he had gotten from the goblin camp before and explained, I found a few useful things in the goblin village that we wiped out last time. That said, Jong-sun's goal was to use the magic stones to enhance Camaldur's defensive circle. Normally, it would only last for a moment, but by using the magic stones, he had at least 5 minutes to make further preparations. Turning back to Sele whenever they were in trouble, Jong-sun always found a way to deal with it, which made the female leader so happy she couldn't stop grinning. Everything you do surprises me, Jong-sun. It's like you're from the future. She said it casually, which made Jong-sun's expression a bit awkward. He could only cough a few times and change the subject. Hurry up and give the order to attack. This barrier won't last long. Hearing his reminder, the leader snapped out of it. Ah, right. Everyone prepare to attack. Understood, the group replied. Next, they began to wheel out a giant catapult to retaliate against the attack from outside. When defending a fortress, you obviously have to use a catapult, Hanaji said with a laugh. All right, attack, Handan shouted, and immediately after that sound, the catapult's arm swung forward violently, and the stone loaded inside was flung forward with wind-ripping speed. Outside, the group of attackers still didn't know how to deal with the barrier. Suddenly, they saw a giant shadow hurtling towards them, and in the next moment their formation was shattered by the catapult. Inside, the younger sister, Handan, saw this and clenched her fists in excitement. It really worked. Hearing that, her older sister Hanaji smugly said, I told you it would be effective. Not to be outdone by the twin sisters, the big guy Han Taeho gripped a spear and used all his strength to throw it. And with his beastly strength, the spear in his hand was no less powerful than the catapult. Back to Jong-sun to end the battle quickly, he had no intention of sitting idle. That guy is practically a living catapult, I can't be outdone either. With that thought, Jong-sun began to concentrate energy in his palm and used a fireball spell enhanced by the magic of the Black Tower. He unleashed a massive fireball straight ahead, which blew away the group of strangers before they could even react to the catapult. "Don't fall back, break through the barrier," the captain shouted. Back with Jong-sun, through his observation skill, he noticed countless other groups rushing from the forest to attack them. "Damn it, reinforcements are coming. I didn't expect so many constellations to hate Mammon. But thanks to this, I can earn quite a few achievements," Jong-sun muttered. To deal with this situation, he opened the Treasure of Greed again and took out a large bow along with the Grand Empire's archery technique. This technique was developed to train soldiers, with a power that made countless kingdoms tremble in fear. Next, gripping the bow in his hand, Jong-sun slowly drew the arrow back, and when the bow was bent into a half-moon, Jong-sun released his hand, sending the arrow flying out with wind-ripping speed, landing right at the feet of some guy, startling him. However, since it was a missed shot, the attacking group relaxed. "Huh, is his aim that bad? This guy isn't as tough as we thought." They sneered, unaware of the danger that was about to befall them, because right after that, the arrow stuck in the ground suddenly emitted a soft light, followed by a world-shaking explosion that sent dust and smoke flying into the sky. It was as if a bomb had just gone off. At the same time, Jong-sun received 2 confirmation notifications as the 2 unfortunate guys were eliminated. "You have defeated player Kim Tae-hee and looted 3,910 points. You have defeated player James and looted 4,180 points." He looked at the points he had received. Jong-sun smiled lightly. "Not a bad haul. It's just a shame this power of gluttony can't be used on players. I was only able to devour the contract holder of the god Pan after he became a god. Anyway, I guess it's about time." Jong-sun then muttered to himself. As if to explain Jong-sun's thoughts, all players simultaneously received a notification. The number of players has been reduced to 3/4. The starving ogres began to appear on the battlefield. Back to Jong-sun, he was also looking forward to these ogres appearing. Tastier prey than the players has finally shown up. Thinking this, to increase his score, Jong-sun turned to the leader Seoha. "Seoha, you take care of the base." Hearing him say that, a worried look appeared in Seoha's eyes. "Isn't it dangerous for you to go alone?" "No, it's easier to go alone. If something goes wrong, I can escape quickly," Jong-sun replied, but in truth he was afraid Seoha would hold him back. The big guy, Han Cheol, immediately stepped forward and offered, "I'll go with you." Seeing this, Jong-sun couldn't refuse. "All right, if it's Han Cheol, then it's fine," Jong-sun thought to himself. Next, the 2 of them each mounted a skeletal beast and left their camp. As they rode, the big guy, Han Cheol, took the opportunity to ask, "Are those starving ogres really that strong?" "Yeah, they're very strong. Even you would have a hard time facing them head-on," Jong-sun said casually. However, after hearing this, not only was Han Cheol not afraid, he even felt eager to fight them right away. "I can't wait," he muttered, and Jong-sun understood why this guy had such an expression. Han Cheol must want a proper fight. Lately, he's only been fighting small fry. Back to Han Cheol, after composing his excited face, he asked again, "But how do we find those monsters?" In response to this question, Jong-sun gave a mysterious smile. "Don't worry. Even if you don't want to, you'll meet them." "What does that mean?" Han Cheol asked, puzzled. Without waiting for Jong-sun's answer, he quickly understood why. Because just a little further ahead, he saw green-skinned giants clutching players in their hands. On their heads, they had a single sharp horn. With their blazing blood-red eyes and immense strength, they could easily slaughter the entire group of players around them, looking at its colossal figure. Even Han Cheol had to rein in his fighting spirit. "What the hell is that?" he shouted. Beside him, Jong-sun glanced around for a moment before answering. "Looks like it's already killed quite a few players. A monster that appears all over the battlefield. It seems 2 of them have shown up at the same time this time. But it's fine, we'll each take one." "Each take," he said, taking out a bone dagger. Seeing Jong-sun's confident posture, Han Cheol seemed to calm down a bit. And he reminded himself, "I've trained every day, I can feel it. There's no need to worry. I'll take it down in one blow." On the other side, the giant ogre saw a tiny figure actively charging towards it, to its death. It roared in its booming voice, "Human! Weak human! I'm so hungry!" As it spoke, it reached its massive hand toward our protagonist to grab him. At the same time, the constellation. Beelzebub has a similar thought. The constellation. The starving prince says he feels the same way. Drooling at the sight of the juicy ogre, the starving prince sends an urgent message, making Jong-sun feel a bit helpless with this glutton. Yes, just wait a little longer," he advised, opening the Treasury of Greed, and from within it, he took out Camille's dagger technique. It is a dagger technique from the mercenary Camille owned by only 5 people in the world. She usually used dual swords. But she devised this technique to deal with large monsters resistant to normal attacks. Now, immediately after learning the skill, and just like that, a vast amount of knowledge was transferred into Yongsun's head, allowing him to master the technique as if he'd been using it for countless years. Right after that, Jongsun's body flashed like a streak of light and instantly sliced through the giant ogre's wrist. At first, the big green-skinned creature was contemptuous, not thinking Jongsun could injure him that badly. This wound. Just then his voice cut off as he screamed in agony. Blood was gushing non-stop from his wrist. This was all thanks to Camille's blade technique. It targets the tendons and blood vessels of large opponents to gradually wear them down. I'll sever every single one of its blood vessels, using a technique that someone spent 15 years perfecting, just by opening the treasure. This is my own power, but it feels like I'm cheating. Jongsun thought to himself as he unleashed a flurry of lightning-fast attacks, striking the blood vessels on the massive ogre's body, leaving it able to do nothing but scream helplessly before finally collapsing to the ground. The moment it fell, Jongsun received a confirmation message from the system. You have defeated the mission monster, the Thirsty Ogre. You have obtained an ogre's horn. Your personal contribution points have increased by 10,000 for defeating the monster alone. You have received an additional 5,000 points. You have obtained an ogre's horn. Nearby, the starving prince was panting like a dog tongue out as he looked at the ogre's corpse. The constellation's starving prince stared at the prey with a covetous gaze, paying this no mind. Jongsun was only focused on the rewards he'd received. My experience points and achievements are both really disappointing. I wonder how Seola is doing, he wondered. Back with the big guy Han Chiul, he was also having a proper fight with the remaining ogre. Big human, I will eat you! The one-horned, green-skinned creature shouted and threw a punch. Seeing this, Han Chiul wasn't afraid and threw a punch in return, just like that. Their fists collided, creating a deafening boom in the air. In this clash of strength, they were evenly matched. Neither was pushed back, and with just one clash, Han Chiul was able to gauge the monster's strength. This monster is seriously strong, but I'm stronger. He chuckled to himself. Then he quickly spun around, grabbing the monster's wrist with both hands. Next, he used all his body's strength to execute a throw, flinging the giant's body over his shoulder and slamming it hard onto the ground. The impact made the ground shake. After doing so, the big guy glanced over at Jongsun, who had already successfully defeated his opponent. Seeing the ogre beside him defeated, he reminded himself that he still had a long way to go to surpass him. As for his own ogre, after taking a painful hit, it seemed it still hadn't learned its lesson. Dangerous human, I'll take care of you. The big creature roared and started charging towards Han Cheol like a small mountain. Facing this attack, Han Cheol took a deep breath. Then he began to circulate energy throughout his body and prepared to use Tai Chi, unaware of this. The massive ogre, as soon as it got close, threw its giant fist straight at him. However, the attack was dodged by Han Cheol with incredible ease. Then, taking advantage of the opening before the ogre could get its guard back up, he landed a punch right in its stomach. The punch was so powerful that a shockwave could be seen erupting from the ogre's back with the naked eye. Back to Jongsun after dealing with his opponent instead of rushing to help Han Cheol. He wanted to see just how far his big friend could go on his own. He's combined the Tai Chi I taught him with the war-incarnate power he got from Agaris. He knows how to adapt and combine techniques for use. He's no ordinary person. He was already incredibly strong before regressing, but now he's even stronger. However, it seems the energy consumption is also immense. Thinking this, seeing Han Cheol's slightly pale face, Jongsun took a recovery potion from his inventory and threw it to him. Drink this. Thanks. Han Cheol nodded and caught the potion. At this rate, we'll wipe out all the thirsty ogres. Are you still okay? Jongsun asked. Of course, don't worry about me, Han Cheol said, pounding his chest confidently. At the same time, in the guide control office, a man in his 40s with the look of an office worker was furiously typing on his keyboard, muttering constantly about a problem. He was the guide adjustment manager. Damn it, this guidance session is a total mess. Why is it like this? A whole bunch of high potentials showed up at once. What a mess! Too many survivors. Now I have to monitor and record everything. This is sheer exploitation. After the 3rd chapter ends, the numbers should be cut in half. With that, he leaned back in his chair to enjoy a cup of coffee. However, he hadn't even rested for a few minutes when a frantic voice came through. His desk phone. Team leader, have you seen it? Hearing the shout, the team leader was startled and yelled back, Why are you shouting? Hearing that the subordinate lowered his voice a bit and stammered, The thing is, someone is hunting the thirsty ogres. The players Jongsun and Kang Han Chol. They're the ones hunting them. But Shahi, if this situation continues, The tutorial phase will drag on for way too long, he said worriedly. However, the team leader wasn't concerned in the slightest after hearing him. No, that's not the problem, you idiot. Did you even read the tutorial properly? If over 90% of the starving OS are eliminated, it will appear. Back to Jong-sun and Han Cheol, it was just as the team leader had mentioned. After the two of them wiped out 90% of the OS horde, a huge one was summoned. Its every footstep made the ground tremble, and its very presence was something not even Jong-sun could have anticipated. That thing, it's a hidden piece that even I didn't know about. Right now, before them stood a two-headed OS far larger than all the others. It was the OS Chieftain Crag. "You bring no food, I'm starving. Starving to death!" Crag roared, its face twisted in anger. Seeing this, the remaining OS nervously tried to explain. "We're truly sorry, please forgive us." Back with Han Cheol looking at this behemoth. He didn't dare to charge in recklessly, and had to ask for Jong-sun's opinion. "Jong-sun, what's the plan now?" Looks like even the small fry have all gathered, hearing this question. Although the situation was somewhat unexpected, a strange sense of excitement welled up inside Jong-sun. A hidden challenge I've never faced before, which makes this even better. With that thought, he declared without hesitation, "Of course we're going to defeat it. I'll handle the big one. You take care of the small fry." With that, Jong-sun channeled power into his legs and shot forward with wind-tearing speed. In an instant, his body blew past two OS in front of him to face Cray. Seeing him appear, the two OS were overjoyed, wondering how they'd find food to offer their leader. But now someone had willingly served himself up. "It found some food," it said cheerfully. However, before it could even chase after Jong-sun, his friend Han Cheol rushed in, blocking the path of both of them. "Your opponent is me," Han Cheol said, his face brimming with confidence. Back with Jong-sun, as soon as he closed in on Crag, he wasted no words and used his dagger technique, his familiar daggers, to attack relentlessly. However, Crow truly deserved to be the leader of this OS horde. Jong-sun's lightning-fast strike at its throat was blocked by the giant's gauntlet. In fact, Jong-sun's attack, and couldn't even leave a single scratch on the gauntlet. "Stronger than I thought," Jong-sun thought to himself. Meanwhile, seeing an ant dare to challenge it, the giant's four eyes glowed red like car headlights in a fury. "This annoying little pest? What a nuisance." As it spoke, it began to grip its weapon tightly. Meanwhile, our protagonist knew that just using daggers would make it nearly impossible to take down this giant. So he began to use magic. By the secret of the Black Tower, the power of Lightning Chain has been enhanced. By the secret of the Black Tower, the power of Ice Wave has been enhanced. Two notifications appeared as Jong-sun combined lightning and ice magic at the same time. Then, as soon as the spell was complete, he immediately unleashed it towards the huge beast. Streams of lightning and sharp ice spikes struck Crow's body, directly causing the hand gripping its axe to instantly freeze solid. But this still wasn't enough to trouble Crag. With a single swing of its arm, it easily shattered the ice encasing its hand. "How ridiculous," it roared. However, Jong-sun hadn't expected his ice magic to actually hold Crow for long. He just needed to stall KR, a GH for a moment, and that was enough. "Then how about you try this?" As he spoke, he began to gather all his mana into his palms using a type of magic called Black Flame. It was an attack skill of sorcerers, from the Black Tower that spews dark flames to engulf the opponent. By the secret of the Black Tower, the power of Black Flame is being enhanced. Just like that, after the spell was complete, Jong-sun swung his hand forward, unleashing the flames directly at the OS chieftain. Its entire body was engulfed in scorching fire, and the faint smell of grilled meat began to waft out. Crow was still screaming in pain. "So hot! How dare food like you, I'll crush you!" Crag said, as its two eyes blazed with fury. And although it was screaming horribly, it didn't seem to have suffered any real damage. Witnessing this, the smile on Jong-sun's face stiffened slightly. "Truly a monster. I have something I want to try on a creature like it. I just don't know if it'll be enough." As he spoke, he took out a goblin longsword from his inventory. Item: Goblin Longsword. Rank E description. A sword taken from a player. Stolen from a goblin, but it looks like it's still usable. Staring at the shiny sword in front of him, Jong-sun muttered to himself, "It's a bit risky using a weapon this low level. It's even weaker than the monster. It only got a light scratch from a dagger, but the sword's durability doesn't matter. I just need it to hold up for one hit." He then opened his Treasury of Greed and began to enchant it with the properties of the magic sword that the hero Beowulf used to slay Grendel's mother. A sword known to harden after every bloody battle. With this property, the sword began to be enveloped in a purple aura. But immediately after, a few cracks appeared on the body of the sword as it couldn't withstand the properties of a legendary weapon. However, Jong-sun only needed it to work once or twice. "That's all I need. Up ahead, the orc chieftain was oblivious. Unaware that Jong-sun had prepared a special weapon to face him, it charged forward in a frenzy. "You tiny human, I won't spare you." Before the words even left its mouth, our protagonist casually swung his sword once, and in the next moment, a bone-deep slash appeared on Kraglok's enormous body, silencing its cry. At the same time, the goblin's longsword couldn't withstand the power of the miasma and shattered into pieces. A poisonous vapor from the miasma spread out. Staring at the now headless body before him, Jong-sun knew that he had won. With its skin already scorched by the black flames, there was no way it could withstand the miasma's poison. Jong-sun thought with satisfaction, and just as he expected, the giant body of the orc chieftain collapsed before him. You have defeated the hidden boss orc chieftain Kraglok. Level up. Personal honor has increased by 100,000 points. You have consumed orc chieftain Kraglok. Nutrients absorbed. Strength has increased by 30 points. The starving prince nibbles the food and his eyes widen, saying, "This is a true delicacy." The starving prince gobbled up the corpse, his cheeks flushing with excitement. Jong-sun just wondered if there was anything this guy wouldn't find delicious. With that thought, he glanced back and saw that his friend Han Cheol had already taken down the 2 remaining orcs, which surprised our protagonist a little. "Hey, you're pretty good. I didn't expect you to take down 2 of those fiends on your own." In response to this, Han Cheol grumbled to himself a little, "But even so, I was still a little slower than you." "Well, of course, here, drink this, and then let's head back to base," he said, handing Han Cheol a recovery potion. At that moment, however, a notification appeared before his eyes, shocking him completely. For the first time in the tower's history, Orc Chieftain Kraglok has been defeated. As a special benefit, the entire party of player, Jong-sun will receive a pass to Chapter 3 of the test. Looking at the notification, Jong-sun found it hard to believe and rubbed his eyes, staring at the screen to see if he was seeing things. A pass to Chapter 3. Isn't this a bit too generous? With this, we can prepare thoroughly for Chapter 4. Jong-sun chuckled to himself. At the same time, in the management office, the news of Jong-sun's victory over Kraglok was causing a stir among the staff. "Chief, is this all right?" "A pass to the test has never been given out like this before," the subordinate stammered. In response to this question, the chief immediately knocked some sense into him. "You idiot, don't you use your head? He's the one who defeated Kraglok. So what happens next? He'll start hunting other players. If he happens to take out a few more promising candidates, the gods will be furious." The subordinate continued, having understood the issue. The chief nodded. "Exactly. We aren't giving him a gift. We're just eliminating a threat. Besides, letting them pass won't affect the next stage much anyway. Chapter 4 is a siege warfare test.